Sai, thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me on, Anthony.
This is the first recording in the new studio. It's not built out yet, but we have a new table and we can smoke indoors. So it's going to be great.
It's always a plus.
Yeah, exactly. Tonight we're going to be sipping on a little Tres Generaciones. Probably not how you say it if you're Mexican or Hispanic, but that's how I pronounce it. It is a añejo tequila. It is $52 on sale. So we'll see how it is. That's what we're going to be sipping on. And then we'll light up a cigar a little later and see how things go. All right.
It's a nice dark color.
Yeah.
For tequila.
Do you have a preference? Cheers.
Of tequila?
Yeah, like Blanco, Añejo, Reposado.
I definitely prefer.
Those are the only three I know.
I think that's the only three in my
I think there's more.
Limited
but, yeah.
experience. But cheers.
I'm not a huge tequila connoisseur. I enjoy it. I like margaritas.
Well, depends on the margarita, I guess, right?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, that's kind of a general statement. But
Yeah.
generally, I like margaritas, especially the ones that what's that place right on the way to Winchester that we've run into? I think
Guadalajara.
Yeah, their margaritas are really good. You get some of the tajin and yeah, those are good.
No, so I was in the Cayman Islands a week before this past weekend, and I went to a tequila bar down there that my buddy's friend owns. So we got and it was for his bachelor party, and so we were drinking at the bar for free. And the guy was like, I was like, all right, what kind of tequilas do you have? And he was like, do you like mezcal? And I was like, well, I've only had mezcal a couple times. And he was like, well, I'm going to show you this imported kind of low-key snuck it across the ocean to get back to the Cayman Islands from Mexico. And I was like, this is amazing. So we put it in this super neat, like South American style bowl. And he was like, yeah, you got to coat your lips with the mezcal. And then you got to let it sit for like a minute. And then you can sip it to really get the full flavor. So I asked him, I was like, is that how you're supposed to drink like tequila? And he was like, yeah. So typically when you sip tequila, you're supposed to like take a little bit,
put it on your lips, but don't actually like drink
You can take a little bit of it.
Okay.
And then you just let it sit there. And it actually helps with like the full flavor of the tequila or the mezcal to like really penetrate. So then the next time you take a sip, it's supposed to be more flavorful. I don't know if that's because it like sits on your lips and it hits your nose a different way. Yeah. But he explained that to me. So we tried a few different types, and I was like, I really liked tequila before that. I liked it a lot more after I started drinking it that way.
Nice. Yeah. When I was in Ireland with Mark after I proposed and the girls had gone back home, we were in Ireland for a few more days or 2 more days, and we went to the Teeling distillery, like the Irish whiskey distillery, and we did a little like. There was a couple different tiers of tasting. You get the same tour, and then at the end, depending on how much you paid, you get more or less whiskey. So I think we got 2. And the guy who was leading the tasting was like, I don't know if everyone knows this. If you're a professional taster, you definitely do. But if not, just a word to the non-wise. And he was like, everyone has a dominant nostril. So he's like, what happens a lot of times people, they like smell it, kind of sniff it, take a sip. But he's like, what you actually want to do is you want to wave it under your nose because one of your nostrils will be able to smell more. And like, obviously you've got the Glencairn glass that's kind of like funneling the flavors and all this, which I was like, that is probably the most snobby thing I've ever heard of. But if it's true, then I guess it makes sense. And yeah, I want to do. So we did it and we were both kind of like, yeah, I guess so. But it's always kind of this thing where they're telling you, yeah, you should be tasting lemon. And you're like, yeah, I get lemon.
Right.
I don't think I would have got there by myself, obviously.
Right.
But
it's like you ever watch those movies where like, it's like the wine snobs. Let me just swirl this around. They go, and then they like spit it out. And you're like, oh, maybe that's because they have to clear their one good nostril. So
right.
Maybe it could be. Maybe that's what it is.
It could be. I feel like wine though, not to go on a tangent about alcohol tasting, but it seems like wine, if you're going to be snobby about something, wine seems like it makes more sense because the oxidization is a real thing. There's so many different regions. There's so many, not that like hard liquor doesn't have that, but it seems like there's less complexity. And with wine, there's like whole, like there's one vineyard in the world that makes this kind of wine. You don't really have that with bourbon. Like I guess you do have like certain distilleries that they're the only distillery that makes this one. But to me, it seems like the tasting notes are almost a little bit more vague. Maybe that's a lack of experience on my part. But I think if I see someone, actually, here's what it is. If you see someone being snobby about bourbon, they could be a big bourbon head. But I think it's almost like expected, if you're a guy, you're expected to like have an opinion about bourbon, but like I don't think a lot of people actually do. And so it's kind of like, it seems fake. Whereas if someone actually knows what they're talking about with wine, you're like, oh, they're a sommelier. Okay. Like they're snooty.
Right.
I don't really want to be friends with them, but they probably know what they're talking about. Like that's kind of the,
I definitely totally see what you're talking about there. And I don't really know that much about bourbon. I have like 5 that I like. I have like 1 Scotch that I like, and then I like Jameson Irish whiskey. Other than that, I'm not a big whiskey guy. I love Buffalo Trace. I love Eagle Rare. I like Maker's Mark. You know, I like the basic ones.
Yeah, kind of like good mid shelf.
Yeah, and then I don't know that much about them. I couldn't sip it and tell you like, oh, this tastes strong. That's kind of
this
why
is
I
barrel
drink
proof.
it. Like
yeah.
I drink it because it's like that's what you do as a man. But if you had to ask me, I'd prefer to drink a tequila.
Okay.
But there's this guy I watch on YouTube. I don't know what his name is, but he's like this big fat bearded guy, and he just tastes new bourbons and like rates them. And he knows a lot what he's talking about. And he basically says, as a rule of thumb, if his bourbon's not at least 100 proof, he's like, it's probably not going to be very good. And I don't know why he says that. It's just what he says with all his videos. He's like, oh, this is only 90 proof. He's like, it's probably not going to be that good. Or this is 92 proof or something. And he's like, oh, that's just like one of those like marketing things that they try to get you to get the bottle because it's like, oh, it's 92 proof. That's different. And he's like, typically those ones just don't taste that good. So I don't know if that has anything to do, but like he seems like a real bourbon guy.
Yeah.
But like for me, you could put any bourbon in front of me and I'd be like, yeah, I like this or I don't. But that's because I like it in relation to Maker's Mark or something. Yeah. That's like, oh, this tastes like that, so this is good. Or this tastes really peaty, so I don't want to drink that.
Right. Yeah, I think I'm kind of somewhere in the middle where I don't think I could blind identify the more expensive bourbon unless it was like a really cheap bourbon and then a really expensive bourbon, and then I would just say, okay, whichever one is like more smooth is probably the nicer one.
Right.
Because sometimes, generally speaking, that's true. But I think I don't know. I think it is good to have like a fair bit of knowledge about at least what you like. And even if you're like, yeah, I like the $12 bottle and I fill a glass full of ice and then I just drink that, like
splash of Coke.
Yeah, it's like that's not the classiest way to drink it, but if that's like the best drink is what you like, right? That's kind of the bartender's guide. The best drink you can make someone is a drink that they're going to like. So you might make a drink that you would never drink, but if they like it, like so when people come up and they ask for like red wine with ice cubes in it because they like their red wine cold. It's not how you drink red wine, but that's what they like. So, okay. Yep. Great. I mean, enjoy.
And I feel like, once you kind of get into those more niche ways of drinking certain drinks, like there's certain notes or like however you want to say flavors or something that comes out of it that you never experienced before. And you're like, yeah, this isn't good. Well, it's not for me, but it's at least unique.
Yeah. I didn't look up any tasting notes for this, but it definitely has a lot more complexity than your typical tequila.
Yeah. You wouldn't shoot this.
No.
Not like a cheaper
not
Blanco.
Like just like Jose Cuervo or something like that.
No. This is something that definitely seems like it's meant to be like sipped on. Or like it would be good in a drink, but not necessarily just like for the sake of shooting.
Yeah, it's kind of like, I think the aged tequilas are kind of similar to like Scotch. Like they're not indistinguishable, but they kind of have that like spicy, or a rye maybe, like a spicy flavor, a peppery flavor, a tiny bit. I wouldn't say this has peat, but
it's mezcal.
But you kind of get that aged, right?
Mezcal is more like Scotch, and tequila would be more akin to like a lighter Irish or like a bourbon, if you had to play the game,
right?
But like mezcal, the ones that I was drinking and came in, they almost tasted like a Scotch because I'm so inexperienced with both,
right?
That all I was getting was the peatiness.
So if someone just gave you that glass and said, identify this, you'd probably say Scotch.
That'd probably be my first guess. I wouldn't be thinking anything other than that because of how smoky it was. And some of the mezcals that he had were aged in old, like, I don't know if it was Scotch barrels, how it do it, but like they were infused somehow with a similar thing of Scotch at the same distillery. I don't know if that's common.
Yeah.
But he said he had this one that was like that, and I was like,
and is mezcal just 100% agave? Is that the difference between mezcal and tequila?
I think so. I think all tequilas are mezcals, but not. I think that's how it is. I think they're all. It's like all Scotch.
All Scotches are whiskey, but not
all whiskeys are Scotch. I think it's that kind of thing. So like tequila is a form of mezcal.
Okay.
And I think they're all, I don't know for sure.
Yeah, because I was always under the impression that mezcal was 100% agave, and then tequila was like agave with additives or aged or whatever.
I should really learn more because I like to drink it so much, but I just don't know. And mezcal. Okay. I mean, you gave me a little bit of that one when you were bartending back when Happy Creek was still there.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it was just Casamigos, right?
I think so.
That was pretty darn good.
Yeah, that's good.
Whatever happened to Happy Creek? Is that?
Yeah. Well, they moved to a new location.
Have they opened?
No.
So they're still just like.
I think it's just still in the gray zone. I actually texted Edwin a couple weeks ago because we were talking about doing a speakeasy cigar bar in the basement because he had all this like space and he didn't know what to do with it. And he was talking about doing a bar down there. And I was like, well, what if you did a speakeasy bar where it wasn't open all the time, but from like 6 to 10 every night it was open. And then on one side you do that. The other side, we'd have like a cigar club and you just get the right ventilation. You wouldn't have to pay to be a member. I was trying to figure out a way to do a cigar bar without having to do it myself. Right. So I was like, why don't we just have the space and then people can just bring cigars? That'd be great because then I can just text a bunch of people. We can hang out there or there's an event in town and then we can go. And I think he was down for the idea, but last I heard there was like a bunch of permitting that they were still waiting on and it's an old building. So there's like historic stuff. And it's kind of unfortunate because that was a great spot to go for coffee, for events.
When they made really
little bar.
They made really good drinks. Like you can't really get drinks like that anywhere in town. I mean, they used to have better.
Have you been to Catamount?
No.
They've got some good stuff. It's a little sketchy.
It kind of always looked a little odd to me in there.
Yeah.
There were some weird rumors, so I was like, I'm just going to
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I don't know about the weird rumors. I've been there a few times. There's definitely a weird crowd.
Yeah.
Like there's
it's Front Royal, right?
It's Front Royal, but it's like I don't know, you go into On Q and there's like you know half the people and they're like St. John's people and then there's some Front Royalty. That place you go in and it's like all Front Royal people and they have like a pride flag and people are tatted up and again, they might be totally nice people, but they just fit a certain stereotype.
But they make good drinks?
They have not all of them, but the one thing that I did, well, two things. They have a really extensive drink menu, which I like. It's not just like old fashioned gin and tonic, like stuff I can make at home. All of them have, even like your traditional drinks, all have a cool variation. So they had like an old fashioned, but it was like with walnut bitters and some kind of like froth on top. I was like, oh, okay, I can't do that at home.
It's a little more unique, or like they do it with like the egg whites or something.
Yeah, or whiskey sours, egg whites. And then they also had a lot of their own drinks, which I think are actually just riffs on traditional drinks, but they named it something else. So if you don't really know what the traditional drink is, if it's got like Campari and vermouth, and it's probably something you've had before or seen before, but then they put 3 other ingredients in it and a lemon twist on top, and it's their own drink.
Right. I mean, a lot of the time, those drinks kind of just end up being kind of bad because it's like, I'd rather just have the original.
Sometimes, yeah. Sometimes it's way better, though. I mean, like I had a New York whiskey sour. Have you ever had that? So it's whiskey sour. You make it totally the same, egg white, and then you just layer a tiny bit of red wine on top.
Ooh, that sounds
super good.
Yeah.
But that's the type of thing that I could see, like based on what you're saying, like I don't know, it's a whiskey sour that you're ruining with wine. But I was like, no, it's actually a whiskey sour that just got a tiny bit better, or at least just like a little different. You're like, huh, that's different, right?
Yeah, because it's like a lot of the time you go out and you're like, okay, I want to drink, but I can make a martini at home or margarita at home or an old fashioned at home. So like, I want to justify coming out. So you know, and a lot of times like, oh, well, it's a raspberry whiskey sour, and you're like, I don't know if this is worth it.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, I wouldn't say just adding berries to drinks is good, but the one thing I did like about Catamount, although because of the type of people that go in there, I don't know if I would actually bring Kathleen there, but they had like a 4-page mocktail menu, and it wasn't just like cranberry juice and lime. It was like 8 ingredients, like legitimate, like.
So they actually give time to, especially around here, that goes far when everybody's wife is pregnant half the year.
Yeah, or if you're not drinking, or if you're with someone who's underage, like they're like maybe 20 or 19, and you want to like go out and have a drink with them, but they can't really get a drink.
And they're not cool enough to have a fake ID. And
right, exactly, yeah, and you're not going to give them yours, and it's just... So,
right.
Yeah.
No, that is neat. You don't see like
Sorry, I keep playing footsie with you.
No, yeah.
Sorry, everyone.
It's a new bar. No, that's why we don't go to Catamount.
Is that the rumor?
No.
Yeah. I also had been there one time when they were doing karaoke, and everyone was feeling it.
Maybe we should go there after this. If they're open.
Maybe we should. Actually, that's another thing I was going to say about them. I think they're open till 1.
Even on like when
Tuesday?
It's got to be a weekend.
On the days that they're open.
Yeah.
No, I think it's every night except like Monday and Tuesday.
Oh, wow.
I'm pretty sure it's like midnight or 1.
That's really nice.
Because I remember going there one time and there was almost no one in there. And I was like, my mind was just blown because I was like, oh my gosh, if they make like craft cocktails and they're open till 1, I can start a podcast at 7. We can go till 10 and then I can take the guest there for an hour and just have like an awesome drink at the end of the night.
Oh yeah. Well, especially if you're, stop me if I'm going to divulge any information, but especially if you're going to get more like prominent people on as you go with like this whole artifacts thing.
Yeah.
That would totally be worth it for them, because what are they going to do? They're going to come to town. They're going to do artifacts one night. They're going to do your podcast. And they're like, all right, it's 10 o'clock. It's like, well, they're not doing anything the next day except flying.
Right.
So they want to go to a bar, and you don't want to take them to on cue necessarily.
Yeah, let's go play pool. Yeah. We'll see. I'm not really sure. I think in my mind, guests want to do a certain thing, but I've never been asked to be on a podcast, and I haven't had a guest that's big enough that I feel like I need to cater to them in that way. Like, okay, we got to take him to dinner, then we're going to do the podcast. So I'm kind of curious what like the typical, like when Frad has someone on, I assume that he has someone pick them up from the airport. They do the interview, then they get dinner, or they get dinner, then they do the interview. But then like, do they go hang out? I know some of his friends, they go to the lounge and have cigars. I kind of wonder if it's like, thanks, have a good night. And then they drop him at the hotel, and then that's it. And then like no contact. I would like, again, guest dependent, and it really just depends on who it is, because they may not drink, or they maybe have an early flight or something. But if I had a big guest out here, I would like, hey, let's go to the coffee shop in the afternoon. Let's go like Seafront Royal. Let's get dinner at like a local place that I know the owner. Then let's come on the podcast, and then let's have like a close group of friends and have like a book signing, a whiskey night, a cigar night afterwards, like 9 to 11. And then that way they kind of feel like, we saw the town, we got dinner, we did the show. It's a whole experience, and not just you show up at the door, you talk for 2 hours, have a good night.
Yeah, well,
I don't know.
You'd also be way more likely to get him back. I mean, you almost had the Pipe Cottage guy on,
yeah,
right?
I know. I'm really bummed about that.
He had like a family emergency.
Yeah.
Because like,
he's supposed to come back out here.
You totally could have gotten that guy to like, we're going to go to Caverns, or we're going to go to Skyline Drive, and then we're going to get coffee and just do a couple things and say, hey, let's go look at the Christendom Chapel or something.
Yeah, part of the restraints are just time. Like I think until or if this ever becomes full time, then I could say, I have 2 guests this week, and like I'm spending those 2 days fully with them, showing them the town, hanging out with them, getting to know them, then interviewing them, then doing dinner. That I can make it a whole process. But if it's something where I have to take off early from work to go take someone to dinner and then do an interview, and then I have work early the next morning, it's not the best way to do it. But obviously, like if Trent Horn came to town, or if Matt Frad came to town, I would maximize the time I have with them as much as they would want to, without it being weird. And presumably if they're going to come to Front Royal and they're Catholic and they want to see a Catholic town, they'd want to go to mass and go to adoration and see the coffee shops and go, just kind of like, give me the tour of the town. Like, let's go to Spunkers. Let's,
Right.
So I think that would be really fun if you actually got into a rhythm. If you have a couple guests a week, and there's a few restaurants you go in between, you have the show, and then you and like 10 of my other closest friends, we just do a cigar night with them. Like that'd be awesome. Cause then you just get to meet people you'd never get to meet otherwise.
And I'm sure they would love that from just like a good time, so like they'd be likely to come back.
I think so.
If anybody like reached out to them, like, hey, what do you think about this Anthony guy?
Is he total weirdo?
Yeah.
Don't go on the podcast.
Like, no, it's a really good.
You're going to spend the first 45 minutes talking about tequila.
Yeah. But they're like, it'd be a really good time. So you kind of build up a little bit of that rapport, and then it's like if they talk about the experience they had while they were on the podcast.
Right.
That's something I've built a lot of rapport, right? I mean, I don't know if that works. Sometimes they 100%. Talk about it too much, and you're like, I don't really care about what you guys did today.
Shut up! Tell me about theology. Yeah. I don't know. We were talking before. You said that you're like a big podcast connoisseur.
Well, it's just because I drive so much.
Yeah, and I do the same thing. Like I have it on while I'm working, while I'm driving, while I'm inspecting, while I'm just kind of when I'm doing whatever. And I've sort of seen a trend. And you've probably seen this depending on what podcast you listen to, where like Joe Rogan, Sean Ryan, Frad, like some of these like big podcasters, Theo Vaughn, they kind of have all the same people on. Mm-hmm. And sometimes it's like Matthew McConaughey writes a book and then he goes on all the 10 big podcasts, right? You're like, okay, he's going to be on all these podcasts.
Jocko Willink's putting a movie out. Let's put him on 25 podcasts this month.
Right. Yeah. So there is that. And that's part of it. It's kind of like going on a book tour, but now that podcasting is a thing, you go on big podcasts and talk, you try to sell your product or sell your book or showcase your business to another platform, to another group of listeners. But it is funny because it seems like it's sort of the same in the Catholic world with Catholic podcasts, or not even Catholic podcasts, but just kind of like maybe more like wholesome podcasts, where there is kind of a similar group of people that get passed around. And I'm almost positive that it's like you sort of just get to this point where you know all these people, and then they just kind of connect you it's all like kind of this networking game with who you know.
It's really interesting also when you kind of get into like, there's like the trad podcasters, and then there's like, I don't want to call them normal Catholics, but like the more mainstream but still traditional Catholics. So like the Matt Frads and the Trent Horns compared to like the Taylor Marshalls and that one guy that was on Tim Pool. His name was like Tim. He was like,
oh yeah, I know you're talking about.
I can't remember what his name was. Tim Gordon.
Tim Gordon, yeah.
So like,
Timothy Gordon.
And then there's like that world where it's like a little bit more hardcore, and they kind of do exactly what you're talking about. Like the Tim Gordons and the Taylor Marshalls, they kind of just like, you know, they have their certain guests that they gravitate towards, or like a lot of time they have like their own singular shows. But then like the Trent Horns and the Matt Frads and guys who kind of operate in that landscape, they have more of like a similar crowd on. It's very interesting.
Which, regardless of what kind of which side you fall on or what you tend to listen to more, I do really kind of like the more, not even secular, but kind of normal Catholics. Not that I listen to them more than the other ones, it's probably about equal, but what I like, you don't really see Taylor Marshall going on a lot of the other shows, but like Matt Fradd goes on a lot of the Daily Wire shows, and he goes on, you know, Father Mike Schmitz will go on like kind of more Megyn Kelly and kind of more secular podcasts. Right. Now, that's a different discussion of whether they should do that or not, but I think that's great. Like if Megyn Kelly has all these followers and then Father Mike comes on and talks about grief from a Catholic perspective, I think that's awesome. Like Bishop Barron is a good example of that. He goes on all kinds of shows. Right. And could you say that he's too secular and is like getting paid all this money? Yeah, maybe. But I think you could also say that he's evangelizing a lot of people in a way that no one would ever hear about Catholicism. Yeah, and it kind of cuts both ways.
I want to be totally fair to somebody like Taylor Marshall. It's like, yeah, maybe some of your opinions are kind of harsh and a little bit out there, but at the end of the day, he's got a show. He's got a certain belief system, and he'll be the first to say, if you actually listen to a show, like he doesn't hold it against them. He's just like, I just think there's certain things that some of these guys do or certain opinions that they have that I disagree with, but I'm not necessarily knocking them overall. Right. He's just like, it's not what I do. And this is my show, so I get to talk about what I want. And if you like it, great. And if you don't have to listen. And I'm like, I kind of respect that. But
for sure.
He's not necessarily saying it to put these people down. He's more like, well, you're putting yourself in the public image to be criticized publicly, which is what I'm doing. I'm not, gossiping or calumniating. Calumniating? Yeah.
Calumny.
I'm not committing calumny against these people because, it's all public forum. I'm not revealing personal secrets. So, if he wants to be critical of Barron, that's fine.
Yeah.
But I think it's also within Barron's rights to be critical back.
Sure.
And it's like you're all kind of that's kind of how this discourse works.
Yeah.
So people who are like, oh, Taylor Marshall's too mean or he's too this, and I'm like, well, yeah, but he's got 1 million followers on YouTube and he's fairly successul and he writes fairly decent books. Yeah, there's some things I don't agree with in them, but there's other things I really do agree with. So it's like it's like anybody.
Yeah.
So I think it's just very tough to kind of operate in that Catholic Christian world where everything's under a microscope and you don't want to lead people the wrong way because you're proclaiming the truth and things like that. But.
Yeah, and I think it's also a kind of a common misconception that if you follow someone, quote unquote, follow them, and you listen to them a lot and you consume all their content, that you agree with them 100%. I don't know if there's really anyone. There's a few that I agree with them on most things, at least on what they've talked about.
Yeah.
But even people that I listen to all the time and agree with them on all kinds of stuff, they'll say something like, no, I just fundamentally disagree with that.
Right. Well,
but it's not okay, now I'm cutting him off. Now, if he said, let's say Fradd or Taylor Marshall or someone comes out and says, I've thought about it a lot. They're totally serious. I think we are in schism and I think that the Pope isn't valid and all this stuff. Okay. At that point, I may need to say, okay, I have to cut you off because I don't agree with you. Now you're schismatic. Now there's all this kind of this host of other problems. Even if 95% of what you're saying I agree with, your fundamental belief and the thing that you're kind of doing to either to get attention or because you actually agree with, on this topic.
Yep.
Okay, now I'm cutting you off. But if Bishop Barron says something pro about girl altar servers, or if Taylor Marshall says something negative about the Novus Ordo, I'm I might agree or disagree on that thing, but that doesn't really write them off for me.
Sure.
And if that happens a lot, I probably just stop listening to them as much because I only have so much time. But yeah, I find it, even people I really disagree with, like Joe Rogan, I don't agree with him on a ton of stuff, especially theologically. I still listen to him all the time because he's fun. He has good guests.
Yeah.
He's a good interviewer. Okay.
For Joe
Like-
Rogan, I definitely am super choosy about which episodes to listen to.
Oh,
'Cause
for sure.
For him, he's a great interviewer, but it's incredibly dependent on the guest.
Yeah, I mean,
for a
I
show
barely
like that.
ever listen to when he has comedians on.
Yeah, same here. I mean,
Like-
sometimes if it's like, but then you get like 20 minutes in, you're like, I just want to stop listening to like gross,
Yeah.
sexual.
Right.
I just this is not what I want to listen to during my day.
Yeah, for sure. Or like the fight companion stuff when they're talking about like all the MMA stuff.
Yeah,
like I'm not into that. I don't think I have time to get into that. But if he has, like when he had Matt Walsh on, great, I want to listen to that. Or he had, well, obviously when he had Trump on, it's like,
Right.
I totally want to listen to this. Like this is super fast. This is like an iconic interview. Yeah, I'm going to listen to this.
I grew up watching these PBS shows about like, history and stuff. And then he had the director of those PBS movies that I used to watch when I was a kid on. And I was like, I want to listen to that.
Yeah.
And the guy was like super
interesting.
super liberal.
Who's that?
But his documentaries are really good, really well thought out, really fair. I've watched one recently even, and then he was on Joe Rogan, and I was like, I mean, this is a total northeastern Vermont
Yeah.
woods
Yeah.
liberal guy.
Is this the guy that does like the Civil War documentaries
Yeah,
and stuff?
Civil War, American Revolution.
Okay, yeah.
There was a couple of different ones. I've only seen like 3 of them, but they're really long. They're really
Yeah.
well thought out. And I was like, I'll listen to that. That's interesting.
Mm-hmm.
And I just happened to have watched them before,
Sure.
and I was like, all right, cool.
Yeah, and there's
But-
just some random ones that, like, did you listen to the one with Josh Brolin?
the Thanos.
Yeah.
No, I didn't listen to that one.
It's actually like really good.
I mean, he had Mel Gibson on.
Yeah, that one's also really good.
Yeah.
And he said some stuff that was like kind of crazy about Catholicism that I didn't agree with.
He's Pius V.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that was kind of wild. But yeah, having guests like that either have this like incredible presence or just kind of who they are. You're like, yeah, I've never heard Mel Gibson unleashed for 4 hours.
Yeah, no,
I'm kind of down.
It was super
I'm into it.
fascinating. And then like, he's kind of a kook, but he's also like,
But you also kind of like him.
he's really cool.
Yeah. He's kind of the guy that like you disagree with most of the time. But then if like the world, like if there's an apocalypse, I'd be like, what's Mel Gibson up to? Like, I feel like he might have some good ideas. He's been in enough movies.
I watched. I was like kind of on a Mel Gibson hot kick for a little bit. I was like, oh, we're gonna watch, Patriot and Braveheart, which are like classics.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, we were soldiers. And then I was like, oh, maybe I'll watch a chick flicks. We watched What Women Want, and I watched that with Sadie, and I was like, that wasn't that good. But then I always remember my dad talking about Lethal Weapon, and I was like, oh man, I've heard so many, old heads who were like, I watched that movie. I watched maybe 40 minutes of it. I don't think I have ever seen a more
100%
terrible
agree.
80s.
This might be your
film.
best take of the whole episode.
I'm not gonna lie. Like
Kathleen said it was a great movie, and we watched it, and then we got to the end, and I was like, "This was terrible. I did not like."
I think
this
I got
movie.
to the scene where they were like shooting up the drug people in the pool, and I was like, "This is like, 2000s
Laughable.
like indie rock band music video level acting and like shooting," and I was like, "This is a horrible movie." So I hear everybody says that the second one's better.
Okay, Lethal
So
Weapon
maybe
2.
I'll have to try it out.
I just heard of a movie the other day, and I don't know why, but I thought of you, and I was like, maybe Sai has seen this movie. Have you ever seen Locke with Tom Hardy?
No, I can't say that I have.
Okay, I haven't seen it.
I've seen a lot of movies.
The review that I saw was it. One of the top comments was like, "It's literally just Tom Hardy in a car talking on the phone for 2 hours." 10 out of 10. I was like, I'm down. He's a great actor. So
I watched a movie that got horrible reviews, but I ended up really liking it. And it was originally a Dutch film.
Okay.
But the premise of the movie is a 911 dispatcher gets a call, and the person that calls him is like being kidnapped. And so he basically walks this person through like, how do you do this in a kidnapping situation? And it kind of takes you down a big path. I'm not going to spoil the movie, but it's all just a camera on him in the dispatch room, and he's like a disgruntled police officer who like got in trouble and his punishment was being a dispatch caller for like a couple months, and the whole movie just takes place over one day with this like one call calling back and repeatedly, and all the while there's like a big it's a big fire in LA, so I'm not spoiling anything there because it happens all the time. But like, there's no resources for this woman who got kidnapped because everybody's trying to fight the fire and like prevent people from dying. And so the only person that cares about her is him, and he doesn't have any cops to send to her. So like, he's got to manage this whole situation from behind a desk. It's really good. It's like
Is it in Dutch or
no? So there's a Dutch movie, and then there's an American movie with Jake Gyllenhaal.
wait? What's this called? Someone just recommended
It's on
Jake Gyllenhaal.
It's on Netflix.
Okay.
And it's a Netflix original.
Okay.
But it's based on a Dutch movie. And the Dutch movie has like 1,000,000 reviews that are great, and the American movie has 0 good reviews. And I was like, that doesn't make any sense. This movie was actually good. So I think it just kind of shows that Americans.
Well, it probably
hate
also
simple.
depends. Yeah.
And I don't know if
It
there
depends
was a
on
bunch
when
of
it came
differences.
out too, right? Like,
Yeah,
if
I mean, I think it was like 21. It was like 2020. It was like a
Okay.
COVID movie.
Okay.
So I watched it on my phone in my room under lockdown.
Great movie. Yeah.
And I was like, this is pretty good.
Yeah.
It was an hour and a half, and I was like, this is really gripping. I can't remember the name of it. I want to say it was called something like 911, but I could be wrong.
Wow. So basic.
What Jake Gyllenhaal movie were you recommended?
What's that?
What Jake Gyllenhaal movie were you recommended?
I'm trying to remember. It was like,
I think I've seen every Jake Gyllenhaal movie. So
are you a big fan?
yeah, I like him as an actor. I mean, he's done Prisoners with Denis Villeneuve.
I really haven't seen that many.
Hugh Jackman, where like Hugh Jackman's daughters get kidnapped.
Okay. I've seen the trailer for that. I think.
That's a really good movie.
Yeah. Who was telling me about this the other day?
There's a lot of good ones. Nightcrawler might be one. That's a pretty.
Oh, I think it was Nightcrawler.
Where he's like a
Yeah.
a news guy who like takes videos. Yeah,
That's exactly what it was.
That's like a top 10 movie for me all time.
Really?
Yeah, I've
Do
seen it.
you have your top 10 list?
I don't have like.
Or does it change?
I don't have like a strict top 10 list. It's just like that.
But we can
movie-
agree on a couple top 10s, like Inception.
Oh,
top
definitely
10?
not. No.
Really?
I'm
You're not
actually,
an Inception
I'm
guy?
actually not a big Nolan fan.
Really?
Like I
would
really
not
like
put you at
Batman
that.
Begins.
Okay.
And I'm pretty high on The Dark Knight for most movies, and then I'm kind of out on almost every other Nolan movie.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Like-
don't like
like-
all of them. I think Inception is great. I think that Interstellar is super overrated. It's cool. It's a cool idea. I think it's way overrated. I think Inception is awesome. Like one of the best Nolan movies. I really liked The Prestige. I think The Prestige is actually pretty underrated.
So you said my best take was the Lethal Weapon one.
Uh-huh.
This is gonna be my worst take compared for you.
You
then.
hate it, don't you?
I think The Prestige is a very well-made movie, well acted, a lot of good things going for it. Right. I think there's one thing that absolutely takes me out of the movie.
Okay.
And it's like the concept of suspension of disbelief in sci-fi or fantasy or whatever you want to classify The Prestige. But you kind of are on a journey of everything is real and they're and they're like real life magicians. Okay? That's kind of how the movie sets it up for, I'd say, the first 60% of it.
Yeah.
And then Nikola Tesla comes in and actual magic is introduced, and there's only one real, like, actual magic trick, and everything else is like real magicians doing real life tricks and like committing to a bit. And I think the actual magic in The Prestige kind of ruins the whole movie for me. Because, like I said, 90% of the movie, or maybe 80% of the movie, is actual magicians
Right.
who are like in a grounded world. And even with like the end twist, and I'm going to spoil it for your listeners because it's been out for 20 years. If you haven't seen it, you're probably not going to watch it anyway. Like, what's the guys? Christian Bale actually being twins and like
Right.
they committing to everything and they have to chop each other's finger. Like, that's cool. I love that. I hate the cloning machine, and I think it absolutely ruins the storyline for me. I can appreciate everything else about it.
Yeah.
It's probably like 75% of it, A+ movie. But sometimes there's like one thing that just takes you out of it from a suspension of disbelief
Sure.
perspective. And it kind of just took me out of the story.
Interesting.
And everything else I didn't appreciate because it felt
Yeah.
like a cheat. It felt like a,
yeah. I could see that.
It just-
see,
it
that's
just didn't coincide.
What I thought was, honestly, all those things. But the reason that I liked it was that I thought that it was intentional, that they want you to be like, are you kidding? Because I think that's what they want. They want the audience to be like, really? These guys have been doing magic, and they committed their entire lives and like sacrificed their personal lives and their thumbs and all this stuff to this bit. And then this guy's just doing it for real and doesn't care. He's like totally breaking the rules. And so as the audience, you're upset by that, which I feel like the movie critic in you is upset that Nolan took that step. But the way that I kind of received it was like, I'm upset at the opposing side that Hugh Jackman and Nikola Tesla would do this because it ruins what they've got. Like, they didn't play by the rules. But I took that as like, oh, Nolan's doing this intentionally, and not, okay, how do we make this ending? Let's just use real magic. Yeah, that's not how I took it. But
I can definitely see that. I think the only thing for me is like, I wanted the obsession of both guys to be like totally in like how good they were at their craft. Because if you think of any other movie out there that's like two top tier guys going at each other.
Yeah.
It's usually one guy who's doing it because he's like a good moral person, or he's committed to it, but like kind of committed to it rightfully. And then another guy who's committed to it, really talented, but he's willing to break the rules. And I guess if you take that perspective on the Prestige, I can get that. But I think it would have been a lot more compelling to see Hugh Jackman's character devolve as opposed to his like magic become more real. Like it just, I feel like it could have been. It would have hit harder for me if it was like, hey, he's probably even the better magician. But the thing that causes his downfall is his obsession letting him take that over. Whereas like Christian Bale at the end of it, whether you want to say he was good or not, like I think he was the better character. So that's kind of why he got the last laugh, or however you want to put it. Like, I don't know. That's just kind of how I look at it.
Yeah.
But I see your point. You're probably the first person that's made that point to me.
What's the other one that I just watched recently? I did not like Tenet that much. I thought it was a really cool idea, and some of the scenes were really cool. Like, obviously, the real plane flying into the hangar and some of the backwards car stuff. But I felt like it was built on it's kind of like every sci-fi movie where they're like, premise, this thing happens, take that for granted, then the rest of the movie makes sense. Yeah. I never got the thing that you're supposed to, that suspension of disbelief. I was never like, okay, cool, I get it. I was just like, I don't really get why this is possible. And then they tried to explain it. And I felt like a lot of the dialogue was hard to hear. And I thought the music was good and some of the action was good. And Robert Pattinson was great. And I know there were some highlights, but I didn't walk away being like, wow, I need to like really unpack this. I just was like, it's confusing. And I don't like that I need to watch it like 4 more times.
I'm never going to watch it again.
Yeah.
I watched it in the theater and I was like, it kept me engaged. Like I will say this, like no one knows how to keep an audience engaged, but like Inception, I kind of felt like that with the whole dream thing. Like I didn't really like that. And I feel like Inception's kind of unfair for me to criticize because it was like the biggest movie ever when I was growing up and I was the youngest. Like it was all my siblings ever talked about. My dad was like, this movie's great. So just from a young age,
do you think it was like a little rebellious that you
I think
to not like it?
It was a little bit like the rebel in me was like, whatever.
See, that's kind of how I feel about Star Wars because I didn't really grow up with it. Everyone loves it, and I just think it's overrated. I think the originals are good. I think they're classic. I would let my kids watch them. I think the prequels are worse, and I think they're pretty boring. I think the music's fine. The acting, I think, is pretty bad, and I think that the dialogue's worse. And then all of the recent stuff is all terrible. And so everyone that's kind of like, oh, it was really good until the most recent movie, or like The Mandalorian ruined it. Or I'm like, no, Star Wars has been crappy the whole time. It's just nostalgic. And the original 3 are like, okay.
Yeah.
And kind of okay for their time. Like, I don't know.
I care about Star Wars in so much as it's a cultural event. Like, as much as I care about a Marvel movie.
Yeah, for sure.
Marvel movies haven't been cultural events in a while, so I don't really care about them anymore.
Yeah.
And it's like Star Wars movies, I can appreciate what they did and like what they did for their time. Because I mean, the first one came out 79. That's pretty impressive for a movie like it kind of still holds up today
for sure,
fairly well. So like that's really cool. There's certain lenses that you look at certain movies in where you're like, yeah, the story's bad, or like the effects are bad, but like the original Planet of the Apes, like the concept, the meta talk, like that's really good stuff. The acting's really good. Yeah, it's cheesy. Yeah, like the monkeys look dumb, but like the story itself is really what you're coming for.
Right.
It's nothing like the newer ones, which is like an action film, which are, I mean, I still like them a lot, but like, I feel like with film, you kind of have to, especially with older movies, you have to kind of appreciate them for the time that they came out, and like the achievement that they made at the time, because that has a lot of impact on like the cultural. Because like, if they didn't achieve certain things from a technological perspective with Star Wars, nobody would care about it today.
Right.
So there's a little bit of respect that's due from like what they set up and like the precedent that they set from what they had in the 70s, I would say is kind of what's deserved them, or like owed to them, the respect of like 40 plus years of, fandom IP, and people liking it. But I get what you mean. Like, if you never grew up with it and you don't really think about it or care about like that perspective, the movies themselves
and
are
to
not
be fair,
and I don't really think anybody's saying that they are.
Yeah, and I think my problem with it is that I think there's people who are adults who grew up watching them as kids and are nostalgic for watching them as kids, and then as adults are saying they're great adult movies. And I think what
Disney adults.
right, and I really think what the distinction that needs to be made is I loved this as a kid, and it's a timeless classic kids movie, and as a kids movie or a young adult movie, it's a great movie. Yes, it's outdated now, but like for its time, it was fantastic. The same thing with Jaws. The same, like a lot of these movies, it's like they're outdated now, but some of them still hold their, they still have character development. They still actually are a good film.
I'd push back on Jaws. I think that's actually a good movie. Like through and through.
I guess I was just talking about like the technical effects specifically, but so yeah, I think I have a problem with adults being like, no, the Star Wars universe is actually really deep and it's all connected and it's all this. And I'm like, okay, some of it's deep. There are some deep things. I think it's just better to say, as a kid's movie about a sci-fi universe, it's awesome. And as a kid, I loved it.
Yeah, you don't
but
even
as an adult,
you don't necessarily even have to call it a kids movie. You could just call it like a simple action plot that has really cool technological achievements for its time. Yeah, and it's like got cool motifs. Like lightsabers are. I mean, that might be the most iconic weapon of all time.
Yeah, so 100%. Like,
you can
Darth Vader's a classic villain,
but I don't think anybody who's I agree with you. Like, if you try to come at me and say like that's the best movie objectively of all time, it's like that's kind of ridiculous.
Right? By what standard?
Yeah. It's like from certain perspectives, but not from like storytelling.
Have you ever heard? This just made me think. I'll send it to you if you haven't listened to it. But Tucker had what's his name? He's a big comedian. Tim Dillon on his show like a couple years ago. It was like maybe 3 years ago.
Tim Dillon,
and he's pretty funny. He's pretty funny. Obviously, I don't agree with a lot of his stuff, but it is kind of hard to sort truth from fiction with him. Like he'll go on this huge rant, and I'm like, at the end of it, I don't really know where he stands. He's just saying things.
But I was there for the ride.
Yeah. But when he went on Tucker's show, the first I want to say half hour, they were talking about Disney adults, and I actually thought he gave a really good comedic interpretation of Disney adults. And obviously he's like cussing and and kind of being crude and whatever, but he was like, I just don't understand. He's like, I like Pinocchio as much as the next guy, but I'm not obese sitting in a cart with Mickey ears cheering for the parade. He's like, that's crazy. He's like, what's not crazy is you like the movie as a kid, and then as an adult you enjoy watching that movie with your kids. That's normal. And that means it's a timeless movie because as an adult, you can appreciate a kid's movie with your kids. He's like, that's why if you go to the theme park with your kids, it's great that it's nostalgic for you,
but
you're going with kids. But he's like, if you're just like a gay couple going to Disney, he's like, that doesn't mean anything. Like, you're living as children. You're adults. Stop living in this like Peter Pan fantasy of we want to always be children. He's like, the point of Peter Pan is that growing up is a good thing, but it's okay to enjoy childhood and have an innocence about childhood. And as a parent, it's good to keep that for your kids. Like, there is a lesson in there, but the lesson is not be a child forever and let the government take care of you. And he had this really funny monologue about it. And I was like, honestly, this is a great take.
Yeah.
Like, this is fantastic.
I think that's really true. And even, guys like Tim Dillon can hit at a lot of truth sometimes. Like, I saw one clip of him talking about the 2008 stock market crash and like what caused the housing crisis.
Yeah.
And I was just like, I have never seen there are moments where you're drinking with your buddies and you get really passionate about something and you're talking about, church history or something.
Yeah.
And one guy just has like a 15-minute monologue and you're like, I disagreed with like 30-40% of the things that he just said, but I just let him go because he was on a roll and I loved every second of it. Like, that's what Tim Dillon shines in. But I think his points on, he touches on a lot of really good things. Like, you and I got kids. You got 2 kids now. Congrats on Robert, by the way.
Thanks, man.
Happy he's doing well.
Yeah.
It's like, not only is you being nostalgic and you like enjoying those things as a kid important for yourself, but it's also important for like you to show those things to kids.
Yeah, totally.
Fairy tales. I'm kind of a big fairy tale guy.
Have you ever listened to any of Peterson's stuff that he's done recently on fairy tales?
No.
You actually might like it.
No, I've read 2 or 3 books now. That's actually how I got into fairy tales, was because I listened to Matt Fradd podcast with a Russian Orthodox guy. Yeah, I think so. And
Jonathan Peugeot. Yeah, he's like the icon carver.
Yeah, I don't know anything about him. I just
cool.
I just listened to the episode and then I was like, oh, well, he said to read this one book. So I bought the book and then I read the book and I was like, oh man, this is kind of cool. So then for Christmas, my mother-in-law is like, she goes all out for getting, if you tell her anything on your list, she makes sure she gets everything and then some. Like my mother-in-law's, she's great. But I asked for Russian fairy tales one year, and I got like 7 big books of Russian fairy tales. So every once in a while, I'll be hanging out with Sadie, and as Leo gets older, we'll read them. But I'll read one, or we'll read a Grimm fairy tale, or I want to buy like the original Little Mermaid or the original Bambi and read some of those because, the original fairy tales, not like the Disney versions or like the kid versions. They're actually really, really
They're really adult books.
They're really just life books. Like any age can appreciate them and get something out of it. But this one book I was reading was called Tending to the Heart of Virtue.
Okay.
The guy had a weird Scandinavian style last name, so I'm not even going to try to pronounce it. But one of his comments in the book was he taught the same curriculum, the same set of books, with a fairly similar like comprehension levels, like as far as how he was presenting it to his students, to a group of like 3rd or 4th graders, and then freshman college kids in the early 2000s, late 90s. And he said the 3rd and 4th graders were way better at comprehending the story, getting the lessons out of the story. Like they just got what the author was originally intending so much better than the college age kids. And he was like, why is that? And so then the rest of his book is kind of delving into what a fairy tale does for a child's mind as opposed to an adult's mind who was never exposed to fairy tales. Because in our like postmodern culture where it's like, oh, we only want the facts and we only want science and we don't need any of that fairy tale crap, that's for kids and all that stuff. A whole 2, 3, 4 generations of people got deprived of fairy tales.
Yeah.
And now their lives are in shambles.
What do you think that fairy tales...
This is basically one of his thesis. So I just thought that was interesting.
What do you think that fairy tales provide to kids?
I mean, as someone who didn't really read a lot of fairy tales as a kid, I fall into the camp of have a tough time comprehending. But my wife she read a lot and she was kind of more in that world. So like I'll read a fairy tale to her and like, I'll try to like do the voices and like play the part a little bit, but at the end of it, I'm like, I don't really know what that was about. So I asked her and she's like, oh, this is what it's about. But I guess what fairy tales provide, they definitely seem to be like very justice based. So like not every fairy tale has to have a happy ending. Like the bad character gets a bad thing happen to him, or sometimes a good character gets something bad to happen to him and the kid goes, yep. Like that's kind of how this stuff works. Like I think one of the biggest thing it provides kids is a sense of justice. How? I don't know. That's kind of just a talking point I hear from people who are smarter than me. But sometimes if you read certain fairy tales, like you can get it. Like there was one fairy tale that we read, it was a Russian one, and it was about this kid who was lazy. His parents were dead, and he was being raised by his 3 older sisters. And he's like sitting on top of a stove, and then his sister's like, you need to go do something. Like you need to go fish for food. And there was a couple other things that happened, but basically he goes fishing, and he catches a fish, and he gets eaten by the fish, and that's kind of how it ends. And it was like the one time he did something where he wasn't lazy, something bad happened to him. And so you're kind of like sitting there as an adult, and you're like, I don't really get what the point of this was. Like it kind of seems like it's saying, yeah, you should be lazy and you should be going to do hard work. But one of the things that Sadie mentioned was like, well, it seemed like he was so lazy all the time, and so the one time he actually did something and he did it unwillingly, his justice was to die. Because he was a lazy human being and he didn't even do the thing he was supposed to be doing willingly. So like it kind of only makes sense for him to have a punishment.
Yeah.
And so there's things like that where you're like, I don't really get it, but someone who kind of grew up in the world of fairy tale and like understanding the kind of motifs and how it works is like justice operates on I'd say a pretty integral level to how fairy tales operate. So I'd probably say that's the biggest thing you get from them.
Yeah. Interesting.
But I mean, I'm not a scholar. I don't read them all the time. I like the idea of them. I like a lot of the motifs and like how short some of them are and just like different ideas behind them. But
I really liked, Peterson did I forget what he called it, like maybe an analysis of Snow White, the original Snow White by like the Grimm brothers, which I had never read. I think I'd heard parts of it, but the general outline is the same as the Disney adaptation, but a lot of the different iterations, a lot of the different temptations that the stepmother uses and the different verbiage is all different. And I think it was like maybe an hour, close to an hour, maybe a little bit more. And he would just read a couple sentences and then explain, or if it was something that was pretty straightforward, he would just read it. And it was really, really fascinating. Like, I don't know what your opinions on Peterson are, or if you like listening to him, but some people are against him. But anyway, I think he's great, and I really liked his because if there was a lecture on Snow White, I would not be interested in listening to it most of the time.
It depends on who gives it, in my opinion.
It depends on who gives it, but like generally, that's not something I'm going to do. If there was a talk in Front Royal on Snow White, I probably wouldn't go.
Sure.
Unless it was like Father Pollard or something. But with him giving it, he gave this great analysis, and he was talking about how, which you can just go listen to it, those who are listening, but a couple of the main points he brought up was like, this is how toxic, and he was kind of referring it to our culture, but even broader, kind of a more broad sense of having older women who are unmarried and bitter about not being married, and how that affects younger women who have prospects, because that's what the relationship between the Evil Queen and Snow White is. So she's actively, instead of just helping her find a mate, like, okay, well, I didn't get anyone, but I want to help this young girl get someone, she's actively undermining because she wants that girl to be as miserable as her.
Misery loves company.
And yeah, to the extent that she would that she would do that. But then he also talked about how important the dwarves are to the story. Like, they're these hardworking men that will protect women. And he was like, this is kind of indicative of a culture of men. And it doesn't mean that like women, this girl just needs to find a nice guy and then she's going to be fine. Like, no, you need to be a part of a society that has similar values, where even if your husband's out of town, some guy is going to come protect you. And he has a group of men who are going to like create the culture, be strong in times of war, provide, go dig in the mines. And so he's like, it's really fascinating how the Grimm's brothers present these dwarves as like, even though they're dwarves and they're not attractive and they like maybe don't have any prospects, they're still willing to go work the hard job and protect the young girl so she can marry the prince. Yeah. And I was like, that is so cool. Like the way that he kind of analyzed the whole thing, and he would read a couple sentences and explain it, and he like psychoanalyzed it. I thought it was really, really fascinating. It gave me a lot to think about.
I definitely have to listen to it. It kind of reminds me a lot of this guy in Tending the Heart of Virtue. He's got different lessons that he takes from different fairy tales, but one of the fairy tales he spent a lot of time on was the original Little Mermaid by Hans Christian Andersen, I believe it was.
Yeah, I think so.
But the main, if like you're familiar at all with the movie, like
they're actually I've never seen it.
Yeah, well, that doesn't surprise me. A lot of Catholics didn't like because like the bikinis or like the defying of the father or whatever. I mean, we watched it growing up because my mom was cool.
Yeah, look how you turned out.
No, I'm just kidding. No, anyway.
Yeah, I mean, I understand the general story.
But basically, like, there's a scene where like they're on a boat near the end and she beats the evil witch, yada yada. That's like how the Disney movie plays out. But in the story, she actually sacrifices herself and she dies for the sake of the prince so that he can live. And so he kind of spends a lot of time on being like, why have we not made that like the main motif of these movies, like self-sacrificial love? He's like, that's pretty, like that. There's not much that gets better than that from a perspective of like teaching values to your kids. He's like, so very similar to like how Peterson broke down The Little Mermaid. Is like, there's kind of a general virtue that gets lost, and like in the Disney movie, it's like, oh well, true love is the biggest virtue. But it's like, no, in the original fairy tales, like self-sacrificial love is the biggest. And that's actually, so when you teach your kids things like that and you see the self-sacrificial love, and then when they're a little bit older and they understand, Jesus and like the Christian belief system, however you want to put it, like they're a lot more receptive to it. But when you just shower them with things of like, oh, well, you need to get a spouse and you need to find true love. And like, that's like, and you don't need to listen to your dad.
Be fiscally responsible.
Or whatever. Like, they're a lot less willing to, take on the story of Jesus.
Interesting.
So,
I can see
one of the things that's really important for fairy tales, and a lot of them do it because they come from a Christian, North European like world that was very Christianized. A lot of their fairy tales are based in that kind of reality. So some of them, kind of like Shakespeare in the sense, like a lot of them are tragedies, but they're not bad. Like just because bad things happen doesn't make them a bad story. Right. And so I think that's kind of a big motif with fairy tales. Like there was a big push somewhere, like everything else went wrong about 100 years ago or something, for like fairy tales to not be read to your kids because bad things happen to people. And it's like, well, no, it depends on what type of bad thing and how it went down. Like, yeah, you could say the Little Mermaid dying is bad, but she did it to save him. Like that's an objectively good thing.
Right.
So just to kind of another point to point out another famous Disney princess movie where the story, and kind of like modern day, I just think that's also goes into it with fairy tales for kids is like a lot of them kind of prep them for the reality of Christianity and like the beliefs that go into that.
I mean, even just literature in general, I feel like is kind of void of a lot of the self-sacrifice, that motif. At least more recently, obviously classic literature has it. I remember reading Tale of Two Cities in high school, and I was kind of like, not anti-Dickens, but like we had read a couple of his books, and I just thought they were like way too long, and they're like soapboxy, and it's just like, oh my gosh, please, like I hate this. And we read Tale of Two Cities, and I was like, okay, it's really Catholic, fairly short, super interesting, and the guy that looks like the other guy in the end, spoiler alert, sacrifices and dies even though he's innocent so that this other guy can be with his family. And I was like, that is a great book.
Yeah.
That is awesome. Like there were so many different ways this could have ended. And this guy who literally was totally innocent, didn't need to do it, decided to do it so that the guy who had more to live for could live. And I was like, this is literally like Maximilian Kolbe. Like this is, I mean, slightly different circumstances, but like, yeah, like, and I think it has the scriptural quote of like, you know, laying down what greater love has man than laying down his life for his friends. I was like, this is a fantastic story.
Well,
like,
it's like think of any war story. Like you talk about the Patriot of Braveheart, like kind of what William Wallace did was like sacrifice himself, you know, for the sake of the movement. Mm-hmm. Like those stories, they just hit harder. Yeah, because they're more real.
Isn't that some reason? Isn't that interesting?
I don't know why, but they just are. Just better.
It is kind of interesting how it has to be done well, but some movies are arguably better when the main character like loses or dies.
Yeah. Well, it's kind of
or sacrifices, like Iron Man, like when he sacrifices. It's like he'll probably come back as something else, but or another timeline. But it's like his character arc was he's set originally as the most selfish character who relies on his technology, and then he becomes the least selfish character who can't stop anything with his technology and then dies. Like, that's actually a good storyline. It could have been anyone else, but the fact that he has kids and he has a wife and he has things to live for, and he's still willing to die for the greater good, it's like, that's literally heroism. Like, it's kind of the hero motif.
And it's kind of to your point too, like, you don't necessarily have to be a bad guy at first to order to sacrifice something like Captain America, because like he didn't really have a character arc. He was always, he was always good. He didn't really get better or worse.
Yeah.
But his story is still really compelling because he was always willing to lay down his life.
Yeah.
Even if for somebody who didn't know. It's like there's something like, because in movie critics, or like when you talk about stories and things like that, a lot of people are always like, well, there needs to be an arc, there needs to be development. It's like, that's really valuable. But Captain America is kind of like one of the few examples, if not the only one that I can think of, where the character was always good and didn't change really at all other than his physical appearance.
Yeah.
And his story was like just as compelling. So I think to your point, there's something about the sacrificial nature that makes the story more compelling than just necessarily an arc. And
I think the
maybe
difference
arc always necessitates sacrifice. I don't know.
Yeah. It's funny. I think that I don't like Captain America as much as a character, even though I think you should, because it's sort of like, and this is a terrible comparison, but I think it's a kind of half-decent analogy, where if you look at scripture and you see Christ and St. Peter, it's kind of like, well, obviously Christ is the person we're supposed to imitate, but Peter is more relatable. So it's not that I'm taking away from Christ, or I think that, actually Christ is like too good, I can't be like, no, he is the model. Like, he is obviously the person we're supposed to be. But St. Peter makes way more sense, and I see myself in him, and everyone really sees themselves in the coward, betrayer, talks too much, angry.
St. Paul.
All at St. Paul, kind of the same thing, right? So and that's kind of how I feel. Again, not a great analogy, but in the Marvel universe, it's like Captain America is the standard, but I don't find him super relatable because he's always perfect. He always does the right thing. He always wins. He always looks great. It's like, okay, granted, that is kind of like the virtuous man. That is kind of the standard you're supposed to be at. But I like Iron Man so much more because he's just so much more relatable. It's like, he's a terrible person. He's selfish. He's arrogant. He's like, doesn't like people.
Right.
All of these things. And then as the movies progress, you see him start to like prioritize different things, to change, to forgive people.
Sure.
And then ultimately sacrifices himself. And to me, granted, he's still not the virtuous Captain America, to me, that's a much better storyline. I think he's a much more fascinating character because there's so much more going on. Captain America is just kind of consistent, which is fine.
Yeah.
But that's why Iron Man is a way better character.
Have you ever had tequila on the show, Anthony?
I have not had tequila on the show. You were the first tequila person, I believe.
I'd say comparing Captain America to Jesus and St. Peter to Iron Man constitutes never having tequila on the show again.
Okay, to be fair, I did start it with, this is a terrible analogy.
No, I know. I'm just saying.
But I think that makes sense, though.
No, you're right. I think
that's kind of how I've always thought about it, though. When I'm like, if someone says Captain America is the best, I'm like, yeah, he is. Objectively, he's a perfect character, but I kind of don't like him because he's perfect.
Sure.
Like, I don't really relate to him at all, even though I get that, yeah, like, that's how you should be in every situation, is like perfection.
No, I
just like Iron Man way better.
I think I totally get where you come from. It makes a lot of sense.
Plus, like, the AC/DC music.
Sure.
I mean, he's just cool. Like, Iron Man is just cool. You know what I mean? No, Captain America's not cool.
I like Captain America.
Better than Iron Man?
Yeah.
Okay, I disagree with you. But
just,
I did think Civil War was one of the best movies that Marvel's made.
I mean, I like them, but now that I'm getting older and I'm like watching them, I'm like, did I like them just because of nostalgia? Like, some of them, like I think Iron Man's probably the best movie,
and then probably like Winter Soldier or
maybe, or like Guardians is good, but like I think Iron Man is probably kind of stands out as like just objectively the best Marvel movie that's ever been made, and it just so happened to be the first. And that's kind of how that worked, but
yeah, there's a lot of things they could have done different, but there's still some good movies.
I haven't watched any.
I really haven't watched anything in
since
like 5 or 6 years, probably.
The third Spider-Man one.
The third Spider-Man. Yeah.
I don't think.
Wait, what was the one where all three of the actors?
Yeah, that one.
That one. I thought that one was actually really good.
Again,
it's been a while since I've watched it, but I remember watching it and was like, this is a good.
It was all right.
This is a way to get a win at the box office.
Yeah, it was just a cast.
It's to bring all the actors back together. It's funny.
I mean, in recent years, there hasn't been a lot to write home about from a movie perspective, but a lot of that's COVID, and a lot of like the talents moved to like TV shows and like miniseries on Netflix and Amazon and stuff like that. And
I don't know. There's been some good movies. Like Nefarious, I thought was really good. I thought that's like one of the best movies I've seen in a long time.
I mean, Nefarious wasn't
that in the last couple of years?
This was like a couple months ago.
Nefarious?
Oh no, I'm thinking of Nosferatu.
Oh,
I was like, I don't know. I mean, it had a lot of good things about it, but I wasn't the biggest.
No, I think Nefarious came out like 2 years ago, maybe.
Yeah, no, that was good.
I thought that was a really good movie.
I thought it was really good, but the thing with Nefarious for me was like, it was really good, but it kind of still had that like it was made by a Christian company feel to it. So my perspective was a little skewed. So like I thought it was better than maybe it actually was because it was a Christian movie. Okay. You know what I mean? It's like the same thing your mom did with like those movies when you were a kid. You're like, oh, this is a really good movie. You're like, Mom,
it checks all the boxes, but it's trying too hard.
But it's not like an objectively great. Like I thought it was good too.
Yeah, I thought Nefarious was.
But I think there's an element in me that like elevates it because it was like more Christian.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe.
There's been some good ones for sure, but it just hasn't been on the same level as like I'd say like between 2005 and 2015 was kind of like peak cinema days where there's just so many really great movies that were made.
Yeah. Yeah, I also think that there's a lot of movies that like didn't make it big at the box office
that were good.
That were really good.
Yeah, for sure.
And it's kind of funny going back and seeing some of those where you're like, I've never heard of this, and then you watch it and you're like, this is a great movie. Like how did I miss this?
Or like every now and then you get like an Amazon original where you're like, oh, I really like there's this one that Sadie and I have watched probably 3 times, and it's I'm a sucker for a good chick flick. I had 6 older sisters and grew up watching them, so like anytime there's a good one, it's like, wow, that's actually pretty good because I've seen a lot of bad ones.
Yeah,
but there's this Amazon original. It's like a Groundhog Day if Groundhog Day had 2 people in it, and it was more of a love story / like growing teenagers. And it's like, it's kind of cheesy. The acting may not be the best, but there's just something about it that kind of works. Yeah. And it's like, it doesn't have to be the best act. It doesn't have to have the cleanest script. Yeah. But like the emotional beats, as long as they hit in a movie like that, that's all that really counts. So like, there's probably 3 to 4 scenes where you're just like, if you've ever been in like big relationship, like that movie just kind of, it tackles what a moment like that is with your wife really well. It tackles like grief and loss really well, and it tackles without giving anything away, it tackles like
life and death really well.
no, it kind of, but it tackles
major surgery. No.
It tackles like the main character that you follow. You're like, oh, this is about him. But then the kind of like the whole revelation of the movie is like, it was never about me. It was always about how I could be there and be a servant for other people, and that was my kind of very similar to Groundhog Day.
Yeah.
But I think this movie executed the same thing just in a different sense. But
interesting.
But it kind of goes back to that like sacrificial sense where you spend the whole movie just like the character thinking that he's the main character in the story, but at the end it's like, oh no, I was just here for the other person.
Right. I read this really good article that do you remember Demetrius and T. Clark?
Yeah.
Their dad?
Yeah,
John Clark.
Yeah.
He wrote this great piece, I don't know how many years ago, 4 or 5 years ago, for National Catholic Register about It's a Wonderful Life. And his argument is that it's a great movie, obviously, but that the main character is actually Mary and not George. And the implications. And I don't know if I actually agree with it. Every time I watch it, I think of that, and I'm not really sure if I think that there's too many scenes with George for it to make sense for it to be her. But it is fascinating where he's talking about like Mary's like the steadfast friend, the good wife, she's doing all the right things and helping her husband through this time. And he's in more scenes and he has more dialogue because he's struggling. But she's actually like the viewpoint character and really the main character that's making all the real decisions. Sure. And I was like, oh, I already love this movie, but I really want to watch it again from this perspective. Yeah. Anyway, just interesting.
Just real quick, I don't know if I said the name, but that movie on Amazon was called The Map of the Tiny Perfect Things. So if you ever want to watch it, that's what it's called.
I'm already turned off by the title.
Dude,
Wait, The Map of the Tiny Perfect Things?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
Basically, these two people get stuck in the same day over and over again. So they're like, well, nothing else is working. So they come up with a solution of there are little moments that happen all around you that kind of make up like a quote unquote perfect moment. Like an eagle flying through the sky just right, or like it swoops down into a lake and picks up a fish, and like that was a sick moment. So they make it a goal
to hit all those
moments. Map out all those moments in their town and capture all the tiny perfect moments.
That's cool.
So it's kind of the title's cheesy, but like they do a good job at being like, oh, that's a wholesome, like it just makes you feel good. It's one of those kind of movies. So you could poo-poo it, but your wife will enjoy it.
There's some surprising stuff on, I feel like Netflix and the Amazon originals, it's like this repository of just like 95% crazy garbage, like
with gay, trans,
but you have to sort, but then there's like
cop lover, whatever.
Yeah, there's all this weird stuff, but then you find like a gem every once in a while that's really good.
Yeah.
Have you watched any of the Dark Wolf, the new Terminal List? You watched any of that stuff?
No, I watched the Terminal List. I really enjoyed that. I thought Chris Pratt did a great job. I haven't been following.
Okay. I only watched episode like 1 and 2. It was okay. Chris Pratt's not in it as much because it's about Ben, or I think it's Ben.
Yeah.
Who's like the other guy,
I think
his friend.
I think the thing that's just kind of, I haven't watched it, but it just kind of turns me off is like, I know how that relationship ends.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm not as invested in watching it develop.
Yeah.
In the beginning, because I'm like, oh, well.
This is what
happened. So like it kind of almost like shot itself in the foot before it even starts. So like I'd be interested, but I'm not as interested as I was in the Terminal List.
I thought the Terminal List was really, really good.
Yeah, it was one of the best modern combat. I mean, I don't know anything about that, but other people who know a lot more said it was that. It was really entertaining.
Well, the author of the book was a Navy SEAL. And he like put a bunch of details in there, and before he made the deal with Amazon, he was like, it has to be done this way or I don't want to do it. And so they really apparently all the combat scenes and everything that happened was like very
the one
legitimate.
the one where he like absolutely wrecks the cartel. I mean, that was probably the best sequence in the whole show.
Yeah, there's a couple of really gruesome tomahawk scenes too. But,
I thought it was really entertaining. I mean, I probably watched the whole show in one night because I just couldn't turn it off. It was one of those shows, so I thought they did a really good job. So I'd be interested in watching it, but Sadie's not really interested, so like I gotta wait.
You just gotta do it when you're up with the baby.
Yeah,
that's when I watch it.
Yeah, and it's like
10 to 2.
The second baby comes in April, so I'm like, gotta wait.
Oh, you got really?
Oh, I didn't. Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
Dude, congrats.
Thanks.
That's awesome.
So maybe then I'll get a chance when I'm waking up at whatever hour.
April.
Again.
So it's still pretty early.
Yeah.
Okay. How's she doing?
Good. She had a little more sickness than last time, but nothing crazy.
So it's probably a girl.
That's what she thinks. I think it's gonna be a boy. So who knows?
Yeah.
She wasn't sick at all.
That's funny because Kathleen was super sick with Eileen and was way better with.
She wasn't. Yeah,
Robbie.
she wasn't sick at all with Leo. So she's been more sick this time around.
Okay.
So who knows?
Yeah.
All those little old wives' tales, man, that don't mean anything.
I don't think they do. Although it does seem to
do.
be pretty. I'm skeptical of the fact a lot of times people say, like, and it's like 50-50. I haven't even heard like a universal answer on this, but like, oh, everyone's more sick with girls. Oh, everyone's more sick with boys. I don't think there's any truth to that, but I do think there is a truth to your specific situation. Oh, every time she's pregnant with a girl, gets sick. Every time pregnant with a boy, not sick. That seems to be a bit more consistent. A little bit harder to map, I think, after you have 8 kids where you're like going through different stuff and you're raising kids and like you have different circumstances, but it does seem to break down a little bit more evenly.
I mean,
that way.
For my sister who's pregnant with number 8, she's been sick as a dog with every single one of them. So
yeah.
It just kind of, Sadie thinks it's got a lot to do with like diet and like what you're eating. Cause she's like, well, I was really good with vegetables the first go around. This time I've been really bad. So I've been a lot more sick, or this time we've been eating this more often, or like I'll keep, Captain Crunch in the house this time around where I didn't do that before, whatever it is.
Yeah.
And so she thinks it's things like that. I'm just like, nah, I don't know. It could be anything. It could be God just being like, hey, you need to be sicker this time because
that was too easy last time.
It was too easy last time, and you're ready for something. I don't know. It could be anything.
Could be anything.
So I just, there's a lot out there where you're like, oh, it could be this, could be that. Oh my God.
It's kind of better to not pay attention to it. You just deal with it.
I'm just getting through the day anyway. So
right.
what's
it doesn't change your life at all. Yeah. It's funny. I think you might be the only person that I've worked with at 2 different companies doing almost the exact same thing.
Oh, true.
I think you are the only person.
Yeah, because we did
AllCat, and then we did ClaimStar, and then you moved on to Lux.
I know. Unfortunately, I've bounced around a little bit. I think I've found a job that I'm going to stick at for a while, though.
Yeah, Lux seems like a good company.
They've been around for...
What do they do?
Foundation.
Just for those listening, I know what they do, but...
Yeah, so waterproofing, basements, crawl spaces. We basically turned crawl spaces into conditioned spaces, so it's called encapsulation. So you put like a nice thick vapor barrier. That's probably one of the biggest things we do.
Is that like elastomeric, or what's the...
It's just like a 20 mil fire rated, radon rated vapor barrier that protects your crawl space from moisture.
Does it roll on?
No. It's like a plastic sheet that you install.
Like a tarp almost?
Yeah, like a tarp,
Okay.
and then you tape it around the edges and things like that. And then, you put your drainage system in with your sump pump, dehumidifier, stuff like that. We do insulation, all that. But
and that's the primary thing that you do?
No, it's seasonal. So, between the months of June and September, the primary thing we do is crawl space stuff because that's when they're really humid. People get mold showing up, things like that. And then we do a lot of foundation repair, so like people's basements or crawl spaces that start sinking into the ground because the dirt around it's all settling. So there's various or the water pressure behind a cinder block wall is pushing it in and causing a big bow or a big crack. So push piers is one of the biggest things that we install. They're kind of more fall based, so you dig out the outside of your house down to the footer, which is below the concrete block wall or the concrete poured wall. And it's like a thicker piece of concrete that just kind of supports the rest of the structure. So you dig down to that, and you shove pipe down with a hydraulic system, cap it, and you basically run pipe into the ground until it hits bedrock, and then you can support your structure from below. And you basically lift it back into place so that it doesn't settle anymore.
Oh, interesting.
So you call those push piers, and there's a lot of different.
So you kind of like push that down and then like jack up the house?
Yeah,
or at least anchor it?
So you push the pipe down with a hydraulic system. As the hydraulic system's still engaged, you cap it with a metal cap so that the weight goes from the pipe to the foundation to kind of support the structure of the home. And so we do a lot of those because around here in the mountainous areas, even in Northern Virginia, lots of homes that are 60, 70 years old, they just start to sink in the ground because shifts of water and earth just kind of move. So that's those. I'd say encapsulations, drainage systems, and push piers are probably the main 3 services that we provide. We do a lot of other things too.
You also do like some stone work and
we got guys who are real good with stone. We do reinforcing cinder block walls by putting rebar in the cells and then filling them with concrete so that they're not as flexible to like water weight and things like that. So we're actually doing Ian Stewart's place, like next week, I think.
Nice.
Yeah, that's probably the main thing that we do.
Okay.
I'd say. So yeah, so what I do is I'm a sales guy basically, but my official title is engineer technician. So project design, I get the sketches, I get the notes, I come up with the solution, and then I send all my information after I get the customer to sign up and pay their money. I send my stuff over to an engineer, and he gets it with the official plans, and then we get it permitted with the county, and then we execute. So I handle everything from the beginning stages, and then I handle everything afterwards. And if the customer feels comfortable with me, they call me for any issues that come up in between, which luckily doesn't happen very often.
Right. So do you make... I know you have a base salary, and then do you make commission based on signs?
Yeah, so the base salary was only for the training period. As soon as the 90-day training period ends, you're full commission.
Okay.
So I just get paid a percentage based on what I sign up. I don't get a cut of revenue or anything like that.
Okay,
so
it's just on what you sign up and not what actually...
It's not like a revenue. It's not a profit sharing or anything like that. It's just, hey, you signed up a $10,000 job, you get this much money for that job.
Okay.
And so that's how I'm paid for everything. So there's a chance in the future, as we develop our CRM, which is like our company operating system that we use to do day-to-day operations between estimates and putting notes in that we've contacted customers. I don't know what the official acronym for CRM is, but my boss is a really smart guy who's a big tech dude. And so he's basically building his own, because all the other CRMs that we've used just don't work for our model. So he's like, I'm just going to build my own.
Because they're all like roofing or construction and
or just there's just certain things about them that we don't like, or like our business model operates in a different way because we are a foundation company that like a CRM built for another company doesn't apply to us because we have a different process that we have to go through.
Right. What are you guys using right now?
We're using Workies.
Okay, I don't know what that
is. It's a. I don't really know how popular it is. It works well for us.
Is it kind of like a Salesforce?
Yeah, you can upload photos. You can build estimates out of it. So it's a little bit more involved than Salesforce, but Salesforce is more like it's more for like a corporation or like a bigger company where there's like 7 or 8 people that kind of have to mess with the same job or same file.
Okay.
Workies is more for like me and then one other person to mess with the company file because that's all who's looking at it. So it's like I'm the sales design guy. I build a sketch, I upload it, I upload photos, and then I build an estimate, and it's all in Workies. And then I send that to an engineer, and he draws official plans, and I take those plans and I put them back in Workies.
Yep.
And then the production project manager takes what I sold, and then he basically goes, okay, this is what we have to execute. So there's only 2 people looking at it. But for Salesforce, it's kind of built for a company where it's like, you're the main guy, so you're the main adjuster. You upload the photos, you upload a couple initial notes, and then you kind of let that thing sit. And then your assistants, so
the office staff,
or the office staff, there's like 4 or 5 people that kind of go in there and they can update notes, and somebody called them and they can put that in there, put this in here, and upload this file. But it's all kind of for you to review.
Okay.
It's better for like multiple people having hands-on, but Salesforce doesn't offer an estimating service. You can upload photos, but not directly to the link. You would only get a link from another website. So Salesforce kind of necessitates other operating systems to work within it, whereas Workies, you can build an estimate as long as you build your price book, and you can upload photos directly to the app. So it's a little more... It works better for what we need it to.
It's kind of like simpler, but...
Yeah, it's simpler, and it's more geared toward like the contractor, whereas what you do is more geared toward like somebody who's managing a lot of files. Because like you deal with a lot more jobs than I do. Yeah. So... Or you have to like revisit the same jobs more than I do.
Okay, so the CRM that they're building out, or that Alex is building out, what's going to be different about it?
Oh, I have no idea.
Oh, okay.
It's
just going to be better.
It's just going to be better. Like he's going to make the presentation to the customer a lot cleaner.
Okay,
that's one of the things he said.
Okay.
I mean,
that is big. I mean, it's kind of crazy how many. Granted, I'm not on the sales side of things. Like we do sell jobs, but it's about representing them in the claim for being a PA. I wish that we had a better model to do that in a sense, but only if I was like an actual sales rep.
Sure.
Like I knock doors and like, but most of our 95% of our stuff is just leads from contractors that we chase down, or someone calls us because their basement flooded or a tree fell in their house or their bridge got washed away or whatever. So like most of those, I don't need the presentation. But there could be a really cool application of when you're trying to sell the home. Hey, here's hover. Here's all the measurements. Hey, we have a contractor. Hey, look, this is how this shingle looks. Oh, here's how slate looks. Here's how metal looks. Like there could be a really cool customer side, but like I just don't need that. Like I don't need that to sell the job. But I wish there was.
You guys are basically already involved by the time the sales happen. So for me, like I'm trying to get
unless it's a direct sign. Yeah,
I'm trying to convince the customer that we're the best option for them.
Which, not to discredit you, but it can't be that hard of a sale if they're interested in doing the work because there's not that many foundation companies, right?
Yeah, there's
only a couple.
There's like 3 other ones that are main competitors, and then there's like maybe 5 or 6 smaller guys that do what we do, but they can't.
But it's not like the roofing industry where there's like 500.
No. There's at most 10 in a given area that can service like 2 to 3 hours worth of space.
Okay.
We're one of the top 3 to 4 bigger ones.
Yeah.
And then we're the only one that's not a privately backed corporation.
Okay.
So like our competitors, with the exception of maybe one, so I don't want to speak to them, but at least 2 of them, they have like multiple offices around the country. They're not owned by a single guy. They're owned by like a private equity
group or something.
Yeah, well, however that works. So they're more driven by profits and things like that. So we're able to keep our costs low while keeping our quality high because it's Alex and his wife that have ran it. He's not planning on selling it anytime soon. He likes the idea of keeping it small but just growing. So, you keep guys who are big on quality in-house like I like to think I am. So you keep guys like me, some of my supervisor, the production team. You grow it slowly, train them up, weed out the bad apples.
Sure.
Keep the good ones, pay them well.
Yeah.
You grow a really strong business model that way. So I like that idea, but some of our competitors, like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Like one of the stories is like they did an encapsulation, and the customer went down there afterwards to like take a look at it, and they found just like a bag of crap left from one of like the guys who installed it. And it's just like, yeah, that's pretty bad. Like
that's not great.
That's an unacceptable, So it's just like there's like things like that where like some of these bigger companies that get so much volume, they operate in like almost all 50 states, and they're just hiring guys on and firing them and burning and turning, and like 25% of the jobs that they do or 30% of the jobs they do turn out to be absolute horror shows of like the install was terrible, customer service was really bad, whatever happens, a bag of poop shows up in your crawl space and you're like, what the heck, and it ends up stinking the whole thing and you're whatever it is.
Yeah.
25% of your jobs going bad is kind of
pretty
a lot.
bad. Yeah.
That's a big percentage of jobs go bad, but 75% go fine.
Mm-hmm.
But in any industry with construction, it's like you kind of have to have like a 95.5, like a 96.4% ratio, and then the 4% that you make a mistake on, you just got to eat it and fix it.
Mm-hmm.
Some of these bigger companies, they don't care about that because even if they get sued, it's worth it for them to just pay the settlement than it is for them to spend all this time with their crews because they can just go work on the next job.
Yeah,
we're small enough to where we don't have that luxury.
Yeah, so we
have to fix it, and we have to like be good from the get-go, so we're a little more incentivized. So there's pros and cons for sure. Like our schedule is booked out further because a lot of people go with us, and we don't have the manpower to keep up. So like I've lost a couple jobs recently to like, oh yeah, this company said they can get it done in 4 weeks, and I'm like, well, permitting takes 8 weeks. So if they're doing things lawfully, it's got to take them at least 8 weeks.
Yep.
So they're obviously doing things unlawfully, and we're just not willing to do a job like that.
Yep.
So then it's like we just lose those customers. We don't even want those customers anyways because they're usually headaches when they're like trying to cut corners to save a buck or whatever. But there's a lot of things like that.
So are a lot of your leads come in just through the website and they get assigned to you, or are you actually like cold calling people?
No, I don't do hardly any cold calling. I really need to do more. I've just been getting so many company generated leads that like I don't have time to get my own. But when it was a slower season, I would do. It's really lame, but like Chamber of Commerce for counties and things like that. Like I say lame, if anybody's that I go to these.
No, I mean Chamber of Commerce makes you yawn.
Everybody kind of knows what I'm talking about. Like you got to go, and it's good to go because you make some good relationships. Like there's a couple people that I really like that I've met and I got some good leads out of them. But like, a lot of the events are really, really boring to get through. Mm-hmm. But as soon as you get through them and you find 1 or 2 people, you get some good leads. And I'll literally just like walk into real estate offices and just be like, hey, can I do a lunch and learn, like present at one of your guys' like meetings? And so I gotten some pretty good jobs out of that.
Nice.
good relationships, take that person out for coffee, you know,
Yep.
things like that. So I you know, you can do things like that to generate, but as far as cold calling or like cold knocking,
No, you don't need to.
foundation issues or like water issues are a lot more rare, and they don't hit a certain area like a storm does. So you can't just knock doors.
Right.
Like if you have a customer and they are like on a hill and they have, you know, a settlement that's like a foundation that's settling. Yeah, maybe you can go down that street, knock those doors, and be like, "Hey, this is what we're doing for your, you know, Mary. Do you think you've had any issues like this? You want me to just take a look?" And even then, like, people don't like you knocking on their door and asking, you know, them asking you to pay $30,000 out of pocket, because what we do is not covered by insurance for the most part.
Right.
So it's a lot harder to get a sale from a cold knock.
Right.
In that respect, like, people got to call you, and they already got to know that this is going to be an expensive fix.
Yeah.
Because a lot of the time, people are like, "Oh, can you just take a look?" And I'm like, "Well, that's going to be a waste of my time," because they're thinking it's going to be like a $3,000 fix, and I'm going to tell them it's like $15,000, and they're like, "Oh, well, I'm going to need some time to sit on it." So I'm
not going to say their name just for privacy's sake, but did that family ever follow up with you on the bridge?
No.
Okay. I may call them. They're kind of a funky family.
No, I kind of,
in all charity. I think that
I got that sense when I showed up to
just
look at everything
based on the property. Yeah. I mean, I've spoke with both of them, and it's, if you're in sales long enough, you kind of can tell when someone's like, "Yeah, this sounds like a great deal. You make money for your hard work. I make money because I'm owed this money. I get, you know, you're going to help me find a contractor. We're going to get the work done." And then there's the other side of people who are like, "Well, so do you pay my deductible, or like, can I just pocket the cash and walk away?" And you're like, "Well, no, but also there's nothing I can do if you do."
Yeah, it's not any of my business what you do with it afterwards.
Right.
But
so I think they saw the like $54,000 or whatever your estimate was, and they were like, "Well," and they were like mad at me that I only got a $40,000 settlement, and I was like, "Well, your policy max was 36, and then I convinced them to pay extra for debris removal and a tree removal, so this is the max you're going to get. You went from $0 to you have a check for almost $40,000 because I went there 4 times. I hired an engineer. I had a friend of mine go out and estimate for a bridge. Like,
right.
I kind of did everything I can. And then like the response was just kind of like, "Well, it's not really enough." And I was like, "Oh my gosh, you can take care of the tree by yourself. You don't have to repair the whole bridge. They could come out and just pour a new footer for you, or like put a new,
it's like
little concrete pad
if
there."
If you can't afford it, obviously, you know, we can make improvements to reinforce the structure. We don't have to rebuild the whole thing. That's what I was asked to do.
Yeah.
So it's like,
no. Well, and that's why I, when I followed up with them, I was like, "Hey, there's a lot of tree care companies out there. See what you can get. There's probably going to be like a one-man show or like 2 guys that's going to be cheaper than a big company. They can easily take care of the tree that fell down."
Yeah.
And then I was like, for the bridge repairs, first of all, that was to rebuild the entire bridge. We probably don't need to rebuild the entire bridge. Like,
we just need to reinforce what's there.
I would rebuild it if I had the money, but you know, a lot of it's probably fine. Sure. You just need to reinforce it, pour some new footers, put a new concrete abutment on each side, and then you can drive across it again. So like, yeah, you could do it on your own.
I mean, technically, to make it drivable by VDOT standards, you'd have to do a lot more than.
Yeah, I mean, for sure. And honestly, I think that's part of the reason why the concrete broke in the first place, is because they were driving their cars back and forth.
Yeah.
But that's their car. That's their thing. It's not a legal bridge. I was
just estimating to replace what was existing.
Yeah. So. And I mean, I'm just in shock they even paid for it, because I really, truly don't think it should have been covered. Like, the tree didn't fall on it.
You probably shouldn't admit that on air, brother.
No, because, like, well, the thing is, it wasn't listed in their policy, so there wasn't anything.
It was State Farm, right?
Yeah, there wasn't anything. There wasn't anything that said it was paid for, and there wasn't anything saying that it wasn't paid for. So we're like, okay, well, if there's nothing specific saying it's not paid for, it should be covered in other coverages. But other coverages, typically, they have listed structures. So it'll say other coverages: barn A, barn B, shed C,
right,
garage D. That wasn't listed. But they have like 6 other structures in their property, and none of those are listed.
Yeah.
So we just went up with the understanding that State Farm probably will just say no, but hey, we tried. Maybe we get some money for tree removal. We had an engineer come out. I sent in your estimate, and then they were just like, okay, well, I guess we'll just max it out. I mean, it was a really weird claim, but we got it paid for.
At the end of the day,
that's what the homeowner needs.
That's kind of what you sign up for when you do a job where you offer free estimates.
Yeah, for sure.
my boss, he hates when I call him that, but I call him that just to.
You call him what?
I call him my boss. He hates when I say boss. He's like, I work with you, and I'm like, yeah, whatever. Your name's on my check, bro, or your company's name's on my check. But it's like when you offer a service where you do free inspections, free estimates, you're batting, 33% is pretty damn good.
Yeah.
Like we're shooting for baseball averages, not, football passing averages. Like 1 out of 3, 1 out of 4. Yep. That's a good week.
Yeah.
Especially with how big a lot of our estimates.
Well, and also if you look at a lot of sales positions, roofing, whatever you like, if you knock 100 doors and you get 2 sales, that's a great, typically a great conversion. So if you're getting 1 out of 4,
they're hot. They all call us.
Yeah.
But still, it's pretty good.
Still, yeah.
Sometimes you get some of these customers where you have a really good time, really great conversation. You feel like you hit it off. You feel like you offer the most service compared to the other companies they got quotes from.
Yep.
And then they just go with a different company, and you're like,
what?
Why? And they're like, oh, well, this guy
they were cheaper.
Or like they were more expensive, but they offered me a better monthly payment. And I was like, so you don't see the value. Or like the other guy brought samples, and I was like, damn. I guess I'm bringing samples to my next job. Every time you lose a customer, I try to always ask them, like, why? Mm-hmm. And if they're cool, they'll tell you. Yeah. And when they tell me, I try to do better next time. And every time I've done that, I've gotten the sale quicker. Nice. So it's like, it sucks when you lose them, but as long as you're willing to learn, and as long as you get a customer that's cool enough to tell you why.
Mm-hmm. I would assume most of the time it's a money thing. Like sometimes it might be because they're willing to give you cheaper payments or because they brought samples, but it seems like with your line of work, a lot of times
it's actually not. I'd say the biggest thing is it's actually like customer review, like Google review, Better Business Bureau review. Because like I'll be more expensive than some of our cheaper opponents, like who are like small mom and pop companies, like they're just getting off the ground. They're probably not going to be there in 5 years. I'll get contracts over those guys all the time because of our Google reviews, Better Business Bureau reviews. I'll get contracts that are more expensive than even like the companies that are usually more expensive than me because they've had 5 massive complaints with the Better Business Bureau this year. So I think the biggest thing that goes into people determining, because it's like you're going to spend $35,000 or $37,000 on your crawl space or your foundation.
Right.
Who cares?
Yeah.
Do I have to worry about the quality of the company I'm hiring to do it is the biggest thing because you're already spending an exorbitant amount.
Sure.
And it's like at the end of the day, I can knock off $2,000 and make it work. And it's like, it might be a little tighter. Maybe we'll lose money, but like we're about providing service and that usually comes back around to benefit you in the long run. Yeah. So like, even if you lose money on one job to do it right for this one person that kind of needs it, the next go around, like everything goes well for you or you get a lot more leads, you just get more business. Yeah. So like we're kind of a big believer in being like,
you do have to know your value though. That's something I've been thinking about more recently with some of the stuff we're doing with ClaimStar or just like my personal business stuff is that it's like, you could be like, oh, I'm not that experienced. I'm not worth this. I'm not worth that. But it's like, well, if someone's willing to pay it, you are worth it to them. And if they're not willing to pay it, you might not want that client anyway. That's not exclusive. Sometimes you're charging too much, and that's a real thing. Sure. But like I had a claim where like we typically sign stuff at 20%, right, to represent people, 20% of the claim. We provide all the service, the inspection, the estimating, the supplementing, attorney, whatever it is. We'll go to bat for you and try to get the claim settled, 20%. So a friend of mine, I signed up and I signed them up at 15 because I was like, okay, we'll give you a deal. And they were like, hey, another company can do it for 10. And I was like, okay, you can go to the other company, but I'm not willing, even though we're friends, I'm not willing to go to 10, not because like you're not close enough, like you're not a good friend. It was just like, no, I think we're valued at 20. I'm already giving you a deal at 15. So I was like, if you want to change the price, I'll bump it up to 20 if you want. You probably don't want to, but if anything, I'm going to go up.
Well, it's like, why do you think
15 is the lowest I can go?
Why do you think the other company's 10%?
And that's the implication is kind of like, well, yeah, but if they're 10%, that means they kind of take anything. I don't just take anything. I'm giving you a deal at 15 or I'll go back up to 20. Right. And then we got the job. So, he may have walked, but if he would have walked, I've been like, okay, you know what? I don't want a client that's not willing to pay me what I'm worth. And I'm going to put in a lot of time. I'm going to go to this property multiple times. This might be 6 months or a year. yeah, 5% doesn't seem like a lot, but if I double the claim settlement because of all the time I put in, 5% becomes a lot.
And it also becomes more worth it for them because the guy who only was going to take 10 might not have put as much work into it as you did.
Right, exactly.
And it's kind of the same thing with what I do is like, as terrible as it is, like when someone's job is, less than 10 grand, it's usually not that precedent. Like it's not that urgent.
Yeah.
So it doesn't really need to be done like immediately, or it's not that big a deal. And they're usually like a little bit more of a headache customer to work with anyways. But like the easiest customers I've ever had
Are the big ones.
are the ones where I'm like charging them 30 grand.
Yeah.
Because it's like, I don't know what the psychology is behind that, but they're just easier to work with when they're spending more money because they know that it's worth that much.
It is funny. I've seen that in kind of some of the different business things that I'm doing. I've seen that a lot where it's like if I ask for a little bit, like let's say it's a bartending gig and I just say, yeah, it's like $100 and a tip jar.
Let's take a pee break before we
like,
start there.
Yeah, we can do that. $100 and a tip jar. The expectation is kind of, for whatever reason, is like low. And they want a lot, even though I'm charging minimal. Yeah. But if I say, no, it's $300 or $400 and a tip jar and blah, 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 and you need to bring ice, a lot of times they're way more like, okay, yeah, we have everything ready. Because they expect, hey, if you're charging $300 or $400, he's going to be good. I don't know if I'm that good, but when I charge that, it's almost always a better outcome. And so now I'm like, well,
Anthony,
I'm just going to charge more because if they say no, I don't want to do that job anyway. And if they say yes, then I can actually put in the time to make it that good.
But and at the same time, it's like I'd rather get 2, 3, 4 $40,000 jobs a month than 25 $5,000.
right.
Because it's
quality versus quantity.
It's a lot less to manage.
Yep.
I'm doing bigger jobs, which are full solutions. Yep. Oftentimes, if I'm just signing up $5,000 jobs, I'm like half-assing something.
Yeah.
The customer was tight on cash, so they're going to be breathing down my neck the whole time, and of the 25, 10 go bad.
Yeah.
And I lose money on 10, and it's like, of the 4 $40,000 jobs that I have, they're big enough to where I have some cushion, and I usually spend enough time on them to where I count for all the variables, and we do the job right, so that none of them go bad. I'm like, I'd rather do that any day of the week.
Totally. Yeah.
So I've just kind of started shifting my focus to be like, well, I'm just going to
get the good ones.
I'm going to quote people full solutions instead of half-ass ones, and if they ask me for half-ass ones, I'll be like, well, I'm just not your guy. I'm too busy.
Yeah.
I'd rather just do big jobs.
Yeah.
And at this point...
And you might lose some people, and the people you lose, you don't want to work with anyway.
And I don't want to work with
And the people you don't lose, you're going to get the full sale, which is more money, and they're going to be like, wow, he really is like selling a product that I want.
And the production guys are happy because their jobs aren't losing money. They're not getting yelled at.
Yep.
They're easy to work on.
Yep.
Boss is happy. I mean, everybody wins in that scenario. Nobody wins in the $5,000 job that loses $3,000 because it took 2 extra days because I made one mistake because I didn't care because it was small.
Yeah.
It's like those jobs are just not worth it anymore. So I've really just shifted my focus to bigger ones.
Yeah.
And I'm making a lot more money because of it.
Yeah. All right, let's take a quick break. We will be right back. Stay tuned. St. Jerome famously said, "Ignorance of Scripture is ignorance of Christ." As Catholic Christians, we need to be immersed in the inspired Word of God to encounter Jesus Christ, the incarnate Word of God. To take your Scripture study to the next level, go check out the completed Bible study courses with Dr. Nicholas Liebisch, available at scriptureandtradition.com. You can log into the massive and ever-growing audio library and stream whatever course you want, whenever you want. Every Bible study comes with detailed lesson outlines based on the most trusted and reliable Catholic commentaries and scholars available today. Dr. Liebisch has 20 years' experience teaching Scripture, and not only are you going to find his approach masterfully designed and organized, but also easy to understand, humorous, insightful, and extremely helpful for your spiritual life. If you want to know Jesus better, you've got to know Scripture better. Go to scriptureandtradition.com and start listening to these Bible studies regularly. You can trust that Dr. Liebisch's courses will open your eyes to God's Word in incredible ways. Visit scriptureandtradition.com and use the promo code DVPOD for 10% off your student membership. That's DVPOD, DVPOD, for 10% off your student membership. Go check them out. Welcome back to the show. We're here with Schaper, and if you missed the first part, we talked about movies and
fairy
tales and work, and that's kind of where we ended. So we're back here. We are still sipping on tequila, and we're about to break out the cigars. So if you're listening to this and you want to smoke a cigar, join us. I am going to be smoking it's called a Baccarat. It's a 1871, not from 1871, but that's what's on the label. Dolce Far Niente. It's kind of a cool label. It's got a deck of cards on it. Never had it before. I believe it's a Connecticut wrapper, so it's a little bit of a lighter smoke. And I'm not sure what size smoking.
I'm smoking a Macanudo.
Macanudo.
Inspirato. I don't know anything about it.
Cool.
I mean, I've recently got into cigars. I've been buying them off cigarbid.com, which is a great place.
Great place. Have you had any of the Chesterton cigars or any of Knowles' cigars?
No, but Knowles' cigars are like impossible to get. So I'm hoping.
Oh, really?
I mean, it seems like the
I guess it depends on when you go. I've bought like probably like 50 of them.
I'd love to get one. I haven't really
should have brought you one.
I haven't really tried super hard.
Okay.
But right now, these days, I really have been enjoying. What's the name of them? So I've been getting the Ave Marias.
Yep.
So those are pretty good. And then the other one I really enjoyed is like the Torpedo. The Torpedo. What's the name of them? They're like a small little black one. I can't remember what the name of it is, but it's pretty damn good. You can get them for pretty cheap off cigarbid.com.
Okay.
They're like, you can probably get them.
Are they nubs?
No, it's not nubs. It's like a something to do with like the devil. I know it sounds bad, but it's actually pretty tasty.
Man.
They're a little darker, but they're the torpedo style, and that's the kind of style I like to smoke the most.
Why is that?
When you cut them, you just can kind of get the kind of right draw that you want.
Mm-hmm.
They're a little shorter, but they're harsher. So I like a little bit of a
little spice,
a little darker style.
Interesting. See, for me, this kind of what you have, or this is like the perfect size. I like a longer cigar. I could go a little darker, honestly. The Connecticut wrapper is fine, but there's not as much flavor.
Sure.
But I like having a lot of length. I don't really like the girth being much bigger, like this other one that I brought, the Romeo and Juliet. That one, you can feel that.
Yeah,
it's okay, but it's pretty thick. Now it will stay lit longer, so you don't have to puff it as much. But a lot of times those make you feel a little sick, like the Gurkhas and some of the bigger stuff. I'm just not as into.
I wish I could remember the name of the ones that I could look it up, but I don't know.
Yeah, I really like. Well, this is why I like a lot of the Knowles cigars, is because he's working with Oliva. I like a lot of the Olivas. So like his Dawns are like the Oliva normal series.
That's what Gerard likes a lot. He's a big Oliva guy.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But like, yeah, their V series, their G series, the O series, like they've got a lot of just really solid smokes. And the nice thing about it is that they're good smokes, but I don't think I've ever seen an Oliva cigar, or at least I've never bought one that's like over 25. So they're all like between the 10 and 20 range, good smoke. Like they ash well, they hold together well, they store well, like they kind of keep their dampness for a long time. They don't dry out super easily. You light them up, they cut easy, and they're just like a solid smoke. So I really like Oliva.
Yeah, I mean, I'm definitely more into the simple style smokes. Like I'm not a big cigar guy. I don't know the difference between a Connecticut wrapper or this, but I'm learning, and I've realized that, I went for a little lighter today, but a lot of the time the darker ones, they just kind of taste better and they hit well.
Yeah.
So if you don't have to drive, or you're just kind of taking it easy on a weekend, you might get a little cigar hangover, so to speak. But
what do you typically drink with cigars? I kind of go back and forth.
I mean, I'm honestly I like wine and cigars. Like
that's so funny you say that. I was about to say that I recently am like into wine and cigars, because I used to do bourbon.
Yeah, bourbon's good,
which can be good. But if you're doing scotch, like if it's cold outside or whatever, I could do scotch or something spicy. But if it's during the summer and you've got a spicy cigar and then you've got like a peated scotch or like a rye,
it's a little kind of too much.
Yeah, I kind of want either the drink to be spicy and then the smoke to be smooth, like a pipe, or I want it to be the reverse, where the smoke is spicy but then the drink is smooth. And so honestly, just like a good red wine.
Yeah, I like red
wine.
Like
a Cab Sav or something.
Yeah,
with a good cigar is like.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I'm really
fantastic.
I really like Duckhorn wine. Like the little Cab Sav Duckhorn is really, really good. It's like $15 a bottle if you get it at the right place. And
yeah, Josh wine is actually pretty good.
Yeah, Josh is good. I mean,
for the price point,
a lot of these cheaper wines, they're not too bad. And I'm not a big wine guy.
I'm not
doing
either.
I'm not doing the slurp in the
right.
But
the dominant nostril action.
Right, but I've enjoyed the cigars that I smoke with wine a lot more than I thought I would. Because it used to be just, you just drink some bourbon or something. And then it's like, if you're drinking beer, I'd rather just smoke a cigar. Yeah. So it's like, it depends on what you're drinking.
I've tried beer. I barely ever drink beer. I used to like beer a lot more. I still will have like a Guinness. I'll have some darker beer, and like sometimes you go to a wedding, you have a cigarette and a light beer. Like that's a classic pairing. But just if you're typically, I just don't drink beer that much. I kind of feel sick after I drink it.
That's interesting. I mean,
it's too sudsy.
I really like beer. I've been drinking it a long time. My dad was super into IPAs and some of the nicer stuff, so I grew up drinking that.
Yeah.
And then, like I like Guinness, but we went to Ireland in February, so Sadie and I, Leo, and then her cousin, his wife, and their son. The 6 of us went. And we had a good time, and, you pop into a pub, you get a Guinness. There's nothing like a Irish Guinness. It's so much better. On Q actually does a nice Guinness if you get a bartender that knows how to pour them.
Okay.
They're actually not too bad for an American Guinness. So I like to pop in there and get one, but I like pretty much all kinds of beers. So, if it's a light beer, my go-to is probably PBR. If I'm going for an IPA, I like the Solace, which is like a local brewery that makes a pretty nice. I don't remember the name of the brewery itself, but the beer itself is Solace. They offer it at Apple House for like half price on Wednesdays, so that's pretty good. And then I like a lot of German beers, a lot of blondes, things like that. They're all those importers are pretty good. Yeah, Leffe is pretty good.
Yeah. So. Yeah, a lot of the beers, I don't know what it is. I think if it's a lighter beer, like just a lager, like I can do Yingling or like the Yingling Black and Tan or even some of the lighter like Mexican lagers like Modelo or something like that. Yeah. Those are good, but I like them with a thing.
Sure.
So like burgers and beer, or like you're doing homemade tacos and you've got a Modelo with a lime or something like that. Like definitely, like 100%. Other than maybe like a margarita, like that's the drink of choice. Yeah. But a lot of times when I come home from work, I just don't feel like having 3 beers. Like it's just
right. Well, and
even hanging out at work or a group of guys, like I've gotten to the point where I'd much rather have a glass or two of something stronger and sip it than like 6 beers and kind of have the same little buzz, like after 2 drinks. Because a lot of times it's just, I don't know if it's how carbonated it is or what, but a lot of times I'll get like heartburn and I'm not into it. I just don't like it.
Yeah, I get that.
I'll just do the heavier beers if anything.
I don't really drink during the week at all. And the weekends, it's like, it depends on what I'm doing. Like if I'm hanging out outside, I'm in the sun, like you can call me gay, but I like a nice high noon, they're kind of refreshing.
It's pretty
got some good flavors, but
not a fan.
I don't typically go for them, but if it's like,
sure,
if it's a little warmer or if I want to drink with the wife, you get something like that. So, or wine.
Yeah. There's things that I'm like on principle, I'm not opposed to, and I'll keep trying them because I'm hoping that I'm wrong, and I just have never enjoyed like white wine. I barely ever enjoy. I've had some nicer white wines, and you have that with like every once in a while we'll get like white wine. You have it with like a really nice salmon or something, really good, or like a nice pasta,
like a buttery Chardonnay.
Yeah,
that's kind of what you want.
But generally speaking, not a fan of white wine. Same thing with like seltzers, hard seltzers, like White Claw, High Noon, any of that stuff.
High Noon to me is definitely.
I'd rather just have a G&T. Like
High Noon has been the best. I enjoy it, but I like if you could have a G&T, I'd probably go for that too. I don't like gin, except
just straight.
Well, really in any drink, I don't like any gin drink. But the only time I've ever enjoyed a G&T is when I get the dry gin.
Yeah, you got to get the London Dry or something.
Yeah, something other than dry gin. It just doesn't. I don't know what it is about that. That flour that they make it with. I can't remember the name of it, but the dry gin is the way to go. And that those G&Ts I enjoy, but anything.
I actually got a really good gin the other day.
Enjoy it.
And it's pretty affordable because I used to try to get some nicer gin like Citadel or I usually wouldn't get Hendrix or
Hendrix has got like a weird cucumber flavor.
Yeah, well, the thing is, the ones that are more expensive, the Hendrix, the Tanqueray, those will have like botanicals in it, so they've got some sort of flavoring, which can be really cool.
Yeah.
But like in a G&T or something sometimes, but a lot of times, to me, it kind of takes away from just the lime tonic flavor, which I think is good.
Yeah.
I got one yesterday or the day before. It's called Bulldog. I don't know if you've had it. It's like a little black bottle. I think it's like $25. Really good for G&T, but actually what it's better for is like a martini. If you do like a gin martini, because I used to do vodka, but then I was like, I'm not going to buy nice vodka. Like what's a $45 bottle of vodka versus a $10 handle? Like they taste exactly the same. But then I made a martini and I was like, it kind of just tastes like vodka. Like I feel like this is the path to alcoholism. Like I don't want that. Like I want to enjoy it because like there's the olive flavor, there's the brine, there's the not just because it's vodka.
Yeah.
Then I got this Bulldog gin, and because it doesn't have the botanicals, there's a gin taste, but it's really it doesn't kind of interfere with anything. So you can do like a nice lemon zest, martini, or you can do an olive, like a little bit of olive brine if you like it dirty, and then a nice olive in it, or a blue cheese olive or garlic olive or something like that. Really good. And it's just gin. Like that's all it is.
Honest,
I really like it.
I haven't really had many martinis. I just, it's not something I've ever
That
really
you liked.
gone down that path. I don't really know that I've ever had enough to say whether I like it or not.
Oh man. So I was talking about, you know Jimmy, right? Jimmy Fian. We were talking about this the other day, and I was
used
like,
to work with him.
oh, that's right. Yeah. Back in the day.
Yeah. I worked at Illinois with him.
I was thinking maybe from bartending days, but,
I did some bartend. I bartended the Criste of Chapel opening. So that was good.
right. Well, it's funny because we were talking the other day. I was bartending the Greg's Fest, and we were talking about bars, and I was like, "Yeah, it's really disappointing because like Front Royal, there's not a ton of people with like a high net worth, but there's a decent amount. Like there's some nice restaurants around here or near here. So I was like, why doesn't anyone just open a cocktail bar? Like there's bars,
There's laws that kind of prevent.
Yeah, and some of it's a food, like you have to serve food and stuff. Yeah. But I was like, well, why don't we have a place where there's like really nice imported wine, craft cocktails, and then like appetizer menu, whatever that minimum.
Osterias does a nice job.
They do a pretty nice job. I don't think their cocktails are great. Part of that is just because they don't have a full-time bartender, and so it's just kind of whoever's there. I'm actually gonna try to talk to Biagio because I don't have time to bartend there, but I think that because they have the liquor license and they have nice food, they could actually do some like once a week have a new craft cocktail, and they only have that one, and then the rest is like G&T old fashioned, kind of your typical stuff. But that one cocktail is really nice, and then people would come for that. But there's a place in Nashville, and I follow their Instagram page because they just have really cool stuff, and it's called the Sinatra Bar. And obviously Frank Sinatra was really big into like martinis, and so they have a martini menu, and you can order other stuff, and they've got steak and like really nice food, but they've got a martini menu, and specifically in their bar menu, one of them is the martini menu, and you can just go through and check off stuff. So it's like martini, I would like it in this color glass with this kind, with gin, with this kind of gin, with dirty, with this type of olive, with all of the, and you can just make your selection, and then they make like this martini, and they have all these like classy glasses and stuff. And I was like, that's really cool. Now, granted, I'm not like a huge martini person, but if you're going to go somewhere and you're like, they have 15 martinis and all of them are good, like that would be sweet.
Yeah. I opened a ginger ale, not a beer. So.
Yeah. Double fisting over here. Yeah. What's it like smoking on a podcast with, or smoking on a podcast? I was going to say with a cigar, but
it hurts the eyes a little bit, not going to lie.
Hurts the eyes? What do you
mean? when you give it a little puff and you're not outside. I mean, I don't think it just
kind of sits a little bit. No, I thought about turning on the air purifier, but I think it's just going to make noise.
Yeah, no, it's good.
Not too cloudy
it's good.
yet.
I mean, you get used to it, but no, it's nice. It's a unique. I feel like I'm on Joe Rogan, where they just got the big smoky room with Elon Musk talking about all kinds of crazy crap.
I know. I really need to hire. And I don't know how I can afford it, but I really need a Jamie person.
A Jamie,
and
or
I think
a Thursday,
I think that every podcast needs that.
So yeah,
because
what happened? What happened with like Mark and Brian? They're just, you kind of move on. They're just not into
no,
it.
I think
What's
it was
going on?
Yeah, huge falling out.
Because I don't know that it's been talked about on this podcast. Because I'm probably one of
you're a big fan.
I'm probably one of your earliest listeners.
That's
so
true.
I've listened to probably every episode.
That's funny that you're probably one of the only people that has not only listened to all the episodes, but now you're on the podcast, which. Just fair warning, don't listen to this episode. I haven't listened to a single one of my episodes. I do it. It's fun. We post it. I move on. Yeah, I mean, what are you going to do? Listen to it and then ask me to edit it? Like, no, unless you say something, unless you like reveal something, and then later you're like, oh my gosh, I should not have said that. Like, it's not healthy. Just say, hey, I had a great time. Move on.
As much as my wife says I don't, I think I have a good filter. So
yeah. Cuss word. No. Yeah. Let's see. Podcast. Yeah. I mean, a lot of it was kind of inevitable because you have a podcast, you have 3 people. We're not making any money off it because we're all working full time. I think the way we split up roles was actually pretty good because Mark was doing the editing. That's what he was good at. Brian was helping with some of the tech stuff because he was a little bit better at like setting up the Zoom call and fixing the audio and whatever. And then I just hosted. And it's kind of a shame. And I kind of want to talk to them about it. Like kind of more openly. I think we have separately, but not really together. Because when we first started, we are like, look, this is a joke. It's not going to become big. We hang out all the time anyway, and we have really interesting conversations. So we should just record them and post them so all of our friends who are not with us can listen to it. And that was kind of the gist of it.
And that's why I liked listening to, because it was like, you had Danny Duca on.
Yeah, because it was fun. Yeah, like so that's what we did. But then as we're getting further and further, I'm like, okay, well, I still want to have my friends on. I still want it to be like this. I want it to be casual. I want to just hang out. But if it actually gets to a point where we have like a decent amount of followers and we're kind of starting to make money off it and we have some influence and we have a decent amount of followers and we can get Patreon members, and it's like, well, I'm not going to turn that away because I really enjoy doing it. So if I can continue, and my goal has always been, if I can continue doing exactly what I'm doing and make money off it, I'm going to make money off it. If I have to change what I'm doing to make money off it, I'm not going to do that.
Right.
So for me, I'm like, I'm not going to go full time. I'm not quitting my job. I'm not
a principled man.
But I can build a bigger studio. I can invest my own personal money into better microphones, into a better experience, into buying a bottle of, whatever for the show. And that's on my own personal dime, but it adds to the experience, and I don't want to sacrifice the experience. I think for them, it was hard because, well, there was a bunch of different things going on. Brian just had a baby, which I had a baby too, but it was kind of, feel like it was different because they had a harder time sleeping with the baby. Like Eileen was like a perfect child, like was great for sleeping. So like she was born and like 3 weeks later I had a podcast. Like I just kind of got right back into it. And then Mark had a tough time because we would always, it's, almost 10 o'clock now. We would start an episode at 7 or 7:30. We go for a few hours, but he had to get up at like 5 for work.
Sure.
So he would be like, the last hour or two, he'd be checked out, or he would like leave early and the podcast is still going on. So it's just kind of weird. I think that if we had, and I don't know how we would have done this, but if we had 1 million followers and we were having these big guests on, they would have been like, sweet, this is an avenue and this is great. But because it was small and it was kind of me just like having people I thought was interesting on, that's the mission for me. And that's what I'm going to keep doing.
Well, it's not necessarily for them.
Yeah. And I also think that they, like, Mark had people he thought were interesting. Brian had people he thought were interesting. I had people, but like, because they weren't really the main host, they weren't following up and trying to get these people on as actively as I was. So a lot of them were my guests that I thought were interesting. So I think it's kind of a shame, but I'm hoping that now that we have this permanent studio and we have the capacity, theoretically, I need to buy one more mic, but we could have 4 people in here. We can move down and have 4, that we could have both of them on, and like we could have our book group. We could have there's a lot of different things we could do if people are interested. And I've got the channel, so we're going to have like the main format stuff, like long format stuff. We're going to have stuff with Father Adino and doing like kind of more religious stuff,
which has been really good.
Which I think a lot of people have really liked. Mr. Brown's going to come do some Aquinas stuff, so we're going to do like an Aquinas series. I'm not going to be involved in that other than helping with the recording. I'm not talking. It's the talent. It's someone else. Yeah. But I think it's people that listen to the show, I think will like it. And then we're partnering with Artifacts. We're going to have some of their guests on, which will be great. And then there might be other avenues of like other shows, or like, if you and me and Nick and Nate want to have a podcast and make it like, how Joe Rogan has like Protect Our Parks and he has like the same 3 or 4 comedians on. If we want to do something that's like twice a year and we just sit down for like 5 hours and talk about whatever, and that's like kind of its own niche thing, totally fine. Yeah, because like, are we going to have a huge market for it? I don't know. But if we all want to do it and I have the channel, let's just do it.
But if we read one of our books and then we talk about the book like we did, I feel like some of those
for an hour or two
would be worth it, and then it can trail off, because our conversations when we had book club would always trail off anyway. So
well, and I've thought that. I mean, Frad does that. He's got his long format, but then he has some debates, and then he has his like horror kind of on the side, his little like sibling horror or whatever. Have you listened to that? Like 2 of them. I thought the pumpkin one, which was one of the first ones, I just
listened to that one today.
Was really good. Yeah, I thought that one was really good. I'm not even a huge horror guy. I thought that one was good.
I've listened to all of his sibling horror stuff except Pumpkin is the one I most recently,
or Jack-o'-lanterns or whatever it was.
Yeah, it's called. I think it's called Pumpkins. But I really like. I'm a big into horror, so I listen to a lot of horror podcasts. So the guy that he gets to narrate some of his episodes, because he narrates a lot of them, and then there's another guy. That guy has his own podcast, which is called Knife Point Horror.
Okay.
And he has a lot of really niche style. Like, I don't think he writes them all. I think he writes some of them. But they're a lot more like cerebral horror style. So it's not as like cheap, in the sense of like traditional horror. But his podcast is really good. So I got into him because of Matt Frad.
Interesting.
And then recently a buddy, him, Nick Barron.
Yeah.
He's gotten me he's pretty big into horror. He married my cousin. He's gotten me into some podcasts. So a lot of the podcasts that I consume these days are like, there's one, obviously, it's Creepcast. They're a little more vulgar. Some of them, they make some dirty jokes, but they kind of have like a principle of like, they go on Reddit and they find like a cool story to read, or like they have like a fan submission. They're very popular podcasts, but I really like listening to them because they dramatize it.
Yeah.
So they have one guy that reads the narration and then one guy that does the voices, and he's like a low-key voice actor. So it's really interesting, but I like Matt Fradd's sibling horror because he does a lot of cool stuff and he's got some interesting stories.
Did you listen to his episode? I think it was the first time he had him on, not the second. When he had Andrew Clavin on and talked about horror. I'm not like a huge Andrew Clavin fan. I think like some of his opening monologues to his podcast are really funny and like he's a good writer and I like some of his takes, but I thought the section when they talked about horror was really interesting. Like, why are Catholics drawn to horror, and like, when does it cross the line between being like perverted and we should avoid it because that's like kind of like a form of pornography almost, and when is it good to like be reminded that the world is like evil, there's evil people, and like good can come out of evil, and like what's the redemptive quality in horror, and some really deep questions they talked about. I really liked it.
It's really good. I am definitely not an expert on, moral theology and how it relates to horror, but I do know when I listen to something that's good, you can just tell it's good, and when I listen to something that's bad, you just know. So this is kind of a feeling you get when you listen. Yeah. And unfortunately, sometimes you just can't tell until you're listening. But like, I would say horror that relates something to like personal experience or something that's in reality. So, like the pumpkin one, for example, we both listened to that recently. I mean, I listened to it today actually, but
that's so crazy because I was thinking when we took our break, I was like, oh, I want to ask him about, because I know you're into horror, and I was like, oh, the pumpkin one was like the one I could think of.
I just listened to it on the way home from work, but that one's really good because it's like a guy who's kind of like estranged from his brother. His wife got convicted of killing her husband, and she doesn't want to like ruin her reputation because she built up a reputation for having like 1 million carved pumpkins, but then like the pumpkins end up coming to life, and according to her in her diary, and they kill her husband, but she can't like claim that because it should be insane. But like the guy who's narrating is like, well, maybe she's insane. Maybe the pumpkins really did. I thought it asked a lot of good questions. It didn't get too theological, and there was nothing in it that was inherently wrong. It was just kind of talking about like, hey, what if pumpkins came to life and killed somebody? Mm-hmm. So like, there's nothing bad about that. Like nothing that Matt Fradd's ever written. Yeah, it was
super gruesome.
There's nothing Matt Fradd's ever written that was like too much.
Yeah.
So, if you want to get an example of like how to do horror well, he's a really good place to start. But then, something like Creepcast, which is a more secular podcast, they cover, I'd say probably like 90% of the stories that they do are really good horror stories, and there's nothing in them that's inherently wrong. I mean, obviously you can't listen to it with kids or like, like my wife, most wives are kind of sensitive to those things, so they're not really into it. But like, they curate what they listen to because they want it to be good storytelling. And most good horror leaves you with more questions than answers. So like a popular motif in horror is like, if you answer a lot of the questions that you or your audience would have about your story, you're probably writing bad horror. If you leave your audience with like
the point is to be unsettling.
The point is to be unsettling or to be like vague, because like you're not supposed to really be able to understand evil. You're just supposed to know that it's there and like what to look out for, I think. So, good horror kind of leaves you with like questions of like, yeah, this is kind of an, a messed up scenario that you find yourself in. Excuse me. But you still have to explore it because that's part of reality.
Yeah.
And that's something that a lot of people run into. So it doesn't necessarily have to be demonic. It doesn't have to be like overtly Christianized or overtly like, oh, it's angels and demons. Sometimes that's can play and that's good, but you got to be careful. You got to be really, intentional with how you approach those things. Yeah. But sometimes it's just like, yeah, man, people have free will and they do crazy stuff, and the stories are interesting, and it's good to be aware, and you're not necessarily supposed to understand it. So like the questions it leaves you with is a part of the intrigue to it, I would say. And Matt Fradd's really good about leaving his stories with intrigue. So like, the last part of the story, I'm going to spoil it for you guys. So, go listen to it if you don't want to be spoiled. But like the last part of his story is like, he's in the house recording the diary that he reads, and then when he leaves the house, like the pumpkins like come on and like low-key attack the main narrator, and he's like, oh, my sister-in-law didn't actually kill my brother. And you're like, oh dude, that's great. What are the pumpkins? What controlled them? Why did they do it? I don't know, but this is the scenario they found yourself in. Yep. So there's nothing bad, and then it leaves you with cool questions so you can talk about it with your friends, or you can just sit with it and be like, yeah, well, that's how that went. And it doesn't necessarily have to have like the less satisfying traditionally the story is, because the less answers the question, like the less answers it gives you, you're like, oh, I don't like that, but you kind of like it because it leaves the door open for interpretation. Whereas the story where it's like, oh yeah, it was the devil and they possessed the pumpkins, and it's like, that's kind of lame. Because like your audience's imagination is your biggest tool when it comes to any kind of storytelling. So especially in horror, when your audience can imagine, like or like theorize or question what's going on, you're actually doing your job better.
That's why like every horror movie, it's so freaky until whatever's terrorizing or whatever the thing is revealed, and then you're like, oh, it's like this kind of like sort of scary monster or what.
The less you see the monster, the better the monster is.
Like I think A Quiet Place is a great movie, but the whole lead up is like, what's this thing? It's taking people, it's killing people, and you kind of just see flashes of it, and it's scary and it's unknown. And then in the end, and you see it, and you're like, okay, yeah, it still killed people, it's still a threat, it's still deadly, but it's not. It's kind of just like whatever. It's not as scary. It just fell off. It's okay. It's not going to burn through. But yeah, I think that's kind of a classic. Another great movie is like Signs, right?
Oh yeah.
Where like you're kind of like on edge of the whole movie because you don't know it, and then you finally see the creature, and you're kind of like, oh,
yeah. It would have been a much better movie if they didn't.
I don't think they should have ever shown it.
No, it would have. It's. You ever seen Bird Box with Sandra Bullock?
No,
like
but I've heard about it. It's the one that people can't see.
Yeah. So like they never show the monster in that. And that actually does really well for the story. That's kind of the biggest thing that it has going for it. But I watched this this video where it was like, originally in the movie they were going to show the monster, and then they decided not to. And that was the only reason. They think that's the only reason it was successful, because it wasn't a very good movie. But it was intriguing because they didn't show the monster that much. It's just like Jaws. Like the shark, you only saw like...
It's scary until you see the shark.
I think the shark was only seen like 3 times.
Okay.
And the movie's like 2 hours long.
Yeah.
And it was like really intense. And you're like, oh yeah, you didn't even see the monster. It was just all about the crafting the story around the mystery.
Sure.
So the thing with horror that I think works really well is the mystery, which is why like murder mysteries are really cool, because you only find out who did it at the end. And so it's satisfying in that sense, but the reason you keep coming back to that show or that episode or whatever is because of the intrigue building up, because there's something that needs to be found out. There's questions, there's theories, there's ways that you and whoever's in the audience can, talk about like, oh, I think it was this, and I think this is how they did it. But if they've revealed who did it at the beginning, and then you work your way backwards, like your mystery would suck.
Which I think, like generally, I would agree with that. But I think one of the best murder mystery movies I've seen in a long time that violated that in some sense is Knives Out. And I thought that was a really good movie. And the interesting thing about Knives Out is they tell you who the killer is in like the first 20 minutes. What they don't tell you is that there's other people involved, and then you're kind of figuring that out. Yeah. So it still has a mystery aspect to it. But that's kind of I thought that was a really interesting movie where like the person who, again, this movie's been out for a while, so I don't care about if I'm spoiling it. But like the guy who dies kills himself because he thinks that the girl who's taking care of him accidentally poisoned him. And that that's what happened. But then there's like another hour and a half, and you're kind of like, to me, it was really interesting because they're playing on the classic trope of let's not reveal who the murderer is. Let's set up these kind of red herrings. Let's misdirect. Let's mislead people. In this movie, they tell you exactly who did it, and then you're like, what? The mystery is kind of like, what's the rest of the movie going to be about? Right. Like, what's the motive? Sure. And what's going to happen? And I thought that was a really cool way to do it.
Yeah, it's a good movie. It's a super clever way to kind of subvert the classic, like, Agatha Christie style of, like, having 12 characters, and they're all kind of in a confined space, and it could have been anybody, so he's got to unravel. But that movie kind of took that to a different level. I mean, for as good as the first movie was, it also made the second one suck so much more.
Yeah, I did not like the second one.
Yeah, the glass onion.
There could have been. It could have been good. It had some good elements. It just got weird, and there was a lot more like violence and kind of like.
It was like like, oh, COVID, wasn't that crazy? And that was like kind of the whole like setting for the movie.
Yeah.
And then like the actual mystery and the murder and all that was just like pretty disappointing. So like Knives Out was really good, and it kind of like hurt the sequel. Because it was so good. Like, I think Glass 100%. Onion could have been fine if it wasn't related.
Yeah, well, and I also think that...
But there was a lot more in...
It depends on how much you care about this type of thing, but like, the first movie, you've got the inspector, there's like kind of a classic like Victorian house, there's like all these murder tropes, and like, they're playing off murder mystery tropes, but then they're also kind of violating a lot of those rules, and it was still interesting, and like, the lightning and the dogs, and like there was just a lot of like really classic murder mystery stuff that they played off really well. But then they also added a lot of new elements that were like kind of a spy or like a thriller that I thought were really good. Yeah, but the second one, there was like, I think there was like a partial like scene in it, and then it's revealed that the inspector is like gay, and then like there was just a lot of weird stuff where it's like this just feels woke and unoriginal, and because the first one was so good.
All the like things that they were trying to make it like cool and edgy just like took away from the story.
Yeah,
they didn't add to it. Whereas like in the original was like there was like that little like wokeness or edginess or like political nature, but like it didn't take away. So like there was he like struck gold and then he tried to do it again and it was just like, dude, should just let it be a one-off.
Let it go. Yeah,
like you're not Agatha Christie. Yeah, unfortunately, you know.
The first one was good, but
yeah. So it's just like I appreciated Knives Out and it's worth rewatching, but the other one was just not good. Yeah. But that's ultimately what I think kind of makes horror good is the mystery element and how many questions it leaves the audience asking. And oftentimes I think it's even better when the author doesn't even know the answers. They just pose the question.
Right.
So I think that's kind of a big element to like good horror is like the less things that are answered, you're almost better off. So it's like tell the story you want to tell. Ask questions, but if you don't have a good answer, just don't answer it then.
Do you think that that's true just for horror, or do you think that other genres could also, like a spy movie or a thriller or whatever, could also just ask questions and then not really have a...
I think it would depend on how they set it up, right? So it's like if your whole narrative is around one mystery, you kind of have to answer the mystery. Right. But if you have a narrative that's around someone's reaction to a pseudo realistic situation, like the situation doesn't have to be realistic, but like the characters do. So like your suspension of disbelief can be engaged with the setting or the specific action, but then your characters have to be believable, right? So like, I'm trying to think of an example, but like, you know, like Inception, for example, it's like the whole setting is kind of unrealistic, but every character is super believable. So the story works because of the characters, not necessarily because of the setting. Yeah. And there's a lot of questions that don't get answered, but they have good setup and payoff because it's like, well, it's not supposed to be. And so it's satisfying for the audience because it's like, yeah, I didn't really want to know. Because any answer would ultimately be less satisfying than the experience of the audience to ask questions. So yeah.
Yeah, sure.
It's maybe it's more of a thriller aspect to horror that's more engaging, whereas it's like, you know, horror could be like torture porn, which is not good. You know, nobody likes that. Maybe even the people that say they like it's like, no, you don't really. Come on, like you don't want to just see people get mutilated for the fun of it. And if you do, like that's
really weird. Yeah,
that's kind of a bigger issue. But like the thriller aspect of like, oh man, like what's the mystery unraveling? And it's like there could be messed up elements to that thriller, but like ultimately, as long as the mystery stays intact, even if you answer it at the end, you know, it's really hard to pay it off.
Right.
So, you know, like a lot of horror does answer the questions, and it's like you could have 80% of a good movie, but if like you mess up the ending, that's kind of like the biggest issue with most horror stories is like the ending.
Yep. Because they don't know how to finish it.
Because they don't know how to finish it. They have a really good idea. They have a really good setting. They have really good characters. And then it's like they feel the need to like wrap it up in a bow. And it's like, yeah, your bow kind of sucks.
Have you ever seen, it's not really horror, but maybe it is because horror is such a big, I think it's the biggest genre of movie, right?
I don't know. I mean, maybe.
I mean, I feel like there's a lot of movies that are like quote unquote horror, but they're really thrillers
or they have drama element,
but they're still technically classified as horror. But there's a really good movie that Nick and Nate and I watched, and then the second one wasn't as good, but it was still good. But it was called The Escape Room, and it's about this group of people that go through an escape room. But the escape room, at least in the first one, it's not just like an escape room. You get through the door and you're out. It's like it is in this big complex, but it feels like real life. Like the rooms are so realistic that it feels like real life. And there's like real characters they're interacting with, and people presumably actually die. And like the stakes are really high, and people are getting like drowned and burned and like all this stuff. It's not just like getting the right combination lock to the box.
Sure.
But it's really cool because all the different rooms they go into are super unique. but it still has that like escape room element of like, what's the code? What's the story? How are we figuring out this room? How are we solving this mystery? But then obviously as they go on, more and more people are like dying or like getting captured or like disappearing and whatever. And then it turns out to be like this big corporation that's like setting this up. And then the second movie is, at the end, the one girl kind of wins. The second movie, a similar thing happens, but it's a group of people that have all won. So it's a bunch of winners from the past who have won these games. Now they're all in a room, and then it's kind of like who's the best one.
It's like their cheap way of upping the stakes.
It's kind of like a Hunger Games. So it's like all the winners play.
Yeah.
But it's kind of interesting because it's like it's not super gory. It's not super like it's not really horror. It's really just a thriller. But it's kind of fun, especially if you like escape rooms, because the plot or the development is kind of stable, but it's not just like they're in the woods, something happens, then they go to this place and something. It's like each room they go into is a totally different reality, and so there's like all these different implications of like quicksand and water and
sure.
It's kind of fun.
They make it like an engaging puzzle that even though the character's going through it, so is the audience.
And it's clearly like it's kind of, I wouldn't say it's super low budget, but it's not like obviously high budget. It's like a simple idea, but I thought it was just entertaining. It was just a good movie. And we walked away from that like there wasn't anything inappropriate. They weren't swearing. There wasn't people like sleeping together, and it was just fun. They were trying to solve the puzzle and get out of the room, and like people sacrificed, and it was cool. It was a good movie.
And it's like, there's like 7 stories you can tell.
Mm-hmm.
So you can kind of create this setting around the story. So as long as your characters and like maybe like your kind of general plot beats kind of hit us on a similar vein, you have a lot of freedom to do with the rest of it, but you kind of have to stay within confines because, rules and boundaries is what dictates a good story. So it's like within horror, the best ones are like there's some kind of, inherently creepy, setting or like set of rules. So like there was one I listened to that was by Creepcast. Some Reddit person wrote it, but it was about a clown that like haunted this family and would show up to every kid's 10th birthday. And every birthday, the clown would give the kid a book. And if anybody read the book, whatever happened in the book came true. But if you didn't read the book, it didn't necessarily come true.
Sure.
So one year, one of the cousins, reads the book for his kid. And then like, everybody, all the things happen. But it kind of left you with like, well, if you didn't read the book, would they still have happened? Because like nobody else got, murdered or like stalked by the clown after, and he was the only one that read the book, and then the things in the book came true. So it was like, oh man, like it just kind of like it like
just kind of unsettling.
It set up a family man who wanted to protect his family, but like he had curiosity, so like you could see yourself in his shoes, like want to do it. But it was like a scenario that was really out there, but everybody in the family just accepted it because you got to get through the day and you got to get through your life. But as soon as somebody kind of like broke away from the norm of not reading the book, that's when things went bad. So it was kind of like a meta, like on like, it's curiosity, sometimes things are just the way that they are, and tradition's there for a reason if you don't understand it.
Right.
And maybe that's a good thing. And as soon as you start breaking away from tradition, you get, bad things happen. Like there's a lot of themes that the story set up. And, it was only like a 2 or 3 part story that you could listen to in an hour. So fairly short. But it did a lot by staying within boundaries and rules and setting up good characters of like the dad and the mom and the daughter. Mm-hmm. And then it was like ultimately somebody's decision that caused the issues, not necessarily the clown. So it was like the main actor was the main character. Yeah. It wasn't like he was just in this scenario where he couldn't control anything, but he didn't necessarily know. So, there's just a lot of like, you want to have a main character that drives the story. You want to have a cool setting, but you still have to operate within certain bounds for a story to be interesting. And there's still so many questions that are answered, like, what's the deal with the clown? Why does he do this? All this. It's like, leave that stuff unanswered. I don't want to know what the clown's motives are. It's just there, and you got to deal with it now.
Yeah.
And it's a lot. It's like a lot of things in life. It's like, I don't know why this is happening, but this is the scenario that I'm in, so now I got to act accordingly. Yeah. And you look to tradition of your elders to see how to act and how they've dealt with situations in the past. It's like, even if you don't understand, you're probably better off doing what they did than like trying to make your own way. Because as soon as you start making your own way and you like deviate from, God's plan, then you start getting yourself into trouble. And so there's a lot of things like that a simple story about a clown haunting kids' birthday parties kind of like hints at greater narrative. So like, it's a very classic example of like the setting can be different, but you still want to operate within like certain bounds of traditional motif.
Right.
And it doesn't necessarily have to have a happy ending for it to still be a good story. So that's kind of why I like horror. That's the kind of horror that I enjoy. Like I don't like the cheap jump scares. I don't like it's just gory and bloody, so that makes it scary. It's like no. Like there's actual ways you can do this to make it pretty good and engaging.
Yeah, I think the only real horror that I've liked, other than horror, like that's kind of like horror, but in scare quotes, is like some horror that's like really corny, and the point of it is just to like kind of be gruesome and funny. That can be fun.
Yeah, there's probably a place for
like,
that.
Stab, like all the or Scream or whatever. But those are just like they kind of just play on all the classic horror motifs, and so you're like, oh, this person's gonna get stabbed. Oh, they get stabbed. Like the point of it is to kind of be like ironic and funny, and it's like almost a comedy, even though it's a horror movie. Yeah, but those can be kind of fun.
But even those ones, like Scream, for example, at least I think it's the second one or the third one where they like set up like the mystery around who's the killer, and it's like completely subverts your expectations. Like they do a really good job about hiding the killer, but when they reveal it at the end, you're like, oh, that's pretty good.
Yeah.
And so like there's still a setup and a payoff,
right?
And there's still certain mysteries of like, how did he do it? I don't understand this, but like it's not like breaking rules.
Yeah.
It's just operating within the boundaries that the writer set.
Right.
Even if it's kind of a more silly style,
sure,
they still set up a good mystery.
Right.
And they still leave the audience with questions, even though if they answer who the killer is, you're like, well, how did he do this?
Yeah, right. Exactly.
Like there's
how
things,
did they get from there? Yeah.
There's things that you still walk away from questioning and that make it resonate long term.
Sure. Yeah, and I think it's you either have that or you have like legitimate more legitimate kind of like thrillers, I think is what I would like. Like I think The Quiet Place is technically horror. It's really just a thriller.
Yeah, it's more of a thriller, but it's still a family
that type
story.
of thing. Yeah, I think that is like a classic. Like, yeah, it's kind of scary, and there's a monster, and there's stuff happening, and people are disappearing and dying, and like it's dark, but it has like a lot of underlying family values. The dad sacrifices himself, that type of movie I can get behind, or kind of the funny horror. What I don't like is a lot of the just like senseless, really gory stuff, which I haven't seen a ton of, but what I have seen I don't really like.
Yeah.
Like psychological thrillers can be fun, but yeah, kind of like senseless gore, or if it gets a little bit satanic, I feel like is okay. Where there's like, hey, this happened, this is a real scenario, and this is how we fight it. And
like nefarious.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Where it's like it's showing that evil exists, but it's also showing that like good people also can like step in and change it, or like that. I guess in that scenario, a priest doesn't help because he's weak, but the implication is that an actual priest who is like strong in his faith would have been able to help that situation, or a real exorcist.
Yep.
But what I don't like is just when it's like kind of like satanic for satanic's sake.
Yeah.
Because no one can defeat the devil, and then the takeaway is kind of like the devil always wins because he's the devil. And it's like, no, that's obviously not true. Like that's literally the exact opposite of the Christian message, which is Christ died and defeated the devil and death. And so, yeah, he can torture you and he can torment you and he can creep you out and whatever, but like ultimately Christ will win. And that's the winning message. So I don't like that.
Those are good stories when they have like Christ kind of coming through, but it's also like you can still operate within that same realm, as long as the reason that the people who the main story is about lose is because of their own choices or their own free will that causes them to be like
their
it's
demise.
Not just like, oh well, evil's there and it's going to win.
It's going to take you out. Yeah.
Like that's the stuff that's bad. But it's like, no, you could have beaten evil.
Yep.
You just didn't because you made stupid choices and you chose the wrong thing. Like I think even stories like that are still good and valuable because it points out like, no, you can still choose wrong. Mm-hmm. But it's your choices that obviously are the reason that you lost, not necessarily the evil was too strong to overcome.
Sure.
So like it's a very like horror is probably the most difficult genre to get right because you have to operate within strict bounds. But as soon as you like clearly define your boundaries and your rules, if you operate within those, I mean the quality of like storytelling is really potent. Mm-hmm. And so that's why I really like it.
Interesting.
So like some of my favorite movies are kind of in that more horror thriller style, and some of the worst movies I've ever seen are in that same style as well. So it's like, it's really good, it's really bad. There's not a whole lot that ends up in between. Yeah. Anything in between is like the ideas and the setup was really good, but then the payoff was just horrendous.
Yeah.
And that a lot of movies make that mistake.
Yeah. Yeah. What are your thoughts on Halloween? We've been talking about horror.
The holiday?
Yeah, just kind of like generally, like I think it's different. Like if you grew up trick-or-treating and you kind of saw it as like fun, like we get to wear a costume, we get candy, we get to hang out with our friends, it's wholesome. Like I think that's fine. I think most people would agree that that's fine. I think there's like kind of a darker side to it, and I think as a like Catholics classically either ignore things that are really bad or like demonize things that are kind of like not that bad.
Yeah.
So I think that with everything you have to have kind of the mean between the extremes. And I can totally see how like dressing up as a cowboy and going and getting candy from your neighbors is like pretty wholesome. At the same time, there is a large contingent of people that like dress up as like witches and like things that are like not things you would want your kids to embolize. Not that you can't dress up as something like maybe a little bit scary, but like a witch, a wizard, a ghost. Like at a certain point, it's like, okay, should you be dressing up as that or like dressing up as the devil? Like, yeah, probably not. Does that mean you need to be a saint in a saint costume? Not necessarily. You could be someone from Star Wars. That's wholesome. That's fine. That's what you're into.
Sure.
But then you add that with like, then, you know, obviously other people in the world are creepy and like, there's kind of a general, like, I would say growing contingent of people that are pretty dark. It's always been there, but I think as you become an adult, you realize more and more that people are like adults are oddly into Halloween and like, there's like a lot of like weird dark stuff, even if it's kind of secular and maybe they don't really care. Even just walking around like neighborhoods, you see a lot of people that have like witches and goblins and ghosts and stuff. And you're like, okay, is this just wholesome nostalgic or is this like you're kind of into witches and ghosts? Because I don't like that if that's the case.
Yeah. I mean, I
don't know. I'm just curious what your thoughts are.
Obviously, I can't speak to people's individual intentions, but like I feel like as a general rule, most people do it because it's like
just kind of like the thing to do.
It's like fun. It's kind of like a cultural thing.
Mm-hmm.
But you know, if you really want to like,
it's like a little spooky.
It's like a little spooky, but it's still like, oh, like you're still like a decent person. Like some people take advantage and they like take it too far or they do something. But it's like I really like haunted trails. I really like, you know, seeing some stuff that's like a little bit disturbing, but they like, you know, they jump out at you, try to scare you. Like it's a good time. Like everybody operates within, again, rules and boundaries. Like you can't touch anybody. You know, there's nothing like too overtly like satanic.
Stabbing someone. Yeah.
Yeah. You're not like taking it too far. So like I really like haunted trails and things like that. I think there's a lot of good to get out of like just like the experience of experiencing a adrenaline rush, but you still kind of know it's a generally safe space. So you can kind of experience something that's a little bit more uncomfortable. And
it's kind of like a roller coaster where it's like thrilling, but you're safe.
Yeah, exactly. So like I think there's a lot of value in that. I really enjoy things like that. But you're right. When you get into the, you know, like you go up trick or treating to somebody's house and it's like really creepy and dark, and they like try to take on the persona. And it's just like there's nothing that you guys are trying to achieve that's like in good faith. Mm-hmm. You're kind of just like trying to push the limits and the boundaries of what's socially acceptable. So like that's probably wrong. Mm-hmm. But I feel like the house that you go to is like, yeah, they got spiders and graveyards, but like the people are really nice, even though she may be dressed up like a witch, but she's like, yeah, come get the candy. Like, I think things like that are okay. Jack-o'-lanterns, like all that, like it's all fine. So it's like, there's a way to do it, even if it's kind of generally spooky, or even if you're dressed up as like a witch or a skeleton or whatever, it's like generally creepy. It's like, that's not necessarily bad.
Yeah.
It's just about like how far you take it. And if you operate within reasonable bounds, I would say is kind of like the difference. But I really like Halloween. It's probably used to be my favorite holiday. I really enjoyed it. Like when I was a teenager, when I was a kid, I loved it. It was like always the most fun to look forward to. You walk around, get together with your cousins or your friends, go trick-or-treating. There was just a lot of good fun surrounding it. So I really liked that aspect of it. I think the tradition of Halloween is pretty cool. Like you go to people's houses and, you know, typically how it started was like you would get treats and pies for people because they would be like a community support thing where you'd be like, yeah, I made a bunch of sweets. People come over, they get it, we eat it together, and we kind of like are prepping for celebrating the people who we've lost, or like the souls, like All Souls Day or like All Saints Day. Like you're kind of like asking for people's intercession. So like that's a big part of the tradition. There's also a part of the tradition of like All Saints Day was the next day, so like a lot of you know, dark groups or Satanist groups or whatever you want to call them would like kind of like try to subvert that and like create the day to be bad. So like there's bad tradition on both sides.
Yeah.
So it just kind of depends on like who's celebrating it and like the spirit and the attention of the people.
Sure,
I'd say.
Sure.
But I think it's generally a good thing, and even in our culture, it's still pretty good.
Yeah.
Even if there's a lot of things that you're like, oh, I don't really get that or I don't understand that. It's like, yeah, but it's not. It's not like. I don't know. I'm not like the most knowledgeable in it. It's like it's not that bad, and I don't want that to be like my justification for doing something. It's like, oh, it's not that bad, so it's fine. But there's still a general.
Well, it's kind of like that stigmatism about like Harry Potter and like wizardry and stuff, and it's kind of like, well, do I want my kids to like idolize a kid who's a wizard? Not really. But like, is he really doing anything that's that nefarious?
There's still a lot of good that comes out of those stories.
Yeah, there's also a lot of good. Also, like Lord of the Rings is full of wizards, and like there's good and bad wizards. So why can't we have good and bad wizards?
Right.
I think the problem is in those stories, there's good and bad wizards, and there's good and bad people. But in the real world, if anyone's like, "Oh, I'm a good wizard," you're like, "No, you're a bad." Like, there's no such thing in the modern world as a good wizard or a good witch.
Yeah,
it's like, no, if you're actually that, you're evil, and if you're pretending, you're at least at the bare minimum, you're creepy.
And so
it's kind of a hard.
I'd say like,
like
it's kind of the same thing with horror. Like, there's still a kind of like there's bounds to which you can operate in for those things to be fine. But a lot of people take them too far, and so it's like you can't just like put a blanket statement on it. I would say, it's about how everybody kind of approaches it, and so it's like, yeah, you can make the argument like our general culture is like approaching it in a bad way, blah, yada yada yada. But still, just because things are creepy doesn't necessarily make them bad, because there's a lot of people who are weird out there that are still good people.
Yeah.
So like.
Yeah, it's kind of a fascinating thing because it's like you want to be countercultural, but you don't want to be so countercultural that like you don't have common ground with people.
Yeah.
And so I feel like it's kind of it's an odd thing, especially having kids and thinking about like, okay, in 5 years when they're like trick-or-treating age, are we going to go trick-or-treating and I'm going to make them dress up as a saint, or are we going to go trick-or-treating and they can be something secular, like they can be a princess or a ballerina or a cowboy? Or are we just going to say, you can be whatever you... Like, what's the spectrum? Is it, you can be whatever you want, I don't care? I don't think that's good. Do I say you can only be saints and anything else is sinful? No, because I don't think that's... So it's like...
too prudish.
I feel like it's somewhere in the middle where it's like, you don't have to be a saint. If you want to be a saint, that's awesome, and I'm like proud of you that you're like, you want to embolize a saint. But if you want to be a cowboy or you want to be like a fisherman, great.
There's still
cool
value,
things.
Virtue,
yeah, there's still like cool manly or feminine things about those characters, and we can still go get candy and like hang out as a family.
And there's still something good about
why is that bad
a
thing?
Community building thing where you knock on people's doors and they give you candy, and it's like a very joyful experience for everybody. Like there's nothing bad about that.
Right.
So it just kind of comes down to like, there was always that house in your neighborhood where you're like, yeah, we don't really go to that house for Halloween. Like, we're just going to skip that one.
Yeah.
Even though other people went to it. Because it was like, they just take things a little too far. So it's like,
you
know, as a parent, you kind of have to be super involved with anything that the kid does, whether it's sports, school, or Halloween. But that doesn't mean you just let anything go.
Right.
Right? So it's like there's kind of like a happy medium, I'd say. And like that's kind of how it was in my house growing up. Like it wasn't fully demonized, but there was always some kind of conversation around like, some people are really messed up out there, so you just kind of be careful. Like one of the things my mom would always say was like, in popular culture, like trick kind of means like a weird like sexual favor. So like when you say trick or treat and somebody says trick, like that's a bad thing, and like that's something you want to avoid. So like I don't know what the history is behind asking trick or treat, but I'm assuming it's probably not the most like virtuous, wholesome place that comes from. But what it's turned into culturally these days is just like you just say it and then people give you candy.
Yeah.
But like there used to be a meaning behind that, and then like there's also a meaning of like the word trick kind of means like you're kind of like a promiscuous person that's like offering a certain favor to somebody, and you could like be taken up on this. Like I don't know the history behind that, but my mom was always like, just be careful. There's a lot of weird creepos out there that might say trick, and then you're like, yeah, you might want to avoid that house, or you might want to avoid that person.
Yeah.
Like, so like, there's definitely a lot of bad that comes with it, and so it's kind of I don't want to say slippery slope, but it's just like it's something, just like anything in the world. Like when you're a parent and you're raising your kids, and that like there's a lot of good that can come from it, but there's also a lot of bad. But there's anything like that.
Right.
So it's just like you just have to be. You just want to be the one who's involved with what your kids are doing, and you might not want to just let them go willy nilly, and you want to make sure they're aware of like the certain risks that are involved, but you don't want the risk to take away from like the experience, because there's a lot of good things I think you can get.
Totally.
So I'm net in favor for Halloween, but it's still always coming with like but just be cautious of the things that are bad.
Sure.
And I mean, there's a lot of things that are like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm definitely in favor.
Though. I mean, just like books and movies. Yeah. It's like, if it's at home and I'm there and I know what you're reading, I know what you're watching, I know what you're looking at, it's probably fine.
But if
you're going to a friend's house, or you're going, especially as like a young teenager and you're going to a theater, it's like, yeah, most of what you're going to see is fine, but there is going to be some language. There could be a scene. There could be this and that. I don't want to expose you to that, but I also don't want you to be too naive that like you don't know what's going on.
It depends on the kid's age. Depends on the kid. You can't just, as a parent, you can't just draw like certain hard and fast rules and then be like, this applies to every single one. Like, it's like, that's not really reasonable. Like, because then you're just kind of taking a cop out approach to parenting where you're like, this is just how we do it. And like, sometimes that's all you can do. So you have to like set boundaries, but I think you'd be kind of doing a disservice to yourself, your own ability as a parent. And then like for your kids' experience to just say, no, we just don't do that in this house. And it's like, okay, I can get that from a certain perspective, but at some point that is going to be taking away and your kid's going to push back. At least I would if I was that kid, because I did push back when my parents said things like that.
Sure.
And if I found myself in a situation I probably shouldn't have been in. So it's like, maybe if they were a little more, I don't necessarily think this applies to me, but like some kids I knew, like their parents were like, nope, you just don't do that. And it was like, well, that kid then went and did it more. It's like my mom and dad often took the approach of like, well, yeah, you can do that and you can do these things, but you have to be aware of the risks. And if you make a mistake, like you're going to own it and you're going to deal with it. And so my mom and dad were really good about things like that.
Sure.
So it's like, I think that same principle kind of applies to like the whole idea of surrounding Halloween. And you can even get into like celebrating Christmas improperly if you put too much emphasis on presents or like certain traditions. Like
how early do you celebrate?
Right. There's there's all kinds of things you can even get to there that they're probably not on the same level as like how devious and bad Halloween can get, but there's still not good ways to celebrate certain holidays. So it's like, any holiday can kind of fall into that same trap of like too much secularism encroaching, and you just make it all about presents and this, and you lose certain values, or you like emphasize the religious aspect. I hesitate to say too much, but kind of like to the exclusion of all the other good stuff. Because it's like presents are good. Right.
Like sweets are good. But if you're like, no, today is Christmas, so we're just going to sit in the living room and think about Jesus.
And we're going to do a 6-hour holy hour. And you're like, okay.
But like, can't we have some presents? Can't we have some snacks? Like,
right.
Can't we have, but like, why don't we make the emphasis on Jesus? And like, maybe we only do one present on Christmas and the rest of the presents are the next day. Or like,
so,
we don't have that many presents. Or like, whatever it ends up being. As long as your kids know that what we're celebrating is Christ's birth, and there's all this other awesome tradition that comes with it. Because I think to like say that the other tradition is bad is wrong, and I also think it's wrong to highlight the other traditions over the actual reason.
And so like
it should be both.
Any holiday, but probably especially Halloween, there's just more room for error, but that doesn't mean there's no room for like good things about it.
Right. Yeah, I also think that Catholics maybe could do a better job of doing both. Because we didn't trick or treat when I grew up, and I thought there were good reasons for that, and I also thought there were some bad reasons for that. But I also have friends that only trick or treated, but like didn't do anything for All Saints Day.
Right.
And I was kind of like, but as a Catholic, like, why can't we do both? Like, why can't we dress up as whatever hero we want, or maybe a goblin or a ghost, or like something a little bit spooky, and trick or treat and have candy. And then like we have All Souls Day and we remember the dead and we do the Requiem Mass. And then we have All Saints Day. And then like, that's the emphasis on the saints. And like, we read about the saints, and like, we kind of have the best of both worlds. We're like, as Catholics, we believe in these things. And then there's like kind of some fun secular stuff.
Yeah.
Like, why can't we have cookies and caroling on Christmas and also celebrate Jesus? Why does it just need to be the one?
Right.
Like, why don't I have both?
My sister does a really cool thing with her kids, like on Halloween and All Saints Day, where she's like prepping them for like a couple weeks in advance of like, Halloween's great, but like we're really doing all the things that we're doing in preparation for All Saints Day. So like, she doesn't necessarily say you can't be a hero or thing, but she kind of emphasizes that it's cooler to represent a saint. So like some of her kids just choose to be a saint for Halloween and All Saints Day, but she encourages them to dress up as like, well, if you want to be Captain America on Halloween, you should also pick a saint to like kind of emulate on All Saints Day too. Because like if you're going to emulate one hero, you should also emulate a more positive hero, and she kind of puts more emphasis on it. But she doesn't do it to the exclusion of one.
Yeah,
she just does it.
It's
to
not like
the
this
positivity.
character's bad. Yeah,
she does it to the positivity of another. So like all my nieces and her family, like like they wanted to be Captain America, Hulk, Princess, Ballerina, whatever. But then she's like, okay, but like, Call of Cooties is pretty cool. So you could dress up as like you wear like a red polo and like carry around a laptop or something, like something silly. Or like you could try to be Saint Gregory, and we could like, char one half of your body or something to kind of like emulate like what they did and the suffering they went through. Or like my one niece it's kind of cool, kind of a little disturbing, but she like, I don't remember what the saints, I think Saint Magdalene, but I could be wrong, who had like her eyes on the plate. St. Lucy. Yeah, thank you. So she went to St. Lucy, and she literally like made little eyeball like stuffies and put them on a plate, and that was the saint she was.
It's funny you mentioned that. I also feel like there could be, and I don't know if I would actually do this, but I think there might be a good argument to be made that the balance is you make your kids be saints, but you let them do whatever saint, and you get super creative. Like, you want to be an army guy? Great. We have army saints. You want to be a Roman centurion? Great. You're a soldier.
You can be St. Paul.
Like, yeah, you can't be, maybe you can't be like a superhero or a basketball player, but like you can be pretty much anything else, because the saints there's lots of different saints who did lots of different things.
Sure.
And you can kind of lean into the stereotype of what a soldier looks like, or what a captain looks like, or a sailor looks like, or whoever. You do that, but you still get to go trick-or-treating. And then we use that as positive reinforcements for the saints. You get to learn about the saint. You do something cool. You also get the candy, so you're still having fun, and you're not like bullied, and you get to be a part of that, and you go with your friends. And kind of the third and maybe like most important aspect is you also get to sort of evangelize without it being creepy. Like, you don't just go to this like All Saints Day party with all these other Catholics and just like talk about the saints. You're going to someone's house who has a witch in their front yard, and they're like, oh, who are you? And you're like, oh, I'm Pope John Paul II. And they're kind of like, oh, who's that? And then you have like a 5-year-old explaining a pope. Like, that's not every situation. Not everyone can do that. Not everyone will do that. But maybe like that could be a good in between, where if your kids are open to it and you kind of make it cool and you don't make it like really creepy and weird, your kids actually might want to dress up as saints, still do the trick-or-treating, and then be like, yeah, I'm confident in this. Like, this hero of mine is a saint, and here's what like the saints are. I think that could be kind of a cool thing.
I think my nephew did Saint Stephen, where he like made like a monstrance and put it under his like, and you can kind of clearly see that it was like the outline of a monstrance under his cloak. And then he like put sores all over his body to like represent him getting stoned. And you're like, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Like, that's a really cool saint to emulate.
Yeah.
He learned about it.
And some of the saints were killed in a really crazy way.
And he still emulated like kind of still the spirit of Halloween, where it was like, like life's not all sunshine and roses. Like, sometimes crazy stuff happens, and you're going to die for something that's bigger than you.
Right. Saint Sebastian, you're like walking around with arrows in you.
Yeah, I think, so there's cool things that you can do like that. And if you don't necessarily have to do it to the exclusion of Captain America, but you can do it in the positive reinforcement to those things. And it's like, oftentimes when kids realize that they got that choice, and like, oh, well, dude, St. Stephen's way cooler than Captain America. I'd rather go like that. And you're like, cool. Or, some years, like, the kid's like, no, I really just want to be Hulk.
Yeah.
You're like, okay, you can be
Hulk. I think that, and I think that's something that I wish that, or I guess I don't wish, I want to make sure that I try to do. Like, if my kids have heroes, whoever they are, that were especially if they're good role models, to be like, yeah, that's great. Like, you embolize this NFL player, or you idolize this certain person. Okay, well, like, let's talk about it. Why do you idolize them? Why are they cool?
Why do you want to be them?
Why do you want to be them? And then if it's for a good reason, great. Let's like get you the uniform, or let's get you the suit, or let's get you the whatever. And then I want you to tell people, like, I want you to be passionate about this. Tell people, and maybe when you're 10 years old, you're going to be embarrassed about this, but as a 5-year-old, if you're super into Luke Skywalker, great, go as Luke Skywalker, and tell people why you think he's cool. Like, that's a cool thing to do. Like, kind of stand for the principle of what you think you believe in.
And so there's that aspect, but I can also see like the pushback being like, well, my kid just really wanted to be like Freddy Krueger from Nightmare on Elm Street, and you're like,
yeah, you got to try the line somewhere.
And I'm kind of, maybe I'm wrong, maybe I'll change my opinion, but like, I'm also kind of like, yeah, fine.
Yeah.
Like, like, I don't really care that much. Like, I'm not going to die on that hill. Why? I don't necessarily have a great reason, but like that's kind of where I'm at now.
Yeah, I think it would depend on the age.
Sure, like
if I feel like if they're like 14, 15 and they're still doing trick or treating and they want to be something like a little more edgy, I might be like, yeah, it's kind of funny. This will embarrass you in 5 years. That's fine.
Or like they go to like a party and they're like, yeah, I just want to like really stick it to like, Mrs. Whoever who's like a real, and you're like, okay,
that's kind of funny.
I can kind of
$10. Yeah,
I can kind of see what you're going for here. So it's like there's a lot of intention behind it too, and it's like sometimes the kid just likes that.
I feel like it might depend too if it's like your son or your daughter, and this is all projection because like both of our kids are little. But I feel like for me, if my son was like, I want to do something kind of edgy and I want to do this, I might be like, yeah, I totally get that. I would do that if I wasn't 40, right? Like, yeah, sure. But if my daughter wanted to be edgy, I'd be like, no, you can't do that.
Yeah,
like,
and
you're not wearing that.
I don't necessarily think that that's a bad approach, but like I don't think it's like a one size fits all. Like I think sometimes it can kind of work, and sometimes like no. And that's kind of where I'm like I don't want to just draw hard lines because like sometimes my kid might get creative and operate within the boundaries I've given him, and I don't like it.
Yeah,
I don't want to just take away.
But like, what's the reason?
My authority because I've set certain rules and be like. Yeah, you can do that, I guess, now, but I'm not happy. It's like I don't want to find myself in that situation either.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
Because like I was like, I was pretty creative. I knew friends were pretty creative, and they would do things like that, and their parents would be like, I guess I have to let him do it because he found a loophole. And I was like, that's not the message I want to teach my kid either.
Yeah, kind of spirit of the law.
So that's kind of where I'm like, I don't like the idea of hard and fast rules in that sense, but I'm not closed off to it. I just... My kid's one, so like I haven't really had to think about it that much.
It's really just different per kid, I think, because like I know some of my friends had like a strict, like growing up especially as like 16, 17, 18, they had like a strict curfew they had to be back by,
which is fine.
Yeah, I think it's totally appropriate. I think that's like I didn't shame them. I think I
didn't have a strict curfew.
I never had a curfew, but I think if my parents made a curfew, I would have broken it a bunch of times. They never made a curfew. They just said text when you get back, and if you're not back after midnight, like
we're gonna have to have a conversation about what was going on.
Or they would just say if you're not back by midnight and we're like already in bed, we're gonna text you and try to figure out where you are, or like can you text us so we know. But like there were a few times I was late, but it was like a christening dance, and I was there till 2 a.m. cleaning up, and I would just text them, hey, I'm on my way back. I was cleaning up, and they were like, cool.
Yeah.
But there wasn't a distrust. But I think if they were like, where are you? Follow up right now. Why aren't you answering my call? I'd be like, my gosh, chill out. I'm an adult.
But it also depends on.
But it does depend on the kid because I could have been
who you are, what your history is.
And that's the thing. Like I could have been doing terrible stuff, and they would have never known. But I wasn't a bad kid, and so I wasn't doing terrible stuff.
It's like on the flip side, it's like I probably pushed the boundaries a lot more than I needed to, and like my mom didn't just never give me rules and boundaries, but like maybe I needed more.
Maybe you should have had more. Yeah.
Maybe I should. So it's like there can be both that exist at the same time. It's like I never necessarily got into too much trouble, but it was like, there's sometimes where
there were probably things you did that like your parents wouldn't be happy about.
Oh, for
sure. And you definitely wouldn't have done if they said be home by midnight. Right?
Oh yeah. Because it's like I was still scared of my dad to an extent. Where I was like, if he told me this, like I was probably gonna try to make that happen. But like if he didn't give me the rule, then I'd be like, I'm good to do what I want. And it's like, well, that's not necessarily great. It's like.
Yeah.
I hate to be the guy who's like, I don't know. But like I'm not in that scenario, so I can't tell you what I do.
It's always developing too. Yeah.
I just think you kind of put yourself in a sticky situation when you just draw hard and fast lines and then you just assume that your kid's doing something bad when it's like, man, maybe they had a good reason.
Yeah.
But, maybe they didn't. And so you kind of have to be open to both, I'd say. Like,
yeah, and that's why I think the most important thing is like as your kids get older, and granted, like again, both of our kids are pretty small, but I just see this in my siblings and other people's families and stuff where it's like if you raise your kids in a good way and you have a good relationship with them and you trust them and you have pretty open dialogue, they're going to mess up. They're going to break the rules, but like as long as they can come to you and tell you they're sorry or they're in a pickle or whatever.
I need help.
That's more important than this is the hard and fast rule, and if you break this, you're dead to me. Because then, maybe they don't break the rule, but they might break the rule, and then you're not there to help them, which of course you want to be there to help them.
Yeah, and then you I think it's a lot better situation.
I think it's a lot better to be like, hey, generally this is why. Like, Not that I think there is a time and a place to be like, because we said so.
Yeah.
Like you can't see this movie because we said so. And you just need to respect that. But I do think that as your kids get older, as they're like 17, 18, 19, whatever the cutoff is before they're kind of like on their own, to be like, hey, this is what we're thinking. We don't think you should see this movie because of this scene, because of this, because of that. What do you think about it?
Yeah.
Not because you're going to change your mind necessarily, but if your kid is like, yeah, I agree. I don't think I should see it. Good.
And
that's why you're not seeing it, and you're on the same page. Or they say, I don't care, and then you're kind of like, well, you can't do it now.
Yeah, right.
And we got to lay that down.
And that's kind of why I said earlier, it's like when you lay a hard and fast rule, and your kid finds a way to operate in it, but then he finds a loophole that you didn't think about. I don't want to exclude myself from being able to lay down of like, no, I'm not comfortable with that.
Yeah.
At the same time, I don't want to just like create hard and fast rules also where like, it kind of creates a barrier between me and the kid.
Yeah.
So like, that's kind of why I'm hesitant to just be like, yeah, no. Mm-hmm. Or like, yeah, totally. Like, I'm like, no. There's definitely a way to do this.
Yeah.
But you can't just be an absent-minded parent one way or the other.
Yeah.
And so like, that's kind of why I'm like, I'm not committing to a super hard one.
Sure.
Because I think there's a lot of room for like variance.
Yeah.
Especially with, and you'd be surprised.
It's so interesting.
You'd be surprised at how often, I think you would be surprised at how often a kid would be like, oh man, all of you guys were at a bonfire and you were all smoking weed and you got arrested. And you're like, well, I didn't smoke weed. I'd want to be able to trust my kid in that scenario and be like, all right, well, let's talk about this. And then if he gives me something where I'm like, yeah, okay, maybe, I don't think you did. Maybe you were just there. Mm-hmm. But you didn't necessarily do anything wrong. You were trying to be responsible, but I didn't equip you with the tools for you to handle the situation. So maybe it's my bad and you actually don't deserve any kind of punishment. Like,
right.
I think there's scenarios like that exist, but at the same time, I don't want to be the parent who's like, oh, no, my kid would never do that.
Right.
You don't know that.
Yeah, right.
Remember when you were 17?
Yeah.
You might have been the kid instigating it all. So, like, I don't want to have, like, those blinders on at the same time. So,
sure.
I think, like, that's why it's like, yeah, every situation.
Yeah.
Kind of requires your full attention. And it's important enough for you to be like, no. It depends on a lot of things.
Yeah, and obviously a lot of this will change in the next like 10 or 15 years as our kids are like teenagers and all that. Like they're pretty small now, but it is.
But if your kid ever influences my kid poorly, no.
Yeah, right, you're dead to me. Yeah, no, but I've kind of been thinking about this because it's so funny how that like the things that growing up when you're like 15, 16, you're like, oh my gosh, my parents did this, I would never do that, they're stupid and blah blah blah. And then you start having kids and then you're kind of like, yeah, that makes more sense. But like, maybe I wouldn't do it in that way or this way. But then your kid is totally different from how your siblings were. And
or how you were.
And so like things that even in the last year where I was like, I would never do that. But then like Eileen is doing things where I'm like, oh, I guess I need to like discipline her because like my siblings weren't bad in this way, but she's bad in this way. Like I don't remember, granted I served a lot, but I don't remember ever taking my siblings out of church very much. Maybe my sisters did more. I think they were just like better behaved. Maybe my parents were more strict. Like I don't remember them being taken out of church that much. And like the last month or so, almost every mass I'm in the back with Eileen. And I'm kind of like, is this a stage? Is this a phase? Or do I need to be like, smack, don't do that. And then let her cry. And then like, we need to sit in church. I don't know. But it's kind of weird because like there are kids where I'm like, I never see them in the back. So are they disciplined better or are they just less active? Like they're just better kids. I don't know. Because I'm happy to discipline her.
Right.
But she's also like a year and a couple months. So like she's not like
malicious.
She's not rebelling.
No.
But at the same, like if she's 4 years old and can't stop talking to her in church, okay, she's going to get spanked. But she's at this weird stage where it's like, well, she's probably talking because she's hungry or because she's tired or like, you can kind of make excuses. At the same time, you're like, yeah, maybe you just need a spank. Like, I don't, and it kind of depends. Like some Sundays I'm like, you just need to be spanked and like, you're being terrible. And then other Sundays I'm in the back and I'm like, I'm so sorry. I'm sure you're tired and hungry and I feel bad for you.
Yeah. I mean,
it's just really funny.
I'm definitely more in the camp where like, I don't really see a scenario where I will spank my kid.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah. It's just like, I don't know, man. I just think about when I was a kid and I was like, yeah, but dad this or mom this, and they just wouldn't listen. And then you got spanking. You're like, yeah, you guys just don't understand. Or like, he's like 2. Or he's like 1, and he feels like he's 2. He's like 15 months old. Yeah. He's just like, he just wants to do stuff. And the things that he wants to do, he's not allowed to do because we're in church.
Right.
So I have to take him out back. Or like,
yeah.
Like me spanking him isn't going to do anything. And it's like, even if, I mean, I'm not a parent of a 7-year-old, but I'm like, I don't really see very many scenarios where it's like, that's going to achieve what I want. If anything, it's just going to like make him cry, make me feel bad. And maybe the kid was just hungry. And it's like, man, I get hungry and pissed off sometimes. And I act stupid even now.
Right.
I don't deserve to get punched in the face because I'm hungry.
Right.
Or tired or whatever. So like,
yeah,
like,
I definitely think that spanking should be more limited, but I've gone back and forth, and I think where I've kind of ended up is like, I'm pro spanking, but there's a lot of caveats to that.
Sure.
Because I think that it really depends on the kid. I think there's some kids, like some of my siblings, I remember my parents, like with some of my brothers, they'd be like, don't do that. They would do it. Don't do that. They would do it. And it was kind of like, okay, well, we're at a point where you have to either spank them, put them in the corner, banish them to their room. Like they're not listening. And then some of my sisters, these are my brothers, some of my sisters, they'd like, don't do that. Immediately cry, never do it again. And you're like, okay, well, yeah, sure. The girl doesn't need spanked because they were corrected once. They cried, they were hurt by it for days, and then they just never did it again. And then the boys, it was like, I can spank you, and 10 minutes later, we're playing on the floor, and you forgot about it.
Sure.
So I think there is kind of room for that, but I think a lot of it is personality dependent, and I also think it's like what they did. Because if it's something they did that's really bad, I think sometimes it's better to be like, there's a consequence immediately. That could just be, hey, don't do that. It could be just words. It could be a slap on the hand. It could be in the corner. It could be timeout. There's different things you could do. But I think that to rule out spanking, I guess it depends on why you're ruling it out. I'm not a fan of people ruling it out to be like, oh, spanking is child abuse. I think that's total garbage. I think you obviously can abuse your child. I think you can overspank. But I think to say that anytime you spank your kid is child abuse is probably generally not true.
And I'd probably agree with you there, but I would just kind of put in the thing of like, how confident are you? And, I'm not necessarily judging you if you spank your kids necessarily, but I'm just saying, like, for me, like, I don't know, man, like, I'm pretty prone to anger or acting irrationally as an adult. So, like, I feel like a lot of time my spankings would be
out of anger.
Totally. Or irrationally. It's like, that's not a precedent I want to set. So, like, personally, for me and my family, we're kind of taking the hard, fast approach of like, yeah, I'm in the opinion I'm never going to spank my kids. Now, is that reality? Maybe, maybe not. Mm-hmm. But I'd rather approach each situation of discipline and scenario of like, no. Not laying hands, not causing physical pain.
Sure.
I'm going to go through all the other avenues. Maybe it'll happen, but I don't want any part of my mindset to be like, that's an option.
Yeah, I think it does depend on what your kid does.
Right. And I think that's more of just like things like that are very confusing to kids, even if they're being quote unquote malicious. Like a lot of times they're just trying to push your buttons.
Yeah.
A lot of time is just so many things that go into it. So it's just like, I don't know that there's a scenario where myself is in a perfect, clear headspace to just be like, yep, this is what I'm going to do.
Yeah.
Like that to me seems a lot more far-fetched.
Right.
To be in a situation where I'm like, I'm perfectly clear. This is the only thing.
Sure.
This is what justice dictates.
Yeah, I can see.
What I mean?
I can see a few scenarios. I think when your kids are small, like I don't think I've spanked Eileen. I could see myself not spanking her for a while because like I can just say no and she'll cry, and then like if we need to go more, like I draw the line in a couple places. Like if she hits me, even if it's like we're wrestling and she's like mad at me and hits me, like I'll flick her and be like, no, you can't hit me. Like that's a line. Because if I just say, no, don't hit me, and then she keeps hitting me, there has to be some sort of escalation. So I'm not like beating her, obviously.
Right.
But it's like if she smacks me in the face, I'm going to flick her hand and say, don't do that. And then like I want her to get a little bit upset to realize like, oh, I can't hit Dad. So like that's a line. You can't cross that line. The other thing is like if she hits the baby, no, you can't do that. Or like if she's sassing, I think a big thing for me that does make me angry, so I have to be careful to like not be too angry, is if she's sassing Kathleen, because I'm like, no, you do not talk to her that way, right? Like, so, but I think as long as your response is reasonable and you're kind of like, okay, take yourself out of the situation. As a year-old or a year-and-a-half-year-old, do they actually know what they're doing? Not really, but let's just break this habit before it starts. You can't hit me. You can't hit Mom. You can't hit the baby. you don't throw your food on the floor, like kind of simple stuff. Like, no, if you do that, you're going to get a flick. And that's, I think, generally enough. When it gets to the point where they're like 3 or 4 or 5 and they're like lying about things or stealing or, like these little things that like really aren't a big deal, there may need to be a bigger consequence. But I think a lot of what punishment is what's important to them. Like, do they need pain? Is it like a little spanking? Or is it, nope, you have to sit still for an hour, like time out. Like, and some kids, like, they can't sit still for an hour. So like, that's the worst punishment. So I think you kind of have to like figure out what's going to be a good punishment and like kind of what fits the crime a little bit,
I can definitely see where you're coming from. I would just kind of push back a little bit and be like, I think if you kind of approach your kids and discipline from the very early on by not imploring physical means of like punishment, I think you'd be surprised that like you don't necessarily need to do that. And like I
think it might be kid dependent though, because I think that there's kind of a strand, and I could be wrong, but I think there's kind of a strand of like the gentle parenting, which is not a discredit to people, because I think some people actually have kids that are just like good kids and they can just say, hey, let's not do that, and then they just don't do it. Like they're actually respond to that.
I'm not
but I think there's kind of a big
pushover.
No, but I don't think that that's being a pushover. Like, I think if your kid does something wrong and you say, hey, like, we don't do that, and your kid listens, like, that's not being a pushover. You corrected them, and then they listened. I think the problem is when your kid is really headstrong, and then as the parent, you just keep repeatedly trying to, like, let's have a conversation about this. Okay, we don't hit. We don't. And it's like, they're 2 years old. They're not getting any of this information. They might need something a little bit more.
Well, and I think what I'm saying is that a little bit more is more of a physical restraint rather than a physical harm.
Okay.
Because like,
what's the downside?
The downside of physical harm? Well, so for
obviously overdoing it, sure.
Yeah,
but like,
do you think
also, like doing it out of anger, obviously, but like
obviously that, but there's also just like practical application of like, okay, everybody kind of like your kid might react to the physical harm a lot at first, but then if it's like, I kind of know what's coming. I kind of know how hard they hit. I know it's not going to be that bad. You find yourself having to escalate the physical pain in order to get the kid to respond, especially when they get older. So it depends on when you introduce it. Right?
Well, I totally agree. I definitely think there needs to be a cutoff time. Like, I don't think you should be spanking your 17-year-old. Right. So, like, it's like, no, you can't go to the game or whatever.
I'll also say this. Like, so if you introduce it, even if they're 4, but then they're 9 and you're kind of like, that's kind of like in the realm, right? The kid's not going to respond to a pat on the butt. They're just going to look at you and be like, yeah, you freaking loser dad who can't really inflict pain. Like, I don't respect you anymore. So like, if you never introduce kind of like a very remedial, like, unless like justice really absolutely like dictates physical harm, it's probably not going to come in the form of spanking.
Sure.
So like I just
that's fair.
I find it hard for me to envision a scenario where I spank my kid and I go, yeah, that was the best move. I think there's always place for a better move. I'm not saying don't physically restrain. I'm not saying don't be stern. I'm not saying be a soft pushover loser dad.
Yeah.
I'm more just saying like there are things that you can do that would, in my opinion, be better for yourself and for the kid from a punishment or discipline perspective of like, hey, yeah, you did that. Well, I'm going to follow through on me saying you ain't getting any dessert for a week. Like, or whatever it is.
Yeah.
But I'm just like, from a physical perspective, I just think that there's a lot of room for going too far or messing something up psychologically, or even the kid just being like, I really don't give a shit about what you just did there. So I'm just going to keep doing it anyways. And then the only resort you have is like
more.
And then it's like, well, I'm not going to beat my kid black and blue. So there's obviously a limit you're placing. And then when you introduce the discipline of spanking, you kind of open the door for like the kid, especially a boy, thinking of myself, like growing in tolerance and being like, yeah, that didn't even do anything. What are you going to do now? And then you kind of get into an issue of respect. And then your kid starts to look down on you and they think that they can control you because they kind of can. So you kind of open the door for them to like dictate. Because you're obviously not going to take things to a certain extent.
Yeah, but I think it depends on the age, right? Because it's like if you're a 2-year-old, like you're 1, you're 2, you're 3, maybe you're not getting spankings. Then you're like 3 to 8 or 9. Then maybe you're getting spankings. Maybe you're in the corner. Maybe you have timeout. once you're above like 9, 10, 11, then it starts being like, hey, we're all going to watch a movie. You're going to bed. Hey, your friends are all hanging out. You can't go. I think it very quickly becomes less about physical. I'm just going to beat you and like make you cry for 10 minutes. Because if you're an adult or like a young kid, you're like, yeah, I don't want to get spanked, but like I can deal with the spanking if that's the only punishment. What the worst punishment is, I have to go apologize to the friend that I hit, or I have to go apologize to the adult I lied to, or I need to write an apology letter, or you start kind of like. And I think the big thing is, what's the purpose of discipline? The purpose of discipline is not only to stop further bad behavior, but to correct them in a way that they act towards the good. You want the knee-jerk response to, oh, I don't want to lie. Not because I'm going to get hit, but because if I lie, I have to go confess that, and I have to like talk to an adult about it. So like, what's the positive thing we're putting in place?
And that's kind of where I'm coming from. I'm like, to me, spanking is just kind of lazy parenting. And I know that's like a big statement, but like I haven't really encountered any scenario, any example of somebody who like proves me wrong. And so it's like, okay, sure. Like principally, like I'm not necessarily against spanking. Sure. But it's like, give me a scenario where you would, I can always come at you with something better. And if you're just taking an easy way out, I'm like, yeah, well, maybe do better because you're a parent. And
I guess I haven't thought about it. I haven't thought about it too much, but I think my response to that would be there's a kind of a specific age category in which spanking is a good resort, because they're not old enough to be like grounded from like the internet or going and doing things with friends or whatever. And they're not so young that you can just like correct them verbally or just like flick them on the hand or something. I think that window might be short. Like it might be like 4 to 8 or something like that, where it's like, no, you did this thing, spank. And again, and maybe there's not, maybe times are changing. Maybe like there's wiggle room. I just think that there probably is. Now maybe I'm kind of like dying in this hill, because I think I'm on principle kind of against people who say they're against spanking, but you're kind of being more reasonable about it. You're just saying, I think there's a better solution. You're not saying I'm anti-spanking. You're just saying, I think there's a better solution. What I'm against is people who are like, I think spanking at any time, any place, regardless of the scenario, is child abuse, and I'm not going to be a part of that. I don't think that's true. I think that can be true. I think if you're a good parent trying to do the right thing, that's not going to be true.
Yeah, sure.
That being said, do I think that dads should be like spanking their 16-year-old daughter because they did something wrong? Obviously not.
No.
And there's a time and a place. So I think that's kind of like, no. The better punishment for her is to be grounded, or is to not go to things with her friends, or she can't go on this trip or whatever. Yeah. Because that's going to be devastating. Whereas the spanking, not only is it inappropriate, but it's also like 2 seconds of pain. Like whatever. That's not going to do anything.
And if we're trying to be virtuous Catholics, people in general, right? Like we should always be striving for something better. And when you're a parent, okay, well, you had sex, you had a kid, this is what you signed up for. So like, you don't just get a cop out.
Yeah.
Right? Like if we're calling people to not abort their kid because they did a certain action, then you can't just take the easy way out when you...
Do you think that spanking is taking the easy way out?
I think
I'm not disagreeing with you necessarily.
I just say more often than not, it is. Like I could almost say with certainty, like if you do spank your kid, you're whatever age it is, you're probably taking an easier way out than something that is feasibly doable. It just takes more effort and more discipline, even on your part, to be following up, to be consistent in your words, to say, hey, if you do this again, this is the consequence. And then if you don't do it, the kid goes, oh, well, dad's a pushover. Or if you just like resort to spanking, maybe it's not the first thing, maybe it's the third thing. So they know, oh, well, if I can just get through that and get through this, and then he'll spank me. And then it's like, well, then what? Are you going to give me a black eye? Hell no. So then you're kind of putting the power, like I'm saying, like I kind of think there's an element of the child abuse, and I think that's a big part of it. But there's also an element of like, you're kind of giving control to your kid when you introduce that too often. Yeah. And so I don't want to just say a blanket statement, because I think there are scenarios where like physical punishment is what justice requires. I just think that in our state, and like myself personally, because I can't speak for you, there's way too many scenarios and way too many things and options out there and resources for us as parents to be like, oh, no, there's something better I can do that encourages good that I am like reasonably able to know about that doesn't require physical harm to my kid.
Yeah.
Maybe you can call me crazy, but like I'd rather err on the side of not causing physical harm to my kid than err on the side of. So until you can say this and give me a reasonable reason to do that, I'm just going to say, yeah, I don't think so. I think I could do this instead.
Right.
Granted, I'm not in the individual scenarios. I'm not, I'm not trying to place
You're not
judgment.
dealing with an 8-year-old,
But I'm just saying, in general, if your attitude is like, yeah, I'll spank my kid there, and I'm like, are you maybe a little too quick to just go for that?
Sure.
And I think not, like, I'm not saying you're necessarily wrong. I'm just saying, are too
yeah.
many people
Sure.
resorting to that before
I think that's a great point.
Doesn't that kind of seem a little more reasonable and more in line with what we're trying to achieve as Catholics and raising good?
I think that's totally valid.
I just bring that up to a lot of people who like push back, where I'm like, look, I'm not even saying it's bad. I'm just saying I haven't heard a good reason for it, really.
Yeah. I guess my pushback would be, I guess I already sort of brought this up, but I think the parents that advocate for the gentle parenting kind of an extreme way, universally, their kids are terrible. And it's like,
sure.
Some kids are hyperactive. Some kids are disobedient. Some of it's on the fault of the parent. Some of it's just your kid is hyperactive and he's going to be crazy and you're going to be in the back of mass all the time. And they're going to be hitting you, trying to abuse you all the time because they're just a violent kid. Like, there are kids that are more physically active and violent, whatever. Sure, granted. But if you compare that to all the families that are a little bit more traditional, discipline their kids, put them in the corner when they're bad, give them time out, spank them, whatever those things may be. Maybe it's spanking, maybe it's not. Generally, from what I've seen, those kids are better. They're better behaved. Now, are they afraid of their parents? Are they angry at their parents? I don't know. I'm not in the kid's head. But at least from an outside perspective, you see a family that's like, during mass, they just say, hey, don't do that. Hey, like, and it's like very minor, quiet verbal corrections, and their kids are really good. Could that be a personality thing? Maybe. But then you see the parents, they've got 6 kids and they're just all over the place and they're shoving each other and hitting each other and slapping each other and making noise and crying. And it's like, okay, could this just be the kids are more hyperactive? Yes, it could be. But it also seems like the parents are in this losing battle where they're just not willing to like discipline their kids and they just keep repeatedly asking them to be good, but not are like, hey, don't do that or there's a consequence. Oh, you did that? Consequence. I'm not saying that consequence needs to be spanking. I think a lot of times it is. Maybe there's a better consequence. But I still think that regardless of what the consequence is, there has to be a consequence. And if you don't follow through on that, then your kids become demons. Like, that's just the reality.
And I agree with you there. I just think the whole resorting to physical punishment is like...
Why? Is it because you think that as a parent... you could do it out of anger and that's a problem? Or do you think it's because then your kids are kind of like, my parents hit me and I guess I have to be okay with that, or I'm resentful, or
I think it's both. I think it's far too often just the easy way to do things, and it's really easy to just get yourself worked up and then take it out and you lose a little bit of control.
Yep.
And I think if anybody says, well, I'm perfectly in control every time, I say, well, then I don't think you have kids. Right? Like, kids push your buttons, they get you mad, they get you upset, they make you cry, they make you laugh, like all that stuff. Right? There's extreme emotions. So like, if you don't acknowledge that there's extreme emotions for the good and the bad, then you're like a psychopath, or you don't have kids. Right? I mean, I don't think you can disagree with me on that. No. So in that scenario, when your kid makes you upset because they're not behaving or they're doing something that they shouldn't be doing, you're more prone to be upset or angry in that scenario because you're thinking about the way that other people think about you. So your resort is to then do something physically punishing. Do you really? And I'm not asking you to give me an answer. Like I don't want an answer from you. I'm just posing the question of like, do you really think you're totally in control of your own ability to regulate and control perfectly? And if you say yes, I would say, really? Because there's a lot of resources for people in our generation now to like approach parenting, not necessarily in a soft way, because you can still be harsh in discipline and consequences, I think, because you've given a lot of examples of consequences that would work without spanking, to where you could achieve the same end without causing irrational, or not necessarily irrational, but like undue fear for your child towards you. So I'm just.
Do you think that your kids should be afraid of you a little bit? I think they obviously they should love you. They should be able to come talk to you.
Yeah.
But do you think that there's a little bit of an edge, and maybe it's different with husband and wife? Like maybe it's okay that they're not afraid of the wife. They just want to love the wife, but they're a little bit afraid of the dad. No, I feel like there might be a little bit of an edge where it's like, dad's going to protect me, but if I do something wrong, I'm in huge trouble. No, I think that a little bit of that fear might be good.
No, and I agree, but I don't think the fear should be based in like, I'm scared of dad because I'm going to get hit, beaten.
Sure.
I think the fear could be like, dude, like
he's going to yell at me or something,
or yell at me, or like he's going to be disappointed because like, I mean, I've been yelled at by my dad, but when I've disappointed my dad, that's way worse. Or I've been hit by my dad, but when he was like broken up over something that I did, that was way worse. So like there was a very stark difference in the attitude of my father when I did something that was bad, and it was like kind of defeating, or like I said, something bad to my mom, and my dad was like, whoa, that's not cool. And like it was like a big deal. Like that hurt a lot more than when like I broke a light bulb and I got spanked. Like
right.
And that's kind of a very generic scenario. I'm not saying that's what people are spanking the kids over, but I'm just saying like, you should be fearful of your dad. You should be fearful of the Lord. But because you've trespassed against him, or like you've offended him, not because you're afraid of the punishment of hell. So it's like it kind of goes back into the like perfect versus imperfect contrition. Like I'm not that's why I'm saying like I'm not judging you as a parent. I'm not saying I look down on you as a father or human being if you spank your kids. I'm just saying there is perfect and imperfect contrition, and there's a way that you can kind of mold that within your kid to then be ready to like properly receive the sacrament of penance. And I think that a lot of that comes from corporal punishment versus like just like discipline, and then like them real, because like I mean there's never been a worse feeling in your life or my life than when we made our moms cry, right?
Right.
There's never been a worse feeling in my life than when I made my dad disappointed in what I did. So like I think there's ways in which if you're kind of living that virtuous aspect, your kids are kind of going to pick up on like the ways that they disappointed you with their poor action. And so like I'm not trying to judge you, like I know you're trying to do your best and things like that, but I'm just trying to pose the question to you as a parent in general, like, are you quick to anger? Are you quick to corporal punishment, physical pain to teach your kids a lesson? And are you bypassing some things that are better?
You're right.
And maybe I'm wrong. I don't have older kids. I'm not old. I don't have a lot of kids. I'm just posing that as a thing to ask yourself. Because if you ever get away from asking yourself that question, it's probably a good sign if you've gone too far.
Sure.
So I'm not saying there's no scenario in which you can spank your kids. I'm just saying that has to be a constant dialogue between you and God, or your conscience, or however you want to put it, of like, how are you inflicting discipline or enacting or perpetrating discipline in your house with your children, especially. So like, again.
Yeah, I mean, I think the problem is a lot of it's prudential. Like if you were spanked a lot when you were a kid and you have like a traumatic experience from that, you might lean too far on the side of, we're not spanking, all of it's going to be verbal. And it's like, okay, well, but maybe your kids need to be spanked, or they need to be disciplined in some way. But you also could be in the scenario where you were never spanked as a kid because you were a great kid, and your kids are great kids, and you don't need to spank them, and you just correct them and they're fine.
Maybe that's true. Like, but I'd rather not beat, spank, beat, whatever.
Sure.
My kid, just on like, that's the side I'm going to err on.
Yeah.
And I feel like far too often when you kind of like open that door, you can really get into a slippery slope quick. I'm not saying it's totally wrong every time, because I think there are scenarios where justice does require that.
Yeah.
But I would just push back on somebody who like their kid yells in church and they take them out back and spank them and be like, dude, like, is that really the solution there?
Right.
Probably not. Like, did you give your kid a cheese stick first?
Right.
Maybe they just want to eat something.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe they didn't.
Or maybe the punishment is, hey, we're gonna go in the back. If depending on how old they are,
and you're not playing with any toys.
You're not playing with any toys. You're gonna sit here, and if we have to go to the back, I'll take you to the back because you're being loud, but you won't get a donut after mass.
Yeah, and follow through.
Okay, all right, we're going to the back. You don't get a donut.
Yep.
After mass, nope, you don't get a donut.
Yeah,
that might be a better punishment.
And there shouldn't, and at the same time, it's like, hey man, if I told you once, that's it. Yeah, I'm not giving you 3 strikes and you're out. I think that's also bad.
So I think as fathers, you especially have to do that when it's like a disservice, or it is a disservice if you don't follow through, especially when it's related to the mom. Like if Sadie or Kathleen or whatever has like corrected the kids, and then they say, hey, can you step in and take care of this? And then you say, hey, don't do that. And then they do it again. Boom. Dude, it has to be over then. There can't be any
whatever my punishment is going to fit the crime there.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying, I don't know that it's spanking. I don't know
interesting.
That, like,
no, it's a really interesting take, because I think a lot of people that I've talked to that are like anti-spanking, anti the death penalty, they're kind of anti a lot of the things that it's like, oh, it just sounds too violent. And I'm kind of like, I get where you're coming from, and that actually might be true. I just don't like the way that you're coming at that. You're coming at that saying there's never a scenario in which spanking is okay.
That's not what I'm saying.
I don't think that, no, and I'm not accusing you of that. I don't think that's reasonable.
Right.
I also don't think it's reasonable to say, no, I think you should spank your kids any opportunity you get. It's like, no, everything in the Catholic world is prudence. It's situational. How did you grow up? What are your kids' personalities? How old are they? Like, there's all these factors. So I think a lot of times to just write off, no, I am or I'm not spanking. I think it's okay to have kind of a if you're like, hey, I'm generally anti-spanking, I want to find ways around that, fine. I think I'm probably more pro-spanking, but I'm also not like, okay, if anything goes wrong, I'm immediately going to spank my kid. It's like, no, I want to find the prudent, like, what's the prudent kind of like virtuous mean of discipline here? Yeah. Same thing with a lot of stuff where it's like, I don't want to write off the extreme because situations call for the extreme. Like,
sure.
There are situations where you need to kill people out of self-defense.
Exactly.
I would never write off self-defense, but I'm also not going to say that I'm going to actively try to kill people. It's like, no, but in an extreme circumstance, I'm not going to say that I would never do that because I hopefully would.
And that would be that's, as much as I'm saying like, oh, you don't spank your kids, like I'm also on the same side of like, well, if you're just a soft parent, like, and there's some people out there like, oh, never say no to your kid. I'm like, well, you're a freaking retard.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Like, you got to tell your kid no because they need to learn boundaries, and you got to give your kid discipline. Yep. And I'm not a fan of the 3-strike rule and like all those soft parenting,
like counting to 100 and like,
right? Because it's like there's so many soft parenting techniques where I'm like, that's stupid, just as much detrimental as spanking would be to them. So like, if you're going to look at someone on my perspective as a whole, I'm very in favor of like stern, hard discipline, being, making sure your kids are accountable, making sure yourself are accountable, but always keeping that dialogue open with your spouse, with yourself, with God of like, hey, like, am I just too angry these days? Like, maybe I need to kind of cut back on this. Like, there's needs to be an always constant flow of that, and be like, maybe I need to be a little easier on them because they're going through a tough thing with something.
Right, they're teething or whatever.
Right, and so it's just like there's so many things that can go into that.
Sure.
I think as much as I'm against something like spanking, which is one extreme, I'm also equally against the 3-strike rule.
Yep. Totally.
It's a one and done because I am the authority and you made a mistake, so I am following through, and that's how you're going to learn. Like, so I'm kind of like,
sure.
I don't want people to mistake my anti-spanking as like
soft.
I'm a wuss.
Yeah, no. Yeah, and I think that's a reasonable take. And I think if you just said no, I'm anti-spanking, I think that's child abuse, I'd be like, okay, but you got to lay down the rules sometime. But if the approach is, or the mentality is, no, my kids are going to listen to me, I just think that there's better options than spanking, and then if I need to resort to spanking, I will. Or if I deem that necessary, I'm not afraid to do that. I think that's reasonable. Right. I think where it becomes unreasonable is when you're either the extreme of it's always spanking, or I'm never going to lay a hand on my child. I'm like, okay, well, what if your child comes up and punches your wife in the face and they're 10 years old? I'm going to tackle that kid, and I'm going to probably spank them, or I'm going to make them hurt.
Well, in that scenario, I'm going to probably do more than spanking.
Yeah,
because that's what justice dictates.
Yeah, and if especially and as they get older, like 5-year-old hitting your wife, okay, hey, don't do that, flick, maybe in the corner,
or whatever.
10-year-old, 18-year-old punching your wife,
you might die.
I'm gonna punch you, and you're gonna wake up next week. Like, no, you cannot do that. Right?
That's what
punishment fits the crime,
and that's kind of like. Yeah, I'd say I totally agree with that.
Yeah.
I just know that in a modern Catholic world with the soft parenting, and then there's kind of a pushback in the general culture. It's like
too harsh.
Hey man, like maybe you guys need to take a step back and kind of reevaluate that position of like the hard and fast rules. So like that's I guess overall it's like hard and fast rules can kind of get you into a dangerous area.
Yeah.
And you kind of want to be. I don't want to say you just want to be fluent, but you want to make sure that your relationship with God and your relationship with spouse is always in a good place.
Yeah.
So that the times of discipline and the times of rules and the times of dictating what goes on with your kids can always be proper.
Sure.
Because it's really dangerous to just say, no, I'm going to do this.
Yeah.
And then it's like, well, scenarios change.
Are there a lot of things that you kind of thought going into like being married or having kids that were like, oh, this is the case, this is whatever, and then after being married, after having kids, expecting a second, that you're like, wow, like either I was totally wrong or I'm at least kind of empathetic to the other view.
I don't know.
Because I feel like there's a few things that I was like, I'll never do that. And then I was like, yeah, I'm totally going to do that. Now that you're married, you're like, priorities kind of change.
I mean, like, I don't know. Yelling at your wife is something I thought I'd never do. Uh-huh. And then, less than like a couple months in, I was like, oh, wow, I am a...
Oh, dang.
Wow, like that didn't last long. Wow, like my kid or my spouse is like really showing through the ways that I'm failing, and I'm like, thought I could overcome it or thought I could be fine, and it's like, no, you're not. You gotta do something better, man. Like, I don't know. That question is so loaded. It's like, if you want to open that can of worms, I could talk about things for hours on things that I thought I'd be good at that I turned out to be
really bad at,
probably the worst at. And then I realized that all the things that I thought I'd never do, I did within 3 months of either having a kid or being married. And that's not very fun to admit, but
Fred had, I forget what interview he had, but he said that his wife talks about marriage as like a lot of what marriage is like your wounds rubbing up against each other. I feel like that's so true, because you very quickly realize how selfish you are, and like
how easily hurt you are, like how much of a wuss you could be in a scenario that like gets dicey.
And it's so weird, because like there's certain things where you're like, and I think it's spouse dependent. Like I think if our wives were talking, they would say kind of the opposite of what we're saying.
Maybe.
But like there's certain things where I'm like, I don't need sleep, I'm fine. And then like day 3 of going to bed at midnight and getting up at 3 and getting up at 4, getting up at 6 and getting up at 7, and then going to work and working a full day and coming back and doing that a couple days in a row. And I'm like, I'm gassed. Like I'm so tired. But like I can't stay up with the baby because I got to go to work, but she can't stay up with the baby because she's got the other baby. And so like, okay, I guess I'm up with the baby, and you just make it work. And it's like, yeah, it's really tough, but I can't complain about it really, even though I do. But like, I can't really complain about it because I was up 4 times during the night. She was up 7 times during the night.
Yeah.
Like last night, Kathleen was up from 1 to 5, and I was like, I didn't go to great night's sleep because she was up with the baby.
Right.
But like I slept from 10 to 7.
Right.
But I didn't have a great night's sleep. And it's like, but I can't complain about that because she was up from literally 1 to 5 with the baby.
I mean, that's probably
like,
every
it's
night.
It's just like and it's like all the time. And it's kind of crazy because it's like, that was something that in college, I would stay up till 2 or 3 at a dance or doing something, and then get up at 7 and work a 15-hour day. And I could do it. But I think that's because when I came back, at least when I slept, it was just uninterrupted.
Yeah.
But like I can't do interrupted sleep. I can sleep from like 1 to 5 and be fine. But if I'm up every hour or 2, I just start getting like really angry. And it's not even at anyone. Yeah. It's just kind of like, oh my gosh, like I just fell asleep. Now I'm up again. Now I'm getting someone water. Now I'm changing a diaper. And then I'm also thinking like, you guys get to just be here and chill all day and take a nap at some point. I got to go to work and drive around, and like I'm doing 6 different things. And
yeah, but dude, being in a house with little kids all
Oh
day
no,
long.
it's way worse. No, I'd rather go to work 100%. But it's just funny. Yeah, it's just kind of interesting thinking about the different things you're like, oh, I'll be good at this, and then you're terrible at it, and then other things that you didn't think you'd be good at, you're like, yeah, I'm actually pretty good at that. Like I can do that.
That's a totally fair point, but it's like just to your point of like asking questions like, oh, things that you thought you'd be good at in marriage or with kids, and you're like,
it's like
what are some things that you thought you'd be good at that you were bad at? And I'm like, I mean, I think the list is shorter of things that I'm actually good at. Yeah. Like I think just about every aspect of the relationship, handling the kid, doing the dishes. I mean, I don't know. I'm so lazy, selfish so many times a day.
Do you feel like women in general are just better at being married than guys are?
I don't know that I'd say that. I think
maybe not as a general rule, but like I saw this really funny bit that Nate Bargatze did. He's like a
I know. Yeah, I know. Nate,
really good, really funny comedian. And he had this bit. Maybe you've seen it, where he's like, it's totally unfair. He's like, women, like they start preparing to be married when they're 2. They have their baby dolls. They have their kitchen. They have their play brooms. They have their play whatever. And it's all about babies and raising kids. And he's like, until I was like 18 years old, I was just playing with dump trucks. And he was like, that didn't prepare me for marriage at all. Obviously, he's kind of making a joke of it. But it is funny where I'm like, I feel totally fine in like the business world and like, yeah, like negotiating contracts and like finding new jobs and like doing different things. Hang on, we'll be right back. Do you ever wake up and have a craving for Italian food? If that's the case, you should check out Osteria Maria's here in Front Royal, Virginia. Osteria's is where authentic Italian cuisine meets heartfelt hospitality. From Neapolitan wood-fired pizzas to handcrafted pastas and curated wines, each and every dish reflects true Italian tradition. We actually had owner Chef Biagio on the podcast, episode 42. Give it a listen. Osteria Maria's, where Italy comes to the Shenandoah Valley. Come for dinner Tuesday through Saturday, 5 to 9 p.m., or visit osteriamaria510.com for reservations. And be sure to follow them on Instagram at osteria.maria. Check them out. Thanks. We're back here with Schaper, and we were talking about how we feel like we're terrible husbands, but we're going to keep trying, and he's going to confess all the things he's bad at. So here we go.
I guess like early marriage, right? If you want to kind of to pinpoint like one thing that I was like, I think I got this in the bag. I'm the youngest of 9. I've had 6 older sisters, so you basically have 7 moms.
Yep.
I was like, I thought I would be so good at living with a woman. Like putting the seat down, never, always doing like all the little things right. Like I thought I was going to be really good at that. I realized really fast that I didn't know how to wash a dish, especially silverware. I mean, I couldn't close a cupboard door. There was just so many little things that I guess like either I didn't get from my sisters or I picked up when living with guys in college, where it was like, oh wow, like as embarrassing as it sounds, it was like my wife wasn't even wrong in pointing those things out. It was just like I was really bad at living with someone who had like standards of living.
That's so funny. I totally agree. And I think it's kind of 50-50. I think there are some things that I'm like, we don't need to do that. And Kathleen would be like, no, we need to. And I'm like, yeah, you're totally right. I'm being a dingus about this, and I will fix it, and I'll do what I can. The other 50% of the time, I'm like, that's fine that you want it that way, but if you want it that way, you have to do it that way. Like, there'll be certain things, and this is not to call Kathleen out, but she would actually probably be proud of me for saying this. There's a certain way she likes the dishwasher loaded. I load it the other way, and I don't care. Like, I put the plates this way, and she puts them that way. If I load it halfway, she'll fix it. But I'm not like, oh, I should fix that so that it's easier for her. I'm like, no, I'm going to load it. I'm loading a dishwasher. I'm not loading it the wrong way. There's not a right way to do this. I'm going to do it this way. And if she wants to go back and fix it every time, I don't care. But and honestly, even if she said, hey, this really bothers me, we need to do it the other way, I'd be like, then load the dishwasher. Like, I'm sorry, I'm loading it wrong. We're getting the same amount of dishes in here. It's getting cleaned the same way. There's nothing wrong with it. So you have a specific way you want this done, you do it.
Yeah.
Because that's not a big thing. But there are things where I'm like, I'll put the glasses away and I just kind of throw them in there. And she'll be like, why don't we sort them out by this and this and this? And I'm like, okay, that's kind of silly. But it does make sense because they fit better, and then like we know where they're okay. I'll compromise. Yeah, I'll put the glasses away where they need to go. So there's some give and take.
And I definitely don't I don't mean to make my wife sound like a Nazi or anything like that. Like, I genuinely think I just, like, did not 100% understand, like, the proper way to clean a spoon. Because I was like, oh, yeah, if I just clean the spoon part and not the handle, like, whatever. Nobody even eats with the handle.
Sure.
But then, like, when you're grabbing the spoon and it's all greasy and you still got, like, whatever, and you're like, I guess that is pretty bad. Or, like, I guess
there's a lot of different
things.
Is
pretty annoying to leave the cupboard open and then you bend down and you pick your head up and you smack your face. Like, that's pretty fair. Like, I should probably close the cupboard. Like, there's just things like that where I was like, I thought I was fine.
Yeah.
Like, I thought I didn't have anything to work on there.
Well, and I think there's like uncivilized, and then there's kind of like a middle ground, and then there's like actually civilized. And I think that I always lived in the middle ground. I was never like, oh, I just leave my food out all day, or like I just don't use a blanket or sheets. But like I never, when I was single, I just had like whatever the scrunchy sheet is, but I would never use a top sheet. I never had like additional pillows.
Right.
I never had a duvet or whatever they call it. Like
I never know what that means.
I don't even know what it means either, but I know it's a thing that goes in the bed. I never had on. So it doesn't bother me if she puts that stuff on there, but like if she goes out of town for a couple days or she's gone for a couple days, I don't make the bed with the top sheet and all the pillows. I'm like, no, that's your thing. It doesn't bother me if you do it, but I'm not going to do it.
Yeah.
That's your thing. No, you can do that however you want. So there's kind of this weird give and take where like there are some things I've compromised on and been like, okay, that's reasonable. And I wouldn't do that normally, right, but I'm happy to.
Yeah.
Like if I'm smoking cigars like we are tonight, I'll shower so that the bed doesn't smell like that. Okay, I can do that. And I won't smoke in the room, but I'm also not going to just give up smoking.
Right.
You know what I mean? So there's kind of you got to find the middle ground, whatever the middle ground is.
And I think Sadie has actually always been really good about being like, this is reasonable.
Yeah.
This is unreasonable. And this is where I'm being like a Nazi. And this is where I'm being like, no, this is just how you live as a human being.
Yeah. Yeah. That's fair.
I know that, I thought I would be good at it. And then there's just like, some small things where you're like, okay, well, maybe I can just get better at that. But like, it was a lot more me than it was her, and I was kind of surprised by that because like I always had the comparison of like living with other guys.
And you're like, I'm clean.
I was always the cleanest guy in every house I lived in, or like with everybody I lived with. And then I was like, oh wow, that's like a pretty bad standard.
Sure. Yeah, it's funny how living with, I think especially someone of the other sex, particularly if you're in an actual like committed relationship where you're trying to like have kids and build a life and stuff, how the smallest things become the biggest problems, and how the biggest problems you can just be like, okay, we'll do this.
Yeah.
Like we've talked about that where like, again, like the dishwasher thing, she wants the dishes facing one way. I don't care. I do them the other way. Sometimes I do them the way she likes. Like there's no rhyme or reason. I just load the dishwasher, put soap in and start it. Like I don't think about it too much. That's a really minor thing. But we've also had conversations, and I'm sure you and Sadie have as well, about like, hey, if a friend of ours ever had a kid out of wedlock and they were like going to give up the baby, I hope you know that I would agree to take the baby without even talking to you.
Oh, yeah.
And they would be like, yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
Like I would call and be like, hey, kind of random, crazy day. Friend of mine has a baby.
We're bringing home a kid.
We're taking the baby.
Yep.
And they'd be like, great. I'll make room in the bedroom. So it's just so funny how it's like the little things you're like nitpicky on, but like big life-changing crazy things that most people would like never do. You'd be like, well, 100%. Like obviously we're going to adopt the baby. Like,
right. Yeah.
I don't even need to talk to Kathleen about this.
There's things where it's just like, that's so true. There's things where you're just like, yeah, no, this is just kind of an understood, like, this is what you do. And then there are things where it's like, okay, but like the little intricacies of like getting through the day, you're like, oh, I guess I could change how I do that. And like, you just got to be patient with me.
Yeah.
But that's so true. Funny. Like the big stuff, you're like, I don't even.
But see, and I think that's the beauty of marriage. And I think that's the beauty of living, just like living a life where you're like, where like you're on the same page for the big picture. The small picture, the day-to-day, the weird stuff, the stuff that comes up last minute, you might like disagree on or have a different opinion about. But like big picture, hey, someone needs a place to stay. Hey, someone needs a ride to the airport. Hey, someone has a kid that they're going to put up for adoption. All those things were just kind of like, yeah, 100%. Like, I don't even need to ask the other person. I know that they would be okay with me saying yes to this. So I'm going to say yes.
Like my wife is so supportive and cool about like, hey, I got invited to a bachelor party. Can I go? She's like, yeah, you got to go. I'm like, but you're like, 6 months pregnant. It doesn't matter. Just go.
Yeah,
like, it's better for you. It's more important that you go than I get a little bit of comfort. But it's like, hey, I want to go to the bar and watch the game tonight. She's like, and I'm like, yeah, it's probably fair. Like, I could probably stay home. It's just one game, and I see that guy all the time. Like, it's so funny where there's just like an understood, like, oh, no, this is like a big life thing, and you got to be there for your friends. And then other things are like, it's Monday. Maybe we can just have a quiet night and go to bed early, and you can be home the whole time. I'm like, yeah, that's probably a little bit more reasonable than me like going and spending $40 at the bar or something.
Yeah,
and sure. It's really nice because I feel like in the secular world, there's a lot of like issues over the small things and then the big things, and it's like
it's nice to only disagree about the small things.
When you have what we seemingly have, and a lot of people that are probably listening have, is like, oh yeah, there's kind of a general understanding of like, this is important and we'll make the sacrifice for the other person, and this is kind of something that I can ask you to be like, maybe don't do that because it doesn't really make sense for what we're trying to achieve overall. So it's really cool, and also to be in a community with a bunch of people who also operate the same way. It's very unique.
Yeah, and I think if you generally set up your house where you're like, look, like, we want to raise kids, we want to have good friends, we want to be close to family. However that pans out, we're going to make it work. I'm going to provide. We're going to live within our means. Sometimes I'm going to work long days. I'm going to take on extra jobs. I'm going to whatever.
Yeah.
But you're never going to need anything. We're always going to have rent money. We're always going to have insurance paid. We're always going to have savings.
Yeah.
That might mean me doing these extra things that you might not want me to do, but I'm willing to do that. And as normal as that is for us to do,
it might not be the way for a lot of people.
It's not that normal. Like, I see a lot of people where they feel like it's like a guy and a girl, they have a couple kids, there might be some kids from a different relationship, the guy doesn't work a full-time job, he doesn't work a part-time job, he's like playing video games a lot of the time, and like they make it work sort of, but it's like the priority there is just kind of like, I work to like pay the bills at a bare minimum and pay off the card as whatever the minimum statement that's due. And I think that in this community, it could probably go too far into like being like a workaholic or something. But I think most of the guys are like, I want to provide so much that like we're totally fine. Not just we paid the bills.
Yeah.
I want to be like over providing because I want to work hard to make this work, which is kind of a cool thing to do.
When you have that drive, like your spouse, at least around here, is like pretty willing to be like, yeah, okay, well, I don't have to work.
Yeah.
So that means you kind of have to do extra work than normal. And so that's fine. Or like you have to take on a job that requires a phone call at dinner, or you maybe not be home for dinner for a couple weeks, but then like there's, we kind of are lucky enough to have jobs where we're allowed to kind of have a little more flexibility. So
yeah,
I don't take those things. I try not to take those things for granted. Because they're really important for like the overall health of the family unit. So.
Yeah. Well, something I think about a lot, I don't know if you've thought about this or if your situation's the same, but whenever I have days where I'm like, I lost this claim, or like I'm going to lose money on this, or I'm wasting my time, or like the podcast isn't making money, or, whatever it is, I'm like, I have it so much better. Definitely better than my parents had it, at least when they started out. Probably not current, but when they started out. And so like 100 times better than my grandparents had it.
Oh yeah. I mean,
like my grandpa worked, I think, like he served in Korea, and then he worked 2 jobs. He was like a forklift driver and something else. I don't even know what his second job was. They raised 14 kids. They never had money. They were always poor, and he died poor. He had a great life, and he has like 60 grandkids, and like has a legacy, and that's awesome. And he is like a super awesome guy, very saintly person. And then I look at my life, and I'm like, I don't really think about money anymore. Like the first year after christening him, it was kind of like, ooh, payments, things are tight. And the last couple of years, I'm like, I don't really think about money. Like it's actually really freeing. And I think that as long as I can maintain this, that's kind of what I want to do. Like, I don't want to think about money. We're fine. We paid everything off. We're not in debt. We have savings. I'm going to work hard. I'm going to work extra. And then I'm going to like spend money on things that are important to us. Vacations, seeing family, doing the podcast, doing whatever. And if I have to cut back, I'll cut back. But otherwise, like I have a great life. Like I'm doing things. I love work. I love my family. I have a great house. Like The podcast is great. I have a lot of really solid friends. We have a great community. Like, there's nowhere to go but up.
Right.
I'm not like in the depths of despair and like barely making it through and like, no, like I have a way better life than like 95% of people in the world. Literally. And you probably do too.
Yeah.
Rental situation's great. Wife, kids, job's good. You got free time. You don't really think about going out and spending money on a bottle of something. Like, you're not counting pennies. It's a great life. Like, that's the American dream. It really is. And it probably doesn't feel like that because it's not so super dramatic. But like, we kind of are living the American dream in many ways. Like, you don't owe anyone anything. You could take a week off work and it wouldn't change anything. Like, that's crazy. Yeah. That is crazy. But
yeah, it's that's a situation.
That's life. Yeah. Like, that's just where you're at, which is really cool.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Well, awesome. I mean, to me, that sounds like a good place to end because I'm probably going to get home soon. So
yeah. Yeah. Well, thanks for coming.
Thanks for having me on, man. It's been a good time.
Yeah. It's good to have you in the new studio and hang out for a couple hours. Yeah.
All right.
All right.
Thanks.
Thanks for tuning in, everyone. Have a good rest of your night, and thanks for listening. Cheers.